Hey everyone. Hope you're all doing well. We're all about bringing high-quality web novel audiobooks to life, and most of our content is completely free to enjoy. Just a quick note, web novels and web novel audiobooks aren't the same thing. Simply reading a novel out loud doesn't always make for a great listening experience. That's why I go through multiple rounds of rewriting and careful editing for every chapter to make sure the narration flows naturally and immerses you in the story, just like reading it yourself. These audiobooks are not just direct copies of the original novels. I've adapted them for a smoother, more engaging experience. And to be fully transparent, these adaptations are made for commercial purposes, so some chapters are paid content. But don't worry, this process is fully copyright compliant. I do all of this because I truly love web novels and audiobooks. I'm a huge fan, and this story is one of my personal favorites. YouTube update: recently, YouTube flagged some of our content for including mature themes, realistic violence, and darker story elements. As a result, we've decided to stop uploading anything that violates YouTube's guidelines. If you'd like access to the full, uncut versions including the more intense or mature content, you can find them on our Patreon page, where we upload everything first. Available now on Patreon: I Am a Legendary Boss audiobook, Versatile Mage starting with the White Tiger Pendant, Naruto the Wind Calamity, the Necromancer is amassing troops like crazy in the apocalypse, the mighty dragons are dead, Naruto, leader of Hidden Grass Village, Naruto Uchiha's Unserious Saga, your lord has a screw loose, Apocalypse I can see the health point bar, killing monsters drops loot, Starsea Fleet Age of the Lord, my monster fuses everything, Naruto, I traveled with a max level account, Fate in Bleach Unlimited Blade Works, killed for 100 years in Hueco Mundo, Aizen invited me to Soul Society, the world conquest giving birth to become a god, my master only breaks through on the edge of death, Bleach the Invincible Slacker from Rukongai, Naruto's Special Shop, One Piece the strongest female pirate cruise, Reborn as Danzō's grandson, must I offend the entire ninja world, Naruto starting with snatching the Mangekyo Sharingan, Naruto Card King, in Hueco Mundo with Shindu template, Naruto the Hidden Danzō, my journey as 4th Kusagakure, Naruto Troublesome Ninja Haruto, Naruto the Hyuga Mastermind, Bleach the strongest Shinigami, Bleach the 5th Division Captain, Fate Ultimate Antagonist, Fate of DXD, Fate I Heard After Death, you can ascend to the throne of heroes, Fate DXD Archer Reborn, Fate beginning with Type Moon, a Berserk Heart, Fate Grand Order Insert, One Piece take the Uchiha clan to the Grand Line, One Piece don't worry, I'm a doctor, building harem and dungeon with monster girls, DXD, Multiverse the day-to-day life of the Sephiroth hero, I'm the bad guy but heroines are obsessed with me, in Naruto, I have an affair with Mikoto and Kushina, many children bring happiness, a shameless start, Naruto Reborn with a Tenseigan, Naruto sleeping Invincible, One Piece, life choice ask me to kiss marine goddess Hina, reborn as the genius son of the richest family, start by eating jacket fruit model, jacket human devil fruit, the days of being the richest man in the ninja world, the Witcher and Madara Uchiha, villain I possess the dragon Yang Dao physique, all saintesses turns into villainesses, all beautiful girls want to stick with me, interdimensional farming in another world, Naruto from Hidden Leaf Village to One Piece, and more. Most of our content there is free, and it's the best place to follow and support our work. The default audio speed is set to 3x, but if that's too fast for you, just let me know, I'm happy to adjust it. Got a favorite web novel you'd love to hear as an audiobook? Drop a suggestion. I'm always open to new ideas. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, X for the latest updates, new releases, and behind-the-scenes content. Thanks so much for your continued support and happy listening. Chapter 1, Aquatic Products at Liss. Okay, see you tonight. After hanging up the phone, Chu Mingcheng looked at the time with a beaming smile. There were still about 10 minutes until the end of the workday, so he immediately began packing up his things, ready to leave work. Just then, his superior, a middle-aged man who could only avoid the tigress at home by working overtime, came over with a document in his hand. He tossed the document onto the table and ordered, "Ah Ching, you need to work overtime tonight to revise a proposal. The client is in a hurry to have it." At 28, soon to hit the big 3-0, Chu Mingcheng looked quite troubled. They couldn't have brought it earlier or later, but just had to bring it when it was almost time to leave work. Isn't this just making life difficult for people? President Chen, you should let the person who wrote this proposal revise it. I have a blind date this evening. Chen Ji was slightly startled, then said earnestly, I'm asking you to revise it because I trust in your abilities. This is also a time to prove your strength. This deal is important. If the client is satisfied, I'll give you a bonus. You've been with the company for several years now, and you're more than capable. Next year 1I'll promote you and give you a raise. Nowadays, young girls are very realistic. Will you still need to go on blind dates by then? Make sure you revise the proposal well, don't let me down. Chu Mingchen was about to say something else, but Chen Ji didn't give him a chance and turned back to his office. Looking at the proposal, he felt like throwing it back in the other person's face to show that he wouldn't do it. Unfortunately, jobs were hard to come by, and he wasn't a rich second generation, so he could only take out his phone to explain the situation to his blind date. Overtime. This boss Chen is going too far. He gives you the proposal to revise just when it's time to leave. Isn't his tormenting? Said a male colleague sitting next to Chu Mingchen, speaking out against the unfairness on his behalf after Chen Ji left. He just smiled and didn't answer, certain that if he expressed any dissatisfaction, Boss Chen would soon find out he had been bad-mouthing him and was unhappy with his work. After that, he would be forced into overtime every day for a while, along with all kinds of errands lying in wait for him. With the boss's temperament, the office atmosphere naturally wasn't great either. And as for overtime pay, it's a merit that the company values you, so why bring up overtime pay? This resulted in everyone being unwilling to do overtime, which naturally led to them trying to get someone else to take it on. It wasn't until 10 o'clock at night that Chu Mingchen finally finished revising the proposal. He stretched and looked around the empty office, cursing Boss Chen under his breath before packing up to go home and sleep. But as soon as he picked up his phone, he saw a message from the blind date and opened it, causing his expression to change abruptly. I'm looking for someone who can be with me often. You must have to work overtime frequently, right? If we were together, you wouldn't be able to be by my side. You're not the kind of person I'm looking for. Let's just leave it at that. Slowly putting down his phone, Chu Mingchen sat on the chair, staring blankly for a long time, drained. It wasn't so much because he was sad about being rejected by the blind date. After all, the two had only exchanged photos and chatted for 3 days, never having met in person. He was just wondering if this was really the life he wanted. His monthly salary was just 7,000, yet he often had to work overtime without conditions. In the county town, life was indeed not too bad, but he was in a coastal city in the south. Even in the county town, the cost of living was not lower than in some provincial capitals in the northwest region. So, after he bought a car worth 100,000 in cash the year before last, he didn't have much left. Because of work, his girlfriend had left him. Because of work, he had lost 3 potential matches from blind dates. All of a sudden, Chu Mingchen felt that life like this was so meaningless. Sadly, to survive, he couldn't throw these proposals back in his face, and even if he was manipulated in all sorts of ways, he could only bear it. Rubbing his face, he took a deep breath, pressing down all kinds of emotions deep inside his heart, ready to go to the seaside to clear his mind. Although it was quite late, at this moment, he needed to vent all the negative emotions in his heart. Chu Mingchen had always had this habit. When he was tired, uncomfortable, or unhappy, he would go to the seaside alone. If there was no one around, he would even shout out loud. The seaside was open and spacious, unlike the cramped office, and this environment made him feel particularly relaxed. The place Chu Mingchen went to was actually his hometown. His hometown was on a small island located in the southern part of his province. Initially, Chu's father had purchased a house in town specifically so his son could attend school there, after which the entire family had moved to live in the town. As for the old house back home, it usually remained empty, though they would occasionally return for a few days during holidays to play. Chu Mingchen himself didn't live at home, either. Traveling from town to the county city company by bus would take nearly an hour, so he simply rented a place near the company. Having bought a car the year before last, he chose not to move back home, but having the car did make it convenient for him to visit his old home to have fun. After all, being an island, there were plenty of activities like boat fishing, beach combing, angling, and camping that men never seemed to tire of. About an hour later, after crossing the sea bridge that connected the island with the town, Chu Mingchen finally arrived at the beach he frequently visited. On a normal day, if it happened to be low tide at 11 o'clock at night, one might occasionally see 1 or 2 people beach combing. But today, the beach was bustling with a crowd of people constantly picking up things, leaving Chu Mingchen dumbfounded. What was going on? Upon reaching the beach, the scent of the ocean hit him, and under the glow of the flashlight from a nearby beachcomber, a sandy beach teeming with lively mud shrimp caught his eye. TSS, no wonder the beach was full of people, who wouldn't take part in picking up money when the opportunity presented itself. Not just that, but even fishmongers had been drawn to the scene, conducting transactions right on the spot. Without a second thought, Chu Mingchen immediately drove back to his old house, grabbed all the buckets he could find, and hurried back to the beach to join the money-picking frenzy. Just as he picked up a fresh mud shrimp that was 15 centimeters long, not counting its claws and tail, a data panel suddenly appeared in his mind. Aquatic Bestiary, Level 0, Current Experience, 1 out of 50, Unlocked Capturing Tools, Hand, Fishing Gear, Maximum Aquatic Level, 50. Aquatic species, mud shrimp, special abilities, none. Note, all functions of the aquatic bestiary are only effective on wild aquatic creatures. Chu Mingcheng blinked. Was this the golden finger, and it's only effective on wild aquatic creatures? Aquaculture, who are you looking down on? But how come there's no introduction feature? He examined it up and down for a while, and this so-called aquatic bestiary didn't contain any other information, except for the words mud shrimp, which were highlighted in blue. Was that the key point? He tentatively clicked on mud shrimp and, unexpectedly, the data panel changed. Mud shrimp, also known as prawn, level 0, current experience, 1 out of 10, size plus 0%, larger fish of the same species are more likely to bite, influenced by a percentage chance, tastiness plus 0%, fish with higher fat content and better quality meat are more likely to bite, influenced by a percentage chance, catching probability plus 0%. Seeing this data panel, Chu Mingcheng had a bit of an epiphany. Friends who have played games would understand this data panel almost immediately. Judging from the current experience of 1 out of 10, that 1 must be the number of mud shrimps he had just caught. The 10 that follows is likely the number of mud shrimps he needs to catch to level up, after which the level 0 next to mud shrimp would probably change to level 1. If that's the case, the previous data panel showing a maximum level of 50 indicates that the mud shrimp's level cap is 50. As for all the 0% values, those are probably attributes that would increase upon leveling up. But as to how much the attributes would increase, he would only know once he caught 10 mud shrimps. With the beach full of mud shrimp, he wasn't worried about not being able to level up. As for the experience value of the aquatic bestiary, it might be related to the number of species unlocked. Maybe if he caught other creatures later, he would find out. But for now, the most important thing was to keep picking up money. Such opportunities were rare indeed. Chapter 2 Picking Up Money. Chu Mingcheng guessed that the typhoon had swept the mud shrimp onto the shore as it passed by their sea area during the day and turned northward. He had already inquired with the fishmongers who had came to buy, and they only wanted ones larger than 12 centimeters, and they had to be plump. The purchase price for those over 12 centimeters was 12 yuan each, and the red mother shrimp over 20 centimeters was quite expensive, selling for 40 yuan per jin. This price was a bit exaggerated, almost half less than the retail price in the market, but it wasn't strange to have prices pushed down under such special circumstances. Chu Mingcheng initially wanted to notify his family and friends to come and help collect. Unfortunately, it was too late and his parents were already asleep, and his friend had an important business deal tonight, so couldn't come. Since that was the case, he could only pick up the money himself. Thus, he quickly picked out the live mud shrimp that met the size requirement, throwing them into the bucket and sorting them roughly by size. In just 1 hour, his 2 buckets were full. He decided to sell these first. There were hardly any red mother shrimp. After half an hour of collecting, he had only found 3 that were over 20 centimeters, so he hadn't sold them yet. The other 2 buckets of mud shrimp, totaling 47 jin, sold for 564 yuan, transferred directly to his mobile phone. Did he just earn the equivalent of 2.5 days' wages in 1 hour? The negative emotions in Chu Mingcheng's heart instantly vanished completely. Indeed, the most stress-relieving method was picking up money. The data panel for the mud shrimp in his mind also changed. Mud shrimp, also known as PP shrimp, level 11, current experience, 48 out of 120, size plus 11%, deliciousness plus 11%, catching probability plus 11%, level 11, just like that? Chu Mingcheng was astonished. Had he leveled up so quickly? He calculated the experience value and discovered that each level required an additional 10 points of experience, which meant that reaching level 10 would only need 550 mud shrimp. Now at level 11 with 48 experience points, he had caught 708 shrimp in 1 hour, which averaged out to be almost 15 shrimp per jin. Unfortunately, this was a special occasion. Normally, with the marine animal guide only unlocking hands and fishing gear as methods of capture, leveling up was not so fast. Moreover, to reach the full level required catching more than 10,000 mud shrimps, which would take a very long time with any method other than using a fishing net. Having a general understanding of the leveling patterns of the golden finger, Chu Mingcheng continued to pick up money. He didn't know if it was because he had leveled up, but he found that he encountered big mud shrimp at a higher rate than before. Theoretically, since everyone had been catching for so long, most of the remaining ones should be smaller. He kept busy until about 2 in the morning, by which time all the larger mud shrimp had been almost completely collected. The small ones left over, as well as those that had recently died, actually had buyers too, as there were farms along the coast that could use them as feed. But these fishmongers weren't buying those, and Chu Mingcheng, who had came to make money, naturally didn't bother picking them up anymore. During this time, he sold another 3 buckets, a total of 66 jin, for 792 yuan. He had caught a total of 13 red mother shrimp over 20 centimeters, with each one weighing about 4 taels. Unfortunately, the mud shrimp could only grow so big. If it had been the spiny mantis shrimp, then one reaching the size of a forearm would be considered normal, weighing in at 8 or 9 taels, or even 1 jin. The 13 shrimp he had added up to 5.6 jin, and at 40 yuan per jin, he sold them for 224 yuan. So, after working for several hours, his total earnings were precisely 1,580 yuan, almost a week's wages for him. The mud shrimp had also reached level 17, with an experience value of 168 out of 180. Chu Mingcheng saw this and casually grabbed 12 mud shrimps in an attempt to round up to a whole number, and advanced to level 18. However, his experience only increased slightly, reaching 169. What was going on? Chu Mingcheng was puzzled. He checked the mud shrimps in his bucket and discovered that only one was alive, while the rest were dead. With some understanding, he dumped the mud shrimps from his bucket, including the live one. Seeing that his experience was still at 169 and hadn't changed, he spent some more time finding 11 alive ones. Seeing his level successfully rise to 18, Chu Mingcheng finally grasped the leveling up pattern. Simply put, only live catches could increase his experience points, the dead ones were useless. And now, the mud shrimps on the beach had probably been stranded for quite a while, and were mostly dead. It had taken him several minutes just to catch those 11 live ones, without even considering their size. Based on this efficiency, even if he went back to get a shovel to scoop them into boxes, he estimated he wouldn't be able to level up much. It was already past 2 in the morning, and Chu Mingcheng, who had effortlessly made 1,500, naturally had no interest, so he directly returned to his rented room in the city, took a bath, and hurried to sleep. He arrived back to his rental close to 4 in the morning, but work started at 8. The moment his phone alarm went off, Chu Mingcheng struggled between continuing to sleep in and the penalty for being late. But thinking about why his hard-earned money should be taken away by Boss Chen, he sat up immediately and then squinted his eyes while heading to the restroom to freshen up. Ever since his awakening of the golden finger last night, Chu Mingcheng had been considering resigning. It was indeed not easy to make money with the golden finger in the early stages, but once the levels of most of the seafood improved, it wouldn't make a fortune, but it would certainly be much better than now. The most important thing was freedom, not having someone lording over him. Yet even if he resigned, he did not want Boss Chen to find an excuse to take advantage of him. Today was the 29th of September, and the day after tomorrow was the National Day holiday. Chu Mingcheng planned to resign after finishing work tomorrow. The small company he worked for didn't even have the 5 insurances and 1 housing fund benefit, and upon resignation, one could basically leave at any time. His salary would be deposited into his account on the 10th, and Boss Chen didn't dare to withhold it. Before, there was an employee whose business capabilities were weak, and Boss Chen forcibly terminated him. That person was honest and didn't make a fuss about being fired. But Boss Chen still held on to the salary with no intention of paying. This immediately angered the honest man. After a trip to the labor bureau, the company was fined, and Boss Chen also had to compensate an extra month's salary. According to the labor law, if one has been employed for more than 6 months but less than a year, they are entitled to compensation of 1 month's salary. Although the honest man ended up with an extra month's wages, in this county town, he was unable to find similar work. Boss Chen's company wasn't large, but he had decent connections. After word got out, the honest man was rejected by several companies and eventually had to leave dejectedly. This also was why Chu Mingcheng had always refrained from clashing with Boss Chen. His hometown was near, and without switching professions, he really couldn't afford to offend him. As for changing companies, they were all pretty much the same, and it only made a difference if one moved to a big city to find a company with overtime pay. While the salary might be higher in a big city, the cost of living was also high, so after calculations, it didn't really make a difference. Moreover, having worked at the company for 4 years, even if he simply worked regular hours without overtime, Boss Chen wouldn't be foolish enough to dismiss him. Chu Mingcheng also didn't want to continue working at this company where he was unhappy, so resigning himself was the best choice. He arrived at the office right at 8 o'clock, and Boss Chen was standing right at the entrance of the office. Seeing Chu Mingcheng clocking in just in time, he glanced at his watch with a sly grin and said, "Ah Ching, you are a bit late today, remember to come earlier next time." "Don't worry, there won't be a next time," Chu Mingcheng replied and went straight to his seat. Boss Chen didn't catch the implication and, seeing that it was time, he instructed the receptionist to record all the latecomers and report them to finance later on. Then he leisurely returned to his office, brewed tea, and continued with today's health-conscious lifestyle. As for yesterday's urgent project, it suddenly wasn't such a hurry anymore. Chapter 3 Resignation. Although he was going to resign, Chu Mingcheng still took his work seriously today. Seeing that it was almost time to finish, he picked up the proposal he had completed during overtime last night and handed it to Boss Chen, who was watching a movie in the office. President Chen, this is the proposal you assigned to me yesterday. Boss Chen picked it up, flipped through it briefly, and then tossed it back. This proposal still won't do, revise it again. Alright, I'll revise it tomorrow. He flipped through it, and that's it? And he still wants me to revise it? He didn't mention the proposal all day, nor did he seem in any hurry about it. But remembering that he was going to submit his resignation tomorrow, Chu Mingcheng suppressed the urge to retort and picked up the proposal to leave. However, Boss Chen, who had heard tomorrow, was not willing to wait. Hey, not tomorrow. Work overtime tonight, the customer is in a hurry. Chu Mingcheng felt confident and shook his head in refusal. I have plans tonight and won't do overtime. Boss Chen straightened up upon hearing the refusal and continued with his spiel. Ah Ching, how can you be so thoughtless? Old Ma has said, 996 is a blessing, you should appreciate the opportunity. 996 a blessing? That's just another capitalist brainwashing exploitation tactic. Chu Mingcheng couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Even if 996 were really a blessing, it should come with overtime pay. According to labor law regulations, working beyond 8 hours counts as overtime, and the pay should not be less than 150% of my regular wages. I don't mind working overtime if you provide the overtime pay. Don't bother with talk about learning opportunities and chances. I'm here to earn money, not to listen to your grand principles. Also, once I finish tomorrow, I won't be coming back. Remember to transfer my salary to my card on the 10th of next month, otherwise, I'll see you at the Labor Bureau. Argue and reason? Chu Mingcheng wasn't interested. He had intended to leave on good terms, but Boss Chen kept finding ways to make him stay for overtime, which was just asking for trouble. You. Boss Chen was momentarily dumbfounded and his face darkened once he realized what was happening. You're resigning too? The company has a policy that resignation must be submitted 1 month in advance. You can't just leave on a whim, or you'll be treated as absent without leave. Chu Mingcheng chuckled and shook his head. Your company hasn't signed a labor contract, and most employees don't have benefits like social insurance and housing fund. If this really becomes a dispute, it's you, not me, who will suffer. Seeing he wasn't intimidated, Chen Ji narrowed his eyes and said threateningly, I remember you're a local, aren't you? Aren't you afraid you won't find a job around here if you do this? That's none of your concern. I had planned to work until tomorrow so we could part on good terms. But given the current situation, I won't be coming in tomorrow. How about you just transfer the money for the 29 days of work to my card tomorrow? With that said, Chu Mingcheng ignored Chen Ji's displeased expression, returned to his desk, packed his things, and left. Colleagues in the office noticed something was amiss. His desk neighbor wanted to ask, but the sight of Chen Ji's dark expression scared them off. After leaving the company, Chu Mingcheng felt a sense of relief. Resigning sure felt fantastic, and he didn't need to worry about finding a job. The only trouble was explaining it to his family. He had to keep it a secret for now. If it came down to it, he would just move away, convincing them he found a good job elsewhere. Back at his rental, Chu Mingcheng called the landlord to terminate the lease. He had rented the place on the 3rd of the month, and since it wasn't far from the 3rd now, he wasn't at a loss. He paid a deposit of 1,000, and after deducting the utilities for this month, he had 854 yuan left. Mainly because of the hot weather, he used the air conditioning a lot, which cost quite a bit of electricity. That night, Chu Mingcheng packed all his belongings in the car, returned to his old house, and planned to spend the National Day holiday there. Whether he needed to leave for another place or not, he couldn't possibly leave during the National Day holiday period. High-speed train and plane tickets were probably all gone by now, and driving himself there was a big chance of getting stuck on the highway, so it was better to wait until the rush was over. Chu Mingcheng's old family home was located halfway up a hill, with a 20-plus meter path in the backyard that just allowed a car to pass through. At the other end of the path was the road up the mountain, so moving didn't require passing by the neighbors' doors. He could just park the car directly in the backyard. There were hardly any young people living on the island, as most of them had gone out to make their way in the world, seeing little financial prospects by staying on the island. Therefore, the ones who stayed were mostly the elderly. His father was all right, but Chu Mingcheng was particularly afraid of the gossiping ants in the area. If he encountered them, they would nab him and prattle on and on. But do you think they really wanted to chat with you? No, they just came to show off their younger relatives who were doing well, comparing them to you. Once they had put you down, they felt better inside. Especially since Chu Mingcheng was approaching 30 and still unmarried, he was exactly the kind of subject they loved to gossip about. Returning home, he took out his keys and opened the door, then started moving his luggage inside. The old house looked old from the outside, but inside it had been freshly renovated the year before last. In addition, he and his family often came to stay for short periods, so inside the house was not dirty. The old house had 2 floors, entering from the back door led to a corridor that went straight to the front door living room. On the left was a large kitchen, and under the stairs that led upstairs on the right, there was a bathroom. Following the corridor to the front was the living room, where they usually dined. Next to the living room was a room that used to be his grandparents' bedroom, but since they had passed away over a decade ago, the room was now used as a storage space, filled with all sorts of items. Stepping out of the living room led to the front yard, which was not small, almost as big as the house itself, about 70 to 80 square meters. On the left side of the yard was a well and a laundry platform. Carrying his luggage, Chu Mingcheng moved up to the second floor, where the layout was very simple, just 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Originally, there were 3 bedrooms, but the one connected to the bathroom was very small, leaving little space after fitting in a 1.2-meter wide bed. It was his room when he was a child. Now that no one lived there, during the renovation, they knocked down the walls and specially made a shower room complete with a bathtub. As for Chu Mingcheng's room, it was of course not one of the 2 larger bedrooms at the front. He moved his luggage into the small attic. He particularly liked silence when sleeping, as any little noise would disturb his rest. He used to sleep in one of the larger bedrooms at the front, but the old ladies in the neighborhood couldn't sleep well due to their age and would gather early in the morning to chatter. It was like Tang Sang reciting scriptures. Unable to sleep well, Chu Mingcheng's temper grew increasingly irritable. In the end, there was no choice. During the renovation, he made a quiet attic that finally solved the problem. In the attic, as long as he pulled the curtains and closed the door, he could sleep until the next afternoon and still doubt whether it had dawned, enjoying very good sleep quality. Entering the attic, Chu Mingcheng took out the quilts and mats that had been aired out and laid them down, making do for the night, planning to air them again tomorrow. He put the clothes into the wardrobe, the laptop on the desk, and some things would be sorted out after getting up tomorrow. After washing up and lying in bed, Chu Mingcheng calculated his current savings. He had earned 1,580 yesterday, and a deposit of 854 was returned today, now having a bit over 23,000. He guessed that Boss Chen wouldn't hold back his salary, so with an additional 6,700 due on the 10th, he would have nearly 30,000 available. This was enough for now, and he hoped that Golden Finger could help him ensure he wouldn't starve to death. As for the future, he wasn't worried about not making money. Just by upgrading the grades of certain common and abundant aquatic products, he might be able to ensure his living standards were decent. Chapter 4 First Fishing Attempt. As for what to do next, Chu Mingcheng hadn't figured it out momentarily. He temporarily couldn't travel far, and the only tools available for fishing in the Marine Life Guide he unlocked were his hands and fishing gear. This indicated he could go tide pooling and fishing, but renting a boat to fish was out of the question for now. Perhaps, he could start by buying a fishing rod. As an office worker, Chu Mingcheng had time for tide pooling and going out to sea during his holidays, but he had never tried fishing. Mainly because this entertainment was addictive, he was worried that he might not be able to control himself after getting involved, so he had never tried it. Now that he had resigned, fishing would probably become his main occupation. But lacking experience was also troublesome. After looking up plenty of basic fishing knowledge at night, Chu decided to start with freshwater fishing. Mainly because sea fishing was costly, and as a newbie, he might not get the hang of it. It was better to start with freshwater fish to practice. The next day, not having to work, Chu Mingcheng slept until he woke up naturally and picked up his phone to see it was just after 9 in the morning. He usually got up at 8:30 for work, so it seemed he was accustomed to waking up around this time. Not lingering in bed, he got up and washed, only to realize there was nothing to eat at home. It looks like I really need to go tide pooling to gather some food, he sighed. Income from freelance work was unstable, especially tough at the beginning, so Chu decided to save wherever possible. Later, when his income became somewhat stable, he wouldn't need to be so careful. Leaving through the back door, he drove to breakfast. His home was located more inland, far from the sea crossing bridge, and it was surrounded primarily by older residents, so there were no breakfast places nearby. For breakfast, he had to drive for about 15 minutes to get near the bridge. Near the beach on the island, there were many guest houses and hotels, hence plenty of breakfast spots. A serving of glutinous rice and a bottle of fresh milk would cost him $8.50. Money was indeed hard to come by nowadays. After eating, Chu Mingcheng went to a fishing supply store to purchase fishing gear. There was a suitable fishing spot on the island, a reservoir on a hilltop not leased out by anyone. He decided to fish there. Today, he planned to catch some crucian carp and later buy a bottle of beer to make a beer fish dish. For crucian carp fishing, depending on the season, the fishing line setup differed. Like now in early autumn when the temperature was still high, the line setup was typically a 0.6 subline and a 1.0 main line, using size 3 to 4 hooks. When the temperature dropped, it could be set up with a 0.4 subline and a 0.8 main line, with size 2 to 3 hooks. Of course, the size of the crucian carp and whether it was in a farm pond or the wild also made a difference. The fish in the reservoir were generally stocked, and no one specifically leased Yanman Island's reservoirs for breeding, as people here didn't much like freshwater fish, so the fish were all wild. Chu Mingcheng wasn't sure about the size of the crucian carp there, so he bought a box each of 0.8 and 1.0 subline and main line, along with 1.2 main line, 4 boxes in total. Each box contained 8 rolls, each roll 4.5 meters. As for hooks, he bought sizes 3 to 4, which were sufficient. For bait, he bought the old 3 varieties, Wild Blue Crucian, 918 Wild Battle, and Quick Attack 2, which could also be said to be the best bait for beginners. Since the temperature was still high, he chose the yellow-scented 918. The fishing supply store had a complete range of baits, and with the owner's recommendation, he also bought 2 bottles of sake rice and a bag of corn for bait prep. Having purchased his items, he spent over $100. Chu Mingcheng couldn't help but click his tongue. Even freshwater fishing was costly, let alone sea fishing, which was certainly not affordable for the average person. Boss, recommend some auxiliary rods. I am going to the Hilltop Reservoir for crucian carp. A 4.5 meter one would suffice, something affordable, he requested. After a night of researching basic fishing knowledge, Chu Mingcheng was able to get a rough idea about which fishing rods and lines should be used for specific types of fish. We're fishing for crucian carps at the mountain reservoir. The shop owner pondered, then took out a dark blue fishing rod. This is the Han Top 4th generation 28-tune fishing rod, moderately flexible, more suitable for you to fish for crucian carp and other small to medium-sized fish in the reservoir. The price isn't expensive, just $150, quite suitable for a beginner. Chu Mingcheng picked it up and immediately liked it. Can you make it cheaper, boss? How about $130? Oh, this price is already very low, I'm not making much profit from it. How about this? I'll throw in a bobber and a safety rope for free, and you stop talking about the price. Males, in general, are not as good as women in bargaining, so when the owner said that, Chu Mingcheng felt embarrassed to continue haggling. As a result, he took his purchases back to the car, pulled out his phone to check online, and suddenly slapped his thigh in annoyance. Damn, got ripped off. The same fishing rod only cost $130 online, he had been fooled out of 20 yuan, a huge loss. However, since the shop owner gave him a bobber and a safety rope, he felt awkward about going back to discuss this issue, and considering online purchases would take at least 2 days, the time cost was higher, so he let it go. He went to the market to buy some vegetables and rice, then headed home to make lunch. These days, a man without good cooking skills is embarrassed to talk about dating. He quickly whipped up 2 dishes for lunch. Chu Mingcheng didn't immediately go fishing. Instead, he took out the quill to air and simultaneously began cleaning. It wasn't until around 3 in the afternoon that he roughly cleaned the house, and then he began preparing the bait. Getting the mixture right was important. Wild Blue Crucian and 918 each composed 40%, and Speed Attack 2 only needed 20%. It's tricky to say the exact ratio of water, generally between 0.8 and 1.1. Speed Attack 2 should be added last to absorb the water. In theory, this was indeed correct, but as Chu Mingcheng looked at the overly watery bait, he could only emotionlessly continue to add more bait, only stopping when the slurry thickened. After letting the prepared bait sit for 5 minutes, he grabbed his fishing gear and bucket and set off. The reservoir wasn't far, located at the mountain peak, just about 20 minutes by car. By the time he arrived, a few people were already fishing at the reservoir, though it wasn't crowded. It made sense, though, being on Yanman Island, why would anyone fish for freshwater fish? When he had bought the fishing rods in the morning, he had seen quite a lot of people standing on the rocks fishing for sea bass, and their ferociousness in fishing was unbeatably thrilling compared to freshwater fishing. Moreover, there were many aquaculture ponds in the town by the sea, among them some abandoned ones still harbored many sea bass and mullet. The knowledgeable ones all ran there to fish. Chu Mingcheng didn't go for sea fishing because he wasn't sure if his rod was suitable. Being just a beginner, improper handling might break the line or unhook the bait, and a broken rod would mean a troublesome trip back to the fishing gear shop for a replacement. He just wanted to get a feel of fishing by starting with crucian carps. After parking the car, Chu Mingcheng, with his equipment, casually found a secluded spot near the water where he could vaguely see traces of underwater plants, a hiding spot favored by fish. The reservoir was large and not crowded, making it easy to find a good spot. If you want to catch fish, you trade with grains. Chu Mingcheng's purchased sake rice and corn finally came into play as he grabbed a handful of sake rice and scattered it on the water's surface about 5 meters away. His fishing rod was only 4.5 meters, this distance was just perfect. After setting the nest, he would typically need to wait about half an hour for it to take effect, but he didn't want to wait. He tied the fishing line and hook, set up the stand, and arranged the bucket and folding stool he brought from home. Following the strategies he had read about, he adjusted the flow to show 4 marks above the water surface, though he was just giving it a try. As for finding the bottom before adjusting the float, understanding half-water depth and such, he currently couldn't grasp these, so he just went with it. He pinched out a bit of bait, rolled it into the size of a peanut, and split it into 2 pieces before hooking them onto the hook. With a fishing rod, no casting was needed, you simply had to lift the rod, release the fishing line he was holding, and the weight naturally carried the hook towards the water's surface above, then he just needed to time the entry of the hook into the water correctly. Chapter 5 The Fish Thief After waiting for about 15 minutes, Chu Mingcheng felt that the baited spot should be effective, so he let the fish hook sink into the water. When the float resurfaced, there were roughly 2 eyes visible, which was almost the same as what the strategy guide had described. As someone who had swum in this reservoir many times, Chu Mingcheng had a rough idea of its depth. At this spot, about 4 to 5 meters from the shore, the water depth was around 3 meters, quite suitable for fishing. Fishing required patience. Chu Mingcheng placed the fishing rod on the support, his right hand resting on the rod to detect any movement instantly, while his other hand picked up his smartphone and started reading a novel. Just waiting around was too boring, reading a novel could at least pass the time. After reading 2 chapters, which took about 3 minutes, there was still no movement from the fishing rod. Chu Mingcheng was inclined to wait, but he worried that the bait might have been eaten, so he lifted the rod to check. The previously plump bait had now partially dissolved, exposing a bit of the hook because it hadn't been properly molded. It looked like no fish had taken the bait yet, but the bait was no longer usable and needed to be changed. Since he had prepared plenty of bait for the day, there was no shortage. He scraped off the old bait, rebaited the hook, and cast it back into the water. Read 2 chapters, check the bait. During this process, he changed bait 3 times. It seemed that the baiting finally took effect. Right after replacing the bait and throwing it back in, he had only read half a chapter when he felt a slight tremor on the fishing rod. He immediately put his phone into his pocket and looked towards the water, only to see the float sink halfway before bobbing back up. Chu Mingcheng's eyes brightened, there was a fish nibbling at the bait. He did not hurry and instead tightened his grip on the rod, waiting. The fish was merely nibbling at the bait, and if he were to reel in now, he would likely come up empty. Suddenly, the float tilted sharply, almost getting dragged entirely under the water, while a moderate tug traveled through the fishing rod. Then the float zipped entirely out of sight beneath the surface. The opportunity had arrived. Seeing the float disappear, Chu Mingcheng swiftly lifted the rod, and sure enough, felt light vibrations. A fish was thrashing its tail, struggling in the water. Chu Mingcheng easily pulled the fish out of the water. It was a crucian carp, slightly larger than his palm, weighing about 7 or 8 tails, quite a big one. He reeled in the fish and checked under its jaw, there were no barbels, confirming it was indeed a crucian carp. Crucian carp look very similar to carps. For those who are not familiar, the presence of 2 small barbels under the chin is enough to differentiate them as carps. Just as Chu Mingcheng dropped the crucian carp into the bucket, the data panel in his mind underwent some changes. Aquatic Catalog, Level 0, Current Experience, 2 out of 50, Unlocked Capturing Tools, Hand, Fishing Gear, Maximum Level for Aquatic Species, 50, Aquatic Species, Mud Shrimp, Crucian Carp, Special Abilities, none. As expected, the variety of aquatic species equated to experience points, each new species added 1 point. He was quite curious about when he would gain a special ability. Crucian Carp, Level 0, Current Experience, 1 out of 10, Size Increase, plus 0%, Deliciousness, plus 0%, Catching Chance, plus 0%, he had just started fishing for Crucian Carp, with no bonuses yet. He imagined that as the level increased, he might attract bigger Crucian Carps when fishing. After placing the crucian carp into the bucket, Chu Mingcheng continued fishing. Half an hour had passed since he first baited the spot, and it seemed the bait mix was taking effect. The bites were quite frequent thereafter. He could catch a fish every 3 to 5 minutes, fishing until 5 in the afternoon. Chu Mingcheng unlocked 2 more fish species, whitebait and carp. He caught 7 whitebait, and although the carps weren't large, he managed to catch 5. As for crucian carps, adding the first one he caught, he had just managed to catch 10, which leveled him up. Crucian Carp, Level 1, Current Experience, 0 out of 20, Body Size plus 1%, Deliciousness plus 1%, Catch Probability plus 1%. Chu Mingcheng found that fishing was quite simple on his first try today. However, these freshwater fishes probably weren't worth much. He still had to check out the seaside tomorrow. There were many more varied creatures by the seaside than in the reservoir, not only increasing the species count in his aquatic handbook but also bringing in more money. But now it was already 5 in the afternoon, about time to head back. He hadn't prepared night floats or a headlamp today, and there might be poisonous snakes around the reservoir at night. Without proper preparations, it wasn't safe. Besides, his quilt was still out in the yard, he had to hurry and bring it in. So he released all the whitebait and carps in the bucket. He didn't like eating whitebait, and the carps were too small and had a strong muddy smell. He gained experience points for every fish caught, and releasing them wouldn't decrease it, there was no pressure. As for freshwater fish, he only liked eating crucian carps, blackfish, and grass carp. As for the rest, forget about them. There were a total of 10 crucian carps, somewhat numerous. Chu Mingcheng released the smaller ones and kept the 5 that were over half a pound each. After fishing the whole afternoon, he had caught only 1 crucian carp, estimating it to be about 1 pound. Since he had resigned, he would have to rely on coastal fishing to make money, which currently seemed challenging. Fortunately, a higher level would increase his chances of catching fish, including bigger ones. It was just the initial struggle that wasn't a big deal. However, he still had to take the chance to fish for sea fish, which were more valuable and abundant. After packing up his tools and loading them on the car, Chu Mingcheng drove back to the backyard. He left the fishing gear in the car to avoid moving it back and forth. He carried the bucket of fish to the well in the front yard to kill them, to avoid getting fish scales all over the kitchen and having a mess to clean up. Setting down the bucket, he went back to the kitchen to grab a knife and cutting board. However, just as he left the room, a small head popped up above the wall of the yard. Chu Mingcheng's old home was built leaning against the mountain, so the entire left side of the house connected directly with the mountain, with a water well in the front yard situated along this side. At this moment, on the sloped terrain by the mountain, a cat with a gray pattern on its body was peering curiously at the fish inside the bucket below. It didn't jump down immediately but looked around with its head raised. After noticing that there was no one around, it leapt into the yard with a bound. Then it quickly approached the bucket, its front paws resting on the rim, and its head diving in to sniff around, seemingly contemplating which fish to snatch. When Chu Mingcheng came out with a knife and cutting board, this was the scene he saw. Damn! Stealing my fish. His intention was to yell and scare off the wild cat, but instead of running away, the cat shrank its neck, hooked a fish with its paw, pulled it out, bit it, and took off running. Chu Mingcheng was stunned. This wild cat was audacious, wasn't it? Oh no, my big crucian carp. The next moment, he snapped to his senses and started to chase. That cat was clever, stealing his biggest crucian carp right away. By the time he caught up, the wild cat, with the struggling crucian carp in its mouth, had already made it to someone else's yard. With that speeding cat, there was no hope of catching up. Chu Mingcheng stopped helplessly but then saw the wild cat put down the fish, look back at him for a while, and even make a purring sound. Was it amusement or fear? But he thought it must be pleasure, after all, the cat had stolen such a big fish. Chu Mingcheng was quite fond of cats and dogs and wasn't angry that the fish was stolen, he was just bemused. As the cat had already left, he returned to his task of cleaning fish, killing all 4 that were over half a pound. 2 would become beer-battered fish, and the other 2 would be made into crucian carp tofu soup for tomorrow. Tomorrow, he wouldn't plan to come back home at noon from sea foraging. He had a thermos at home to keep food and soup warm. Chapter 6, The Limitations of the Golden Finger. The bearfish recipe is actually quite simple. You score the crucian carp, then fry it until both sides are golden brown. Then come the seasonings, namely scallions, ginger, garlic, dried chili, light soy sauce, dark soy sauce, oyster sauce, as well as salt, white sugar, and broad bean paste, all mixed together in a big bowl. Finally, pour in some nearly expired beer from 82, stir it evenly, and then add the seasoned sauce into the pot to cook with the crucian carp for about 10 minutes and it's done. Those who like some extra ingredients might also add shredded tofu skin and enoki mushrooms. But since Chu Mingcheng was dining alone, he didn't need the extra ingredients, 2 fishes were enough for him. Ayo, my cooking skills are still so awesome. 10 minutes later, after tasting his creation, he proudly complimented himself. In this life, he didn't have many hobbies. Aside from liking beauties, the rest was all about eating. However, while eating, he noticed a problem. The earthy smell of the crucian carps he caught from the reservoir wasn't strong, just a slight hint. It wasn't that the strong seasonings had masked it, he had occasionally eaten this dish before, but the fish were bought from the market. The purchased fish had an earthy smell that couldn't be covered up no matter what, which he now assumed must have come from pond-reared ones. Those crucian carps were around $10, quite cheap. Thinking of this, Chu Mingchen took out his phone to look up the price of wild crucian carp. When he saw that wild crucian carp was priced at $30 a pound, he immediately slapped his thigh in painful realization. Those darn cats had stolen at least 30 big coins from him. And the larger the crucian carp, the more valuable they are. Wouldn't one weighing a pound cost 40? Heartache to the point of breathlessness. Next time, he had to prepare a couple of smaller ones. Losing the big ones to theft was just too painful. Chu Mingchen transformed his grief into appetite and polished off 2 big bowls of rice. He cooked extra rice this evening so that all of it could be used for making egg fried rice in the morning. Not only would breakfast be sorted, but he'd also have lunch ready. After cleaning up and having a bath post-dinner, Chu Mingchen didn't go out for a stroll but returned to the bedroom, hugging his laptop and continuing to research some basic knowledge about fishing. After watching some videos for a bit, he realized that with his current savings, he could actually afford to engage in low-cost sea fishing. Chu Mingchen thought it over. Having seen the prices of wild crucian carp today, he felt he could consider focusing on catching and selling crucian carp for money, while collecting sea snails to increase the variety of marine species in his album. The next day, he woke up naturally again. Life without work had become a bit lax. Chu Mingchen made some egg fried rice, cooked a pot of crucian carp and tofu soup, and then put on waterproof boots, taking a clam rake and 2 buckets to set out. Today was the 6th day of the lunar month, and the low tide in this area was roughly around noon. To go shell fishing, he would have to wait until after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so he first went to the reservoir for fishing. Still not many people around, he chose the same spot as yesterday. First, he scattered a few handfuls of wine-soaked rice and corn. According to the guides, this is called feeding the spot, though it also required consistency and timing. He couldn't guarantee he would always come to this spot to fish, but for the time being, he would stick to the current schedule for baiting and fishing. After baiting the fishing spot, he then took out his gear and started to prepare the bait. With the experience from yesterday, everything seemed to be in good order today. Today, Chu Mingchen tried to prepare the bait differently, but unfortunately, he failed. The bait didn't have the springy texture when pulled apart. He wasn't in a hurry now, he could take his time to learn. He used double hooks again today, and just as Chu Mingchen was about to take out his phone after casting his line, the water that had been calm for just a dozen seconds came alive, and the bobber reacted. It was a big, solid dip. Hey, starting off with a big one today? It seemed his luck was good today, perhaps he could make 100 or 200 from selling crucian carp. But when he lifted the rod, it felt light, with no weight whatsoever. Did the fish come off the hook? Chu Mingchen felt frustrated. So much for a lucky start, it seemed more like an unlucky opening. However, when the hook emerged fully from the water, he saw a tiny fish hanging from it. On closer inspection, it was a small brown fish with a hint of transparency. Chu Mingchen didn't recognize it at first. It kind of looked like a goby, which lived in salt water, but this one was in fresh water. Moreover, what left him even more perplexed was the fact that the hook was intended for crucian carp. How had such a small fish managed to bite, and to cause the bobber to dip so dramatically? With a bit of confusion, Chu Mingchen reviewed the data panel that appeared in his mind. Sand goby, also known as ground tiger, level 0, current experience, 1 out of 10, size increase plus 0%, deliciousness plus 0%, catch rate plus 0%, ground tiger? Chu Mingchen suddenly remembered, hadn't he often caught this kind of fish as a child? His family used to raise chickens and ducks, and he would often go catch these fish with his friends. Ground tigers were slow and very easy to catch. After catching them, he would feed them to the chickens and ducks, which loved eating them. This stuff is quite tasty when prepared well, and it seems some people specifically buy it to eat, but not many know its value, so it's not easy to sell. However, that was over a decade ago, and I have no idea what the situation is now. Chu Mingchen took out his smartphone to check the price, and when he saw it was even more expensive than wild crucian carp, his eyes lit up instantly. But the next moment, he lost interest in the fish. Primarily because the ground tiger was hard to sell here. You couldn't even find this fish in the local markets. Secondly, the fish was too small. Despite being able to sell for over 60 big coins currently, the time spent to catch a pound of ground tiger would yield a bucket of crucian carp. It clearly wasn't worth it. At the moment, fishing was mainly about making money rather than entertainment for him, and the efficiency in fishing for ground tigers was just too low. Still, he didn't release it. Instead, he threw the ground tiger into a bucket of water. There was a fish thief at home now. He wondered if it would come by today. If it did show up, he would feed it the ground tiger as a snack. If not, he'd give it to the neighbor's ducks. He continued fishing afterward, and this time the catch on the hook was no longer a ground tiger but a crucian carp weighing over half a pound. With his catch secured, Chu Mingchen was motivated. The awakened golden finger was related to the liver. He needed to level up the crucian carp liver to 10 within the week. Based on his experience with catching mud shrimp, he guessed that a 1 or 2% attribute wouldn't make much of a difference. He would need to reach at least 10% to feel the golden finger's effect. Having limited time in the morning, Chu Mingcheng only fished for 2 hours before packing up his fishing rod. In those 2 hours, he caught just 4 crucian carp, 3 whitebait, and 5 ground tigers. The bite was average, and the efficiency was not as high as yesterday's. He suspected that catching so many ground tigers today had something to do with dumping the bait into this fishing spot last night. Fortunately, ground tigers were not that numerous here, otherwise, attracting a swarm of them would be bothersome. He took out his thermos cup to eat, and after eating, he drove to find a suitable spot for scouring the sea. Catching fish at noon is tough even for deities, not just rookies but even people who don't fish know this. There is no need to waste any more time here, he could always come back when the tide rose in the afternoon. Due to the cross-sea bridge and the beaches, Yanmen Island's southeast is currently attempting to develop tourism. There's hardly anything to catch in the reef areas of the beach there, so Chu Mingcheng drove to the northwest side. There were no sandy beaches on this side, but the rocks jutted out prominently. Because it was so far away, even during the October National Day holiday, hardly anyone would come here. When Chu Mingcheng arrived, the vast reef area was devoid of any people. Perhaps everyone went out to play during the holiday. Carrying another bucket, he began searching every nook for any catchable marine life. Upon finding a pool of water, he immediately spotted several opponent crabs hiding inside. These small crabs were unpopular for eating and were now in abundance along the coast. Chu Mingcheng, quick as lightning, pressed down and managed to catch 2, while the other 2 were startled and scurried away in an instant. He threw the 2 caught opponent crabs in the bucket, then checked the Marine Life Identification Guide on his phone. The Marine Life Identification Guide had no reaction whatsoever. The unlockable catching tools included his hands, which didn't make any sense. Without any explanation, Chu Mingcheng was somewhat puzzled. Conveniently, there were some spicy snails by the pool, so he gathered a few and threw them into the bucket to see what would happen. At this moment, the Marine Life Identification Guide finally responded. Marine Life Identification Guide, Level 0, Current Experience, 6 out of 50, Unlockable Catching Tools, Hands, Fishing Gear, Highest Marine Life Level, 50, Unlocked Species, Mud Shrimp, Crucian Carp, Whitebait, Carp, Ground Tiger, Spicy Snail, Special Abilities, None. Warded Lychee Snail, also known as Spicy Snail, Bitter Snail, Level 0, Current Experience, 3 out of 10, Size plus 0%, Deliciousness plus 0%, Catch Probability plus 0%, so the Spicy Snail works, what's going on? Chu Mingcheng was a bit confused about what was happening with his golden finger. The opponent crab didn't work, but the Spicy Snail did. If comparing the two, the difference was one was unwanted, while the other could sell for over $30 in the market. So that's how it is. Chu Mingcheng suddenly understood. It was a marine life identification guide, not an aquatic life identification guide, which meant the marine life he caught had to have economic value. If there was no economic value, then the marine life identification guide wouldn't unlock and record it. This obviously made leveling up the marine life identification guide much more challenging. Chapter 7 Rapid Upgrade. Chu Mingcheng took a stroll around the reef area and found that there weren't any fish or green crabs around, but there were plenty of spicy snails and small oysters. Some rocks also had barnacles on them, but there weren't many, and he didn't have the tools to prize them off. So, today he planned to pick up more spicy snails and sell them at the dock around 5 in the afternoon. As an island, Yanmen Island naturally had its fishermen. Now, with the nearshore resources dwindling, the fishermen with means had pooled their money to buy boats and fish in the far sea. Those who couldn't afford it still sailed their rickety boats in the coastal waters to scavenge good stuff. Ever since the cross-sea bridge was opened, a group of food aficionados from the city, eager to eat the freshest seafood, would often drive the distance to the docks here, waiting for the fishing boats to return so they could buy seafood directly from the fishermen. This led to a steady increase in the price of some of the seafood at the docks, sometimes even double what it would cost at the market. It also meant that the income of the local fishermen had significantly increased, with many making upwards of 100,000 yuan a year. However, fishing was too grueling, and most young people couldn't handle it. But this was good news for Chu Mingcheng, at least he didn't have to worry about selling the aquatic products he caught. Carrying a bucket, he searched and picked up snails, but it wasn't long before he felt a soreness in his waist. Sitting in the office all year round had deteriorated his physical fitness significantly. The six-pack he had when he graduated had now turned into a single pack. Fortunately, he hadn't gained weight yet and was still maintaining his handsome appearance. Chu Mingcheng straightened up and rubbed his waist, suddenly feeling that this kind of life was rather nice. Fishing could become a hobby, and foraging the sea could improve his fitness. After collecting spicy snails for half an hour, he estimated that he had gathered dozens of them and checked his data panel. Warded lychee snail, also known as spicy snail, bitter snail, level 2, current experience, 13 out of 30, size increase plus 2%, deliciousness plus 2%, capture rate plus 2%. The capture rate and size data were quite interesting. Did this mean that with a higher rate, he could just walk along the beach and find larger spicy snails? It was a pity that he didn't buy the tongs for foraging, otherwise, he could have pulled out many spicy snails that were wedged in the cracks. He would have to wait for the next chance. The calm period after the tide went out lasted for about 2 hours, which meant that around 3 o'clock, the water would start to rise. Chu Mingcheng had no choice but to move back towards the shore, and by 3:30, he had to leave the beach. While collecting, he didn't discriminate between small and big snails, picking them all up. However, when selling, he had to release those that were only the size of a thumbnail. Looking at a handful of small spicy snails in his hand, Chu Mingcheng wondered if he released them and then caught them again, would he continue to gain experience, or could he exploit this bug? So, he found an easily recognizable tide pool and let the snails go into it. Then he picked one up again and placed it in his bucket. Naturally, the experience on the data panel remained unchanged. Chu Mingcheng shrugged. It was just a simple attempt, and it was normal not to be able to exploit a bug. It seems that in the future, he shouldn't release the fish he caught in the reservoir casually, he would have to release them further away. It was now close to 4 o'clock, and there were bound to be people waiting at the docks to buy seafood. The level of the spicy snails had risen to level 6, which, according to the experience, meant he had caught more than 200. But after releasing a small handful, he figured that he had about 160 or 70 left, all of quite a large size. He estimated there were more than 2 tails, mostly because of the shell's weight. He drove to the road above the dock where there were some parking spaces, parked the car, and then carried his bucket down to the dock below. The dock here was small, with 2 available routes down. One was a flight of stairs that one could only walk down, and the other was a ramp that allowed vehicles to drive down. But with many people coming to buy seafood at this time, it was definitely congested below, so generally those who knew the situation would not drive down. Chu Mingcheng took a shortcut and arrived at the dock after about 10 minutes. The dock was bustling by then, with some boats already back. Carrying a bucket, he went down and immediately, some people crowded around to see what was in his bucket. "Hey, did you catch these spicy snails yourself? Are you selling them? Just this little amount?" Chu Mingcheng looked at the few people who had gathered around and then grabbed a handful of spicy snails. "I've just picked these from the seashore, they are all decent sized. I reckon there's more than 2 caddies here. If any of you want them, take them for 60. 60? Make it cheaper, I'll take them for 50. Hearing there was a bargain to be had, a middle-aged woman grabbed a handful to inspect and immediately started to haggle. Seeing a purse slung around her waist, Chu Mingcheng immediately realized she must be a fish seller. If she bought from him, she could turn around and sell them for 35 yuan a caddy, and he had more than 2 caddies in his bucket, reckoning he could earn an extra 10 or 20 yuan. A man nearby seemed to have specifically come to buy seafood and heard Chu Mingcheng would sell for 60. He quickly said, "I'll take them for 60, I can transfer the money to you with my phone." With that, he pulled out his phone, ready to pay first. 60 it is then, I'll take them. Seeing someone beat her to it, the middle-aged woman became anxious. Forgetting to haggle, she hastily took out cash from her purse. "Andy, this brother looks like he came to try some fresh seafood. I've only got 2 caddies of spicy snails here. You won't make much profit, so don't compete with him," Chu Mingcheng said with a smile, as he pushed back the money offered by the middle-aged woman and took out his phone to receive the payment. "Fine, fine." The profit was only about 10 yuan or so. The middle-aged woman seemed easygoing, smiled, and did not mind. Seeing that he wouldn't sell to her, she turned to wait for someone else's goods. The man paid, found a bag in his car, and transferred all the spicy snails into it. Chu Mingcheng then carried his empty bucket back and drove to the fishing gear store to buy luminous floats and a headlamp. He had intended to buy insect repellent elsewhere, but the store owner had everything, including snake repellent. It was not unusual for someone fishing at night to have snakes for company, and catching water snakes was common as well, so he shouldn't skimp on such small expenses. He also bought an oxygen pump for 100 yuan, to keep the fish he caught alive till the morning. After purchasing his items, he went to a local seafood noodle shop nearby. Entering, it seemed a bit early as the noodle shop wasn't very busy. The signature dish here was probably the seafood noodles, which generally contained clams, shrimp, and little huang. A bowl was priced at 18 yuan. Just as Chu Mingcheng was about to order a bowl, he saw the sign for crab noodles with earthworm soup. Crab here referred to green crabs, a local term and also an ancient designation for green crabs. Earthworms were locally known as sea earthworms or black earthworms, and some places called them mudworms. Scientifically named delicious Chnang star worm, it is a sea creature that looks frightening but taste-wise is quite exquisite. Boss, you still have crab noodles? How much does that cost? For the crab, you have to choose it yourself. The earthworm soup noodles are 80 yuan a bowl now. Sea earthworms have become expensive, there's no helping it. If you had came 2 months earlier, it would have only cost 60 yuan a bowl. This noodle shop was run by a couple, and upon hearing Chu Mingcheng asking about prices, the shop owner's wife hurried out of the kitchen. So, how much are you selling the crabs for? Crabs are expensive now too, 150 yuan a catty. They are raised by my husband's younger brother. We kill them fresh when ordered, ensuring every one of them is full of roe and fleshy. If you find any skinny ones, I'll compensate threefold. As she spoke, the shop owner's wife pulled out a plastic basket full of green crabs tied with red strings. Seeing the red strings indicating that the crabs weighed at least 2 to 3 taels each, Chu Mingcheng's eyelid twitched, and he instantly gave up on the idea of eating a bowl. However, he was quite interested in the earthworm soup noodles. Although he thought about saving money, he still ended up ordering a bowl for the sake of tasting it. Sea earthworms were definitely one of the marine products, and after a hard day's work, a lot could be caught. Perhaps when the level-up speed for the spicy snail slowed down, he could go to the tidal flats to shovel sea earthworms. Chapter 8 Invasive Species. However, Chu Mingcheng wasn't quite sure where to dig for sea earthworms, but fortunately, he had a friend he could ask. After a bowl of very fresh and delicious earthworm soup noodles, his energy levels had significantly increased. Chu Mingcheng paid for his meal and got back into his car, took out his phone, found a number, and dialed it. Soon, the call was picked up, and a young voice came from the phone. "Ah Cheng, what's up, calling so late?" "Nothing much, just wanted to know if you know where to dig for sea earthworms." "Sea earthworms? You're planning to dig for those things?" "Yeah, just have nothing better to do, figured I'd experience life a bit." "Experience life, huh? Those things aren't easy to dig. East Q Beach has plenty, but getting them out is quite a strain on the back. There's some at Dongyu." "Alright, got it." Chu Mingcheng was about to hang up the phone, but then he remembered that this guy was also a fishing enthusiast, who had taken on the world with nothing but a lure rod and no money. Fishing alone was a bit boring, so why not invite him over to keep him company? "Ah Wei, I've been staying in my hometown recently, been fishing at the reservoir up in the mountains these past few days. There's a lot of crucian carp. Wanna come?" "No way, you've taken up fishing too? Why didn't you say so earlier?" "I've been fishing outside these last few days and haven't caught a single thing. I'll find some time to come over." "Great, it's a date then." After hanging up the phone, Chu Mingcheng had intended to head directly to the reservoir, but the memory of last night's fish thief suddenly popped into his mind. After a moment's hesitation, he decided to drive back home first. He scooped up whitebait and ground tiger and brought them to the front yard. Looking around and seeing no sign of the fish thief, he placed the fish near the well and then left, without paying any more attention to them. The domestic dogs and tabby cats of Huaxia are breeds that have survived natural selection over thousands of years, possessing strong survival abilities and not lacking in intelligence. What Chu Mingcheng did not know was that the fish thief from last night had already appeared near his house before he returned, and had found a secluded spot to lie down and rest while simultaneously keeping watch over the front yard. The scene of him placing the fish by the well was entirely witnessed by the tabby cat. The tabby cat, though clever, did not understand why Chu Mingcheng would leave food by the well. It only knew that it wouldn't need to hunt for its own food today. After waiting for some time after he left, the tabby cat finally got up and climbed to the top of the wall to survey its surroundings. Feeling no danger, it finally took a leap and, picking up the largest whitebait at the edge of the well, bolted off. Arriving at a place it deemed safe, the cat, still carrying the fish, looked around once more, and, feeling no danger, started to enjoy its catch. After finishing off a whitebait, it licked its mouth clean with its tongue, still feeling peckish, and so it headed back towards the yard for more. Chu Mingcheng, upon returning to the reservoir, was feeling a bit down since there was no one else night fishing there that evening. It was still fine now, with the sun not completely set. Come nightfall, the entire reservoir would become nearly cold, which felt quite terrifying. He hesitated for a moment on whether he really wanted to fish at night, as he had watched his fair share of horror movies since he was a child, and it was especially easy to let his imagination run wild in this kind of environment. Yet, after checking the aquatic produce in his mental directory, he ultimately decided to go night fishing. He was almost 30, and he had quit his job. Now that he had his cheat activated, it would be too late if he didn't put in the effort now. Is a ghost more important than making money? Chu Mingcheng first baited his fishing spot, then sprinkled some snake repellent powder around his fishing area, took out his fishing rod, tied on a glowing float for night fishing, and placed his headlamp beside him, ready for use. The bait from the morning was a bit dry, so to save it, he poured some water over it and kneaded it a bit. It was only 6 o'clock in the evening, the time when fish come out to feed and are most active. He had just cast his bait into the water, and before even half a minute passed, a fish took a bite. Chu Mingcheng saw the float dip and was about to lift the rod when a strong force suddenly struck. The slightly bent rod tip bent as if pressed down by a heavy weight, and the tip even submerged into the water. The fishing rod kept trembling. Obviously, he had hooked a big fish. Chu Mingcheng quickly gripped the rod with both hands to steady it but was very surprised in his heart. The hook he was using was meant for medium and small-sized freshwater fish. Fierce carnivorous species wouldn't normally take the bait, and even if they did, they should be able to easily shake off the hook. What was going on now? Based on the strength coming from his hands, the fish he had hooked shouldn't be small, but neither should it be too large. But fearing his fishing rod might break, he dared not exert too much force and awkwardly began to pull and tug, hoping to tire out the fish's strength first. There was no need to tug when fishing for crucian carp and whitebait. Lifting them directly out of the water was sufficient, only the big crucian carp from yesterday took a little more effort. This led to his lack of experience in playing fish, only knowing to pull the rod back and forth and not daring to use too much strength. 5 or 6 minutes later, the fish still hadn't shaken off the hook, but he had managed to pull it to the surface of the water. What is this? At first, when he saw it was about 40 centimeters, he was quite happy. Even if it was a carp, it was good, and if it was a grass carp, it would be even better. But at the next moment, when he saw the fish's wide-open mouth, like that of a crocodile, all his excitement was quenched with an icy chill. Damn, it was an alligator gar. How could there be an alligator gar here? Which son of a turtle released it? Chu Mingcheng wore a solemn expression. Just recently, many places across the country had been in an uproar over this invasive species. Now, he didn't know how many alligator gars were in the reservoir or how long they had been released. If they had already begun to reproduce, then it would indeed be quite troublesome, as the other fish in the reservoir would have no room to survive. Originally, Chu Mingcheng was indifferent about whether the fish got off the hook. His main concern was ensuring that his fishing rod didn't break. Now that he had hooked an alligator gar, he definitely needed to prioritize reeling it in. Chu Mingcheng, who hadn't put much effort until now, began to pull with a bit more force. The alligator gar, in pain and unable to bear it, struggled violently again on the surface of the water. The fishing rod emitted a squeaking sound, as if it was at its breaking point. Seeing this, Chu Mingcheng had to ease up his strength a bit and continue the battle of endurance with the alligator gar. Fishing was a physically demanding job, something he hadn't realized before. But now, after struggling with the alligator gar for 3 or 4 minutes, he understood that the fish he had caught before were too gentle. This alligator gar weighed at most 2 or 3 pounds, yet it took him so much time. Another 3 or 4 minutes passed, and the alligator gar's strength was finally depleted and he pulled it ashore. Chu Mingcheng finally took a breath and relaxed. The past 10 minutes felt like he had gone on a slow run for 1,000 meters, his entire body warmed up, and droplets of sweat even formed on his forehead. As he took a closer look, he finally understood why the alligator gar couldn't shake off the hook. The bait he had prepared actually had no attraction for alligator gars, but the bait ground he had laid attracted many fish which in turn drew the alligator gar. The initial bite was from a small crucian carp, but it only struggled for a moment before the alligator gar bit it and swallowed it. This caused the hook to be swallowed into its stomach too, and just so happened to hook onto its internal organs, making it unable to spit out the hook. Just as Chu Mingcheng was considering how to physically dispose of the alligator gar, the aquatic fish guide in his mind suddenly underwent a new change. Chapter 9 Life Transformation. The Fish Encyclopedia's ecological rescue function has been activated. Please, host, eradicate the species that are destroying the ecological environment as soon as possible. Alligator gar, invasive species, ecological destruction index, 5 stars, alligator gars eliminated, 0, hooking probability, plus 0%, scan detection, 3 per day, life conversion, 0 times, convert the life energy of the alligator gar to enhance the host's physique. Oh man, I didn't expect the Fish Encyclopedia to have this feature. Chu Mingcheng never imagined that by accidentally fishing an alligator gar, he would unlock a new function in the Fish Encyclopedia. The alligator gar had no economic value, and he initially thought it was useless to catch it, but unexpectedly, there was also a data panel with a body enhancement ability, which was pretty darn cool. If he caught more, would he not need to soak goji berries anymore? And what does this scan detection mean? Chu Mingcheng didn't quite understand the last item, but seeing that it could be used 3 times a day, he tried using it once. Instantly, the fish encyclopedia popped up with a message. Reservoir detected. Beginning scan. Scan complete. There are 5 alligator gars in the reservoir, the largest weighing 4.73 jin. Please, host, fish them out and physically eliminate them as soon as possible to protect the reservoir's ecology. Sheesh, there's so many. Chu Mingcheng gasped when he saw the number. If left unchecked, would there be any other fish left in the reservoir after these multiplied? Fortunately, after the scan, the fish encyclopedia provided the positions of all the alligator gars, enabling him to target them specifically for fishing. It's just that his current fishing rod wouldn't do the job, so that would have to wait until the next day. He couldn't do anything about the alligator gars in the reservoir for now, but he could deal with the one he had caught, just in time to see what changes would occur on the data panel after killing one. Chu Mingcheng immediately found a large rock and was ready to smash it when his phone in his pocket rang. He tossed the rock aside and took out his cell phone first. Seeing the call was from Ah Wei, he picked up, puzzled. What's up, Ah Wei? Hurry up and come night fishing at the reservoir, I'm almost at that reservoir you mentioned. Chu Mingcheng was speechless about Ah Wei's impulsive actions but was used to them by now. It was just as well that he had decided to go night fishing, otherwise, he would have had to leave home now. I'm already at the reservoir, hurry over. With that said, Chu Mingcheng picked up his headlamp and walked towards the road outside to meet him. As soon as he reached the roadside, he saw a Wuling minivan coming from a distance and stopping behind his car. The door opened, and a tall, slender, somewhat handsome young man stepped out, his skin color almost matching Principal Haigu's. Ah Ching, have you fallen into the trap? I can't believe you're here night fishing. I couldn't believe it when I heard you over the phone, Zhang Wei greeted Chu Mingcheng with a chuckle, playfully punching his chest with his little fists. Of course, after this, I'm never going back on the path of fishing. Chu Mingcheng knew his own affairs, others fished as a hobby, but he fished purely because of the golden finger. Well, looks like I'll have company on future fishing trips. Zhang Wei took out his lure rod, and together they headed to the reservoir. Caught many fish? I've just arrived this evening, but someone released alligator gar in this reservoir, and I just fished one out, Chu Mingcheng said as he lifted the still alive alligator gar by the fishing line. Damn. There's alligator gar here? Zhang Wei looked at the little alligator gar in shock, then showed a look of regret. It's a pity, you caught it here. Chu Mingcheng didn't quite understand. What do you mean? You wouldn't know since you've been at work, but several parks with man-made lakes in our county have had alligator gars released in them. Those parks are offering a reward, 1,000 yuan for each alligator gar. These days, every fishing man has been going to the parks to fish for alligator gar, so it's crowded. Zhang Wei himself had been fishing for alligator gar there the past couple of days, but unfortunately had not caught any. He had heard that Chu Mingcheng was now starting to fish, and that too in the reservoir near them, so he had quickly packed up his gear and headed over. Upon hearing 1,000 yuan per fish, Chu Mingcheng's eyes instantly turned into little dollar signs. Since he could make money fishing for alligator gar, he would go buy a decent fishing rod tomorrow. You could directly fish for alligator gar, not only to make money but also to enhance your physique. It's just that the fishing gear shop is closed now, otherwise he would definitely go buy a sea rod and fish out all the alligator gar in the reservoir. Zhang Wei took his lure rod to a nearby spot to start casting, while Chu Mingcheng picked up a rock to kill the alligator gar. This thing is a menace alive, better to turn it into fertilizer dead. Soon, the alligator gar was killed, and a few changes were noticed on the data panel in Chu Mingcheng's mind. Alligator gar, invasive species, ecological destruction index, 5 stars, elimination of alligator gar, 1, hooking chance, plus 10%, scanning detection, 3 per day, life conversion, 1 time, just 1 could increase the hooking chance by 10%, then it wouldn't be long before he became an alligator gar assassin. In the future, if he encountered another bounty for alligator gar, he could actually make some extra cash and enhance his physique with this. Seeing the life conversion turn to 1 time, he immediately clicked to use it. Then he felt a slight warmth in his body. That's it? Was that even a second? Chu Mingcheng was speechless, but after feeling his body, he found that the soreness in his back from picking spicy snails in the afternoon was lessened. It seemed this was a task where little by little adds up. The night sky was enchanting tonight, and the water seemed like it could produce a ghost at any moment. But neither of the 2 fishing men were scared, one occasionally casting the rod to exercise his killing arm, the other occasionally pulling up a couple of crucian carps and chuckling as he tossed them into the bucket. Damn, all the fish in this reservoir couldn't have been devoured by alligator gar, could they? I've been fishing for 3 hours, and I haven't seen a single fish. Zhang Wei, tired from casting, decided to take a break and came over to complain to Chu Mingcheng. No way, I've got more than half a bucket here. Chu Mingcheng pointed to the half bucket full of crucian carps and felt a bit strained himself. His spot was good, yielding a fish every 3 to 4 minutes. The half bucket he had was after he had thrown away whitebait and ground tiger, keeping only the crucian carps, otherwise, he would have had even more. Damn, all the good spots are on your side, I should have gone farther away, Zhang Wei cursed after seeing the half bucket of crucian carps, and then his expression turned ingratiating. Brother Chu, why don't you let me have a go? I've been skunked all day, I can't just go back like this. Alright, you fish for a while and then we'll head back, it's getting late. After all, he was still a novice, Chu Mingcheng didn't plan to fish all night. He handed his rod over to Zhang Wei and went to check their catch for the night. Crucian carp, level 2, current experience, 7 out of 30, size ink graze, plus 2%, deliciousness, plus 2%, catch rate, plus 2%, not counting the 4 from the day. Chu Mingcheng had caught a total of 23 crucian carps in 3 hours. The bite was indeed great at night, many times he caught 2 at once, and there should be over 10 pounds of crucian carp in the bucket. Considering 30 yuan each, he should be able to sell them for at least 300 yuan tomorrow, not bad at all. As for whitebait and ground tiger, he had caught some of those too, which had now reached level 1. But these two kinds of seafood didn't hold much value for him at the moment, so he just treated leveling up like playing a game. Chapter 10. It's a pity for such a beauty like you not to be seen more by beautiful women. By the time Zhang Wei had satisfied his craving with a couple more casts, and 2 more crucian carps were added to the tally, Chu Mingcheng urged him to pack up their gear and head home. The bite is so good, let me fish a bit longer. Zhang Wei was reluctant to leave, as no fishing man wants to leave when the fish are biting. This wasn't some pretty girl, and Chu Mingcheng wasn't going to indulge him. He immediately stepped forward and took the fishing rod back. I resigned. I have no source of income now, so I plan to rise early tomorrow and go to the market to sell these fish. I can't afford to sleep in. You resigned? Zhang Wei was startled. Then what are you planning to do next? I have no plans for the moment, just thinking of fishing and selling fish to make some money. If I earn enough to maintain a living, I'll keep doing that for now. This. Zhang Wei was at a loss for words. Suggest a job? He himself was working for a friend. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as an idea struck him. Right, why not start an online store? Some of Chen Ying's friends have online stores. They get goods from him, and depending on the month, they can make a few thousand, even tens of thousands. No way, too much trouble. Chu Mingcheng shook his head in refusal. Chen Ying had been his childhood friend, and they had played video games together as kids. Zhang Wei was currently working at Chen Ying's store, and their relationship was even closer than before. It was the kind of relationship where they would light incense on the bed and smash a TV screen with marbles. Chen Ying's family had been in the electronics business, a brand that has been passed down 3 generations starting from his grandfather. He had also suggested that Chu Mingcheng consider online selling for an extra source of income. But Chu Mingcheng wasn't interested in all that, and often he was too busy with overtime to have the time or money to invest in boosting online sales, so nothing ever came of it. Seeing that he was still not convinced, Zhang Wei sighed softly, flicked his hair, and pulled out his phone. Ah Ching, you must know, being handsome and suave has always been my trademark. Over the years, I've been so handsome that I almost had no friends, except for you, who could almost compare. Now I'm not hiding it from you, I know a few wealthy women. With your looks, hooking up with them would be easy. Are you interested? What, you're not? Why wouldn't I be? Lately, my stomach hasn't been great, I need to eat something soft. Chu Mingcheng immediately got the numbers of a few rich women. It didn't matter if it was being a gigolo, as it was mainly to prove his own charm. But a good opportunity to make some money was available. It wasn't much, but every little bit helps. Let's go fish for alligator gar tomorrow, maybe we'll get lucky and actually catch one, he suggested. Zhang Wei hesitated after hearing this. I've been fishing for 2 days and haven't caught one, haven't even seen anyone else catch one. I'm starting to think these parks made up the reward just to attract people. Whether it's there or not, let's just go take a look. It'd be a pity not to let the beauties see how gorgeous you are. Speaking nothing but the truth, my good looks are indeed a ways to keep at home. The two of them joked and laughed as they drove home. The reservoir in the middle of the night didn't muster even a ghost, perhaps because it saw the 2 good-looking guys and just convulsed in the water themselves. The next morning at 6 o'clock, Chu Mingcheng was groggily awakened by the alarm on his phone. Having not gotten up this early in a long time, he wanted to continue sleeping, but the thought of having to sell fish motivated him to struggle out of bed. He came down from the attic to the bedroom on the 2nd floor on the left, opened the door, and walked in. There was Zhang Wei, deeply asleep, hugging a pillow. Chu Mingcheng thought about it and decided not to wake him. He would go and sell the fish first. Having checked the crucian carp he had caught last night on the first floor, because he had split them into 2 buckets, there was much more room. In addition, since there was continuous oxygen supply, their vitality was still quite good. There was a small vegetable market on Yanman Island as well, but the islanders preferred sea fish and crucian carp were not easy to sell, so he drove across the sea bridge to the town's vegetable market. He first bought an electronic scale and a large plastic box which could be used to store fish in the future, since buckets were still a bit too small. Unlike sea fish, people generally prefer that freshwater fish like crucian carp be killed and processed on site. Chu Mingcheng did not plan to set up a stall here to slowly kill and sell fish, as it would be a waste of time. He wandered around the vegetable market and found a stall selling freshwater fish. "Boss, do you take wild crucian carp? I caught them myself last night." The fish seller became interested upon hearing this, as he had sold fish for a long time and rarely had someone come directly to him to sell fish. "Let me see the fish first." Wild crucian carp and farmed crucian carp differed significantly. Wild crucian carp were generally paler, turning yellow under the sun, with a higher back and more agility. Farmed crucian carp were darker, larger, with big and soft bellies, and less agility. It was evident that their usual routine was eating and sleeping. The fish shop owner fished around in the bucket for a bit and knew immediately that these crucian carp were indeed wild, and even the smallest looked to be about half a pound, truly a good batch. "I'll take this batch of fish for 15 yuan per half kilogram," he said. 25 yuan per half kilogram from you. Nowadays, everything is farmed. For wild products like these, I'm never short of buyers. I've got something on today, that's why I'm directly selling these fish to you. Otherwise, if I set up a stall outside, I could get up to 35 yuan per half kilogram. Chu Mingcheng reported his price without mincing words. He needed to rush to the city to catch alligator gar, planning to catch them all today, so he had no time to waste here. Like he said, selling wild crucian carp wasn't difficult. After all, his fish were a decent size and very fresh. The only hassle was having to kill and prepare the fish himself, unlike sea fish, which could be sold directly. Okay, 25 then. I'll take them all. The price was always negotiable. Seeing that Chu Mingcheng knew the market, and a price of 25 yuan was indeed profitable, the shop owner didn't haggle and accepted his offer right away. Wild crucian carp could indeed sell for 35 presently. The general price online stated 31 per half kilogram, but prices varied by region. With the shop owner's straightforward acceptance, Chu Mingcheng felt no regret over having possibly underpriced his fish. While negotiating further could indeed have netted him a few more yuan, it wasn't worth the effort, especially since the shop owner wasn't a beauty. It was best not to waste his words. Chu Mingcheng brought out the new electronic scale he had just bought. The fish shop owner's eye twitched when he saw this, but he said nothing. Last night, Zhang Wei had also caught 2, so there were 29 fish in total. Weighing them, they were surprised to find a total of 18.3 kilograms, averaging just about 300 grams per fish, totaling 457.5 yuan. However, the shop owner rounded down, making it an even 450 yuan. Chu Mingcheng didn't complain about the few lost yuan, as stallholders often fuss over small amounts, and more discussion would have been pointless. After borrowing some clean water to rinse the buckets, Chu Mingcheng bought 2 breakfasts and then drove to the fishing equipment store first. "Boss, do you have any recommended spinning rods? Are you going fishing on a boat or from the shore? What's the difference?" "Well, of course there's a difference. If you're fishing from a boat, the rods don't need to be too long, 2.1 and 2.4 meters are fine. If you're fishing from the shore, you'll need a longer rod for casting, so a 2.7 meter one would work better." After thinking it over, Chu Mingcheng decided to buy a 2.4 meter rod, which he could use for boat fishing and that could cast 20 to 30 meters, which was sufficient. If he really needed to do long-distance casting from the shore, he would rather buy another sea rod. "Then I'll take a 2.4 meter one." "Sure, I recommend an in-action straight-handle spinning rod, especially for beginners. It pairs well with a spinning reel as it doesn't scatter rice noodles like a bait casting reel, but the downside is that casts aren't as precise, and the sensitivity is also slightly lower." Chapter 11 Hanfu Beauties. The M-Tune lure rod had a moderate flexibility, suitable for baits weighing 7 to 20 grams. The specifications were all marked on the rod itself, and the fishing line typically paired with it was between 1.0 to 1.5 pline. As far as Chu Mingcheng knew, Zhang Wei's lure rod was M-tuned with a medium soft stiffness, a bit softer than his own rod, yet it was already capable of catching most fish. The fishing gear store owner's recommended rod wasn't too expensive, with a total setup costing $1,200, which wouldn't pose a big problem for fish up to 5 pounds. But hearing that it could only handle that weight made Chu Mingcheng a bit apprehensive. After all, The largest alligator gar he had scanned in the reservoir the night before was nearly 5 pounds, and this rod was not the particularly expensive or high-quality kind. Based on his online research, there was still a risk of the rod breaking. Therefore, Chu Mingcheng thought it over and bought another Mh-tuned lure rod. This set was a bit nicer, costing him $2,800, which meant catching a 10-pound fish wouldn't be a problem. As a newbie with no one to teach him, he wasn't aware that with the right technique, this $2,800 rod could not just land 10 pounds but even 50 pounds, provided the fishing line didn't break. Lure rods are actually divided into seawater and freshwater varieties, and the type Chu Mingcheng bought belonged to the freshwater category, also known as a light lure rod. Of course, it could be used for sea fishing. As long as one doesn't fish in the far sea, there won't be 15 or 20-pound behemoths to catch. Even landing a 5-pound sea bass would be cause for celebration. However, if he wanted to fish for truly fierce large marine species in the future, he would still need to prepare a sea rod. Having spent $4,000, he had put all the money, more than $2,000, he earned in 2 days into it, and still had to pay an additional $2,000. Becoming a qualified fishing man was indeed not easy. Chu Mingcheng, under the fishing gear store owner's beaming gaze, carried his newly purchased fishing gear back to his car and then drove home. Arriving upstairs with breakfast, he overheard a group of elder women chattering away in the front yard. Zhang Wei, however, was still sleeping like a log. "Get up, there's a girl in black stockings downstairs." Slurp. Zhang Wei instantly opened his eyes with a gulp, quickly running to the balcony. "Where are the black stockings? Do you see those ladies over there? Their granddaughter is putting them on right now." "Where's their granddaughter then?" "How would I know?" "Damn." Zhang Wei uninterestedly returned to his room, noticing that breakfast was already laid out on the coffee table and immediately reached for it. Chu Mingcheng slapped his hand away and said irritably, "Scram, not even washing your face or brushing your teeth, what the hell?" Zhang Wei wasn't offended and chuckled as he ran into the washroom, adeptly taking out his previously used cup and a new toothbrush from the cabinet. After breakfast, Chu Mingcheng took out the 2 lure rods he had just bought that morning to get the spinning reels and lines ready. "Wow, you bought lure rods? And you got 2 at once?" Zhang Wei immediately touched them upon seeing them, not hiding the delight in his eyes. "Aren't we going to the park today? I plan to check if there are any alligator gars, so I bought 2 lure rods. Even if there aren't any alligator gars there, I'll go fishing for sea bass at the seaside or abandoned farms in the future." TSK, looking at how prepared you are, you really intend to become a fishing man, huh? Not planning on getting married anymore? We'll see. I still have 2 years until I'm 30, I can still have fun for a bit longer. During their casual conversation, the 2 of them got the fishing lines and other things ready and then drove to the county town. There were several parks in the county town, and the parks currently offering a reward for alligator gars were Kingping Park, Central Park, and Upper River Park, mainly because these 3 parks were managed by someone. First, Chu Mingcheng drove to the closest one, Central Park, which was inside the county town and was the smallest in scale among the 3. With the smallest artificial lake as well. Most visitors were local elders and children, with not many young people coming. Chu Mingcheng arrived at the park carrying his lure rod around 9 in the morning, but there were already quite a few people fishing. A quick glance showed there were at least 20 people. It seemed the reward for the alligator gar was quite enticing. Next to the artificial lake, there were also several security guards on patrol, most likely to prevent fishing men from catching other fish and taking them away. Chu Mingcheng immediately activated his scanner to check if there were any alligator gar in the artificial lake. Artificial lake detected, scanning commencing, scan complete. There are 3 alligator gars in the reservoir, the largest weighing 6.43 pounds. Please physically eliminate them as soon as possible to protect the aquatic ecological environment. Unexpectedly, there really were 3 of them, and this artificial lake's fish population must have been preyed upon quite a bit. It's just at this spot. Chu Mingcheng had a strange look on his face. All 3 alligator gars were clustered in a corner on the southwest side of the artificial lake, a rather secluded spot that didn't seem very appealing, and also one that no one had gone to fish at. Even the smallest artificial lake couldn't be fully occupied by just over 20 fishing men. In fact, the 20-some fishing men only took up a small portion of the space. However, alligator gars have a particularly large appetite. Wherever they settle down, other fish are sure to be scared away. Without food intake, their whereabouts are indeed hard to discern. What might be found in the east today could likely be in the west by night. And an artificial lake, no matter how small, would not be trivial to cover. Catching them all indeed poses a certain difficulty. "Ah Wei, I'm planning to go over there, do you want to join me?" Seeing Zhang Wei had found a spacious spot and was ready to start fishing, Chu Mingcheng quickly caught hold of him and asked. Zhang Wei glanced at the spot pointed out by Chu Mingcheng, and seeing how far it was, his enthusiasm was immediately dampened. Why go somewhere so out of the way? I'll just fish here. Alright then. Chu Mingchen, seeing that he was unwilling, did not insist. Taking his own equipment, he slowly made his way to that corner. Halfway along the route, a sound like the tinkling of spring water reached his ears from not too far away. This sounds like guzzling music. Chu Mingchen was somewhat surprised. He didn't understand musical instruments, but being a Huaxio person, he could still make out a bit. The sound was coming from the pavilion up ahead. As he approached the pavilion, Chu Mingchen discovered a group of people. Out of curiosity, he moved closer and saw a girl dressed in pink and white hanfu seated on one side, playing the guzheng. Pure and untouched, her simplicity radiating. Her eyebrows like distant mountains, her eyes like autumn waters. Gentle and enchanting, with fragrant charms that intoxicate. Holy shit, those hands are so skillful. In the center of the courtyard was another girl, clad in an emerald green hanfu dress, dancing gracefully. Such beauty in the southern lands, light and supple in her dance, at an autumn evening banquet, her movements swift as if cutting through clouds and rain. Holy shit, her legs are so white. There was also a woman with a ponytail, looking efficient, holding a camera and filming. It seemed that these three were shooting a video. Chu Mingchen hadn't expected such an exciting spectacle at this location and felt pity for Zhang Wei who missed out. There were beautiful women here, yet he couldn't see them. Unfortunately, the pretty dancer's performance lasted just over a minute. After filming, they gathered to review the footage. Chu Mingchen was there to fish, not to watch beautiful women, so he continued past the pavilion on the back path, arriving at the alligator gar's temporary resting spot. Overseas, alligator gar fishing usually involves rock fishing with baits such as carp and crucian carp. Lure fishing could easily catch them too, as long as one locates the right spots. The guidebook scan revealed the exact sizes of these three alligator gars, the heaviest currently being over 6 pounds and the smallest also over 4 pounds. Chu Mingchen placed his fishing gear on the ground next to him and then took out the power lure rod. Luckily he had prudently purchased the stiffer rod, otherwise, these alligator gars really wouldn't be easy to catch. Fortunately, one could tell at a glance that these alligator gars had not been released long ago. If they'd been there longer and grown to several dozen pounds, he'd be out of luck for the time being. Chapter 12, 3,000 yuan in hand. Tying on a sinking minnow, Aching adjusted the drag of the spinning reel, then with his left hand, he cast the fishing rod, and the minnow drew an arc before landing with a thunk near the three alligator gars. After allowing the minnow to sink to the bottom, Chu Mingchen raised the fishing rod slightly and began to reel in with his right hand on the spinning reel's handle, occasionally twitching the tip of the rod. This technique is called jerking, which makes the minnow dart frantically like a frightened little fish, attracting the attention of carnivorous species more easily. Soon, Chu Mingchen retrieved the minnow and cast it out again. Lure fishing is just like this, constantly casting and reeling in, unlike pole fishing where one simply waits for a bite after baiting. The constant casting and jerk reeling of the minnow, along with a 10% catching chance, quickly caught the attention of the nearby alligator gars. Chu Mingchen had practiced casting several times and became more skilled, casting again, and the minnow landed just right on the water surface about 20 or so meters ahead, closer to the position of the alligator gar scanned by the pictorial guide. Seeing someone fishing here, some of the passers-by who had been watching the beauty dance, as well as the temporary security guards specially hired by the park, all gathered around. Of course, the beauties who had finished their shoot and noticed the crowd shifting this way also followed out of curiosity. However, before they could react, there was a splash and the water suddenly churned, revealing a ferocious-looking fish to everyone's view. Damn, an alligator gar. Awesome, so many people have fished for 2 days and didn't catch one, but this guy managed to do it in just a moment. Actually, some people caught 2 earlier, thought there were none left, didn't expect there were still some hidden over here. 1,000 yuan appeared before their eyes, stirring up discussion among the crowd, some envious. After all, that money came easily. Chu Mingchen couldn't care less about them. He hurriedly braced the fishing rod with his right hand and began the side pull, starting to tug with the alligator gar. Lure rods are light, and the feeling of pulling is completely different from pole fishing. It felt like pulling the fish with his bare hands. But a fish weighing 4 or 5 jin isn't so easy to catch, especially a fierce alligator gar. Chu Mingchen could only tug back and forth, waiting for it to tire before reeling in quickly. The lure rod was stiff enough, not bending full circle, only emitting a squeaking sound from the tension. Fortunately, the alligator gar wasn't far from shore, just over 20 meters away, and given the significant mismatch in strength, it was pulled to the shore in just 5 or 6 minutes. An enthusiastic onlooker immediately picked up the landing net Chu Mingchen had placed on the ground and scooped up the struggling alligator gar. If Chu Mingchen had to do it by himself, he probably would have to play the fish for a few more minutes until it got tired, but with help, It saved him a lot of effort and time. Thank you. No problem at all, it's my first time seeing this thing, really curious, said the friendly older man, waving his hand and placing the alligator gar on the lawn. Chu Mingcheng put down the fishing rod and took out a bleeding dagger from the toolkit and stabbed toward its forehead. However, with a hiss, the dagger only left a white scratch on its forehead. Not only did it not harm the fish, but the piercing also caused it to struggle and thrash furiously, opening and closing its large mouth as if threatening the crowd not to come close. Shit, its forehead is really tough. I've seen a video before, foreigners have to use a cutting grinder to open up the scales of an alligator gar. No wonder they can't be released. Blackfish and the like are mere minions in comparison. The beauty who was playing the zither just now blinked her big eyes and pulled the beauty who had been dancing, saying, Sister Luolio, is this an alligator gar? It looks so fierce, and its mouth is like a crocodile's. Yeah. Some people are really unethical. The alligator gar has no natural predators in these lakes. If we don't get rid of them, I bet it won't be long before there are no other fish in this lake. The beauty called Luolio looked furious, obviously knowing quite a bit about alligator gars. What? All the fish in the lake would be eaten up? That's a bit too exaggerated, isn't it? The zither playing beauty seemed very surprised. At this point, Chu Mingcheng, who had to move because of the alligator gar's thrashing, happened to face them, and she just glanced over subconsciously. But with that one glance, she was hooked. This man was more than just a little handsome. She automatically ignored the one with the net, her mouth slightly agape, staring blankly at him. It wasn't just her two companions weren't faring much better either. Chu Mingcheng seized the opportunity, held down the alligator gar with his left hand, then stabbed into its eye with a dagger. But the alligator gar struggled fiercely, and its body was very slippery, so it took him several attempts to successfully kill it. He wiped the splashes of water from his face with his arm and unexpectedly discovered that quite a few women around him were staring at him, including two great beauties. One skilled with her hands, the other with fair legs, whom he had just seen, so he greeted them with a nod and a smile, full of charm. Not bad, Ah Ching, you actually managed to catch one. Just as the two great beauties were slightly embarrassed and shifted their gaze away, Zhang Wei, who had noticed the commotion long ago, finally arrived. Picking up the dead alligator gar felt like holding 1,000 yuan, making him extraordinarily excited. Take this one to the person in charge to exchange for money, and bring someone here while you're at it. I'll continue fishing, I saw two more just now. Zhang Wei's arrival was timely. Ah Cheng had been thinking about calling someone. Got it, I'm on it. Zhang Wei was decisive and immediately went with the security guard next to him to the person in charge for the money. As for whether the person would refuse to pay, he wasn't worried. There were originally more than 3 alligator gars in this artificial lake, and the people who had caught them before had all been paid. He had been fishing here all day and had seen it happen. Chu Mingcheng continued to fish, and a few of the fishing men, seeing his success, started fishing nearby as well, about 20 meters away. He didn't say anything when he saw this, as the chance of catching after killing the second alligator gar had increased to 20%, and the remaining 2 alligator gars would naturally bite his hook first. Sure enough, by the time Zhang Wei returned with the person in charge, Chu Mingcheng had already caught the remaining 2 alligator gars. Once you find the right spot, hooking these creatures really isn't difficult. No need to mention using lures or live bait, even using pig kidneys or liver as bait would get them on the hook quickly. After dealing with the 3 alligator gars and successfully obtaining 3,000 yuan, Chu Mingcheng immediately changed his destination and headed for Upper River Park. Before leaving, he made a point of looking around at the crowd and noticed the 2 great beauties had left. He felt somewhat regretful. Why don't modern beautiful girls know how to take the initiative? Wouldn't love come knocking if they did? Ever since his first breakup, Chu Mingcheng had actually met quite a few girls. Perhaps his first girlfriend had set his standards high with her beauty, turning him into someone fixated on looks. So, he had been set up on a few blind dates since then, and many girls, seeing how handsome he was, approached him on their own initiative, but sadly there was no spark. Yet, today he had encountered 2 he felt a connection with, especially the dancing beauty, who surely had many moves and poses up her sleeve. Chapter 13 Continue the music, continue the dance. Chu Mingcheng soon arrived at Upper River Park, where there were many stalls and vendors, especially lively because of the national holiday. However, there weren't many fishermen. Through inquiring, he found out that someone had caught 2 alligator gars consecutively yesterday and, since then, no traces of alligator gar had appeared, making everyone think the area had been cleaned out. Chu Mingcheng frowned slightly, feeling slightly regretful, as 2,000 yuan had slipped away. But whether there were any still left would only be determined after scanning. Detected an artificial lake, starting scan, scan complete, no invasive species alligator gar detected, seems like there really are none left. Chu Mingcheng felt some disappointment. Let's go, it seems this place has been fished out, let's check out Kingping Park. Oh, we should have gone there earlier. Acheng, you're so handsome, it'd be such a waste not to show your face there. The reason I befriend you is because I value your honesty. As the two were heading to Kingping Park, two beautiful women who had been staring blankly at Chu Mingcheng were now giggling and playing in the car. Jai, did you lose your soul just now, feeling a bit flirty? Not at all. Zhu Jai's face turned red with embarrassment, but she didn't forget to retort, I think you're the one longing for a man, Luo. If I hadn't reminded you, you'd still be staring. Zhang Luo felt a bit embarrassed to be called out, but she couldn't admit it aloud. I was clearly looking at that alligator gar. Oh, you were clearly staring at his face. I was not, you little liar, see my 9 yin white bone claw. Ha ha ha. Stop. It tickles. Luo, don't randomly touch. The photographer driving the car looked at the two women playing together, smiling helplessly. Okay, you two, we're almost at Kingping Park, tidy up your clothes. Zhang Luo and Zhu Jie then stopped their frolicking and began straightening out their hanfu. The two had known each other for nearly 8 years. Zhang Luo had transferred to a school in Treasure Island for high school, coincidentally ending up in the same class as Zhu Jie. Later, they accidentally ended up at the same university, though one majored in classical dance performance and the other in Guzan. Zhang Luo's family encountered business problems after she started university, so she planned to make some dance videos to post online to see if she could earn some living expenses. Thanks to her exquisite dance skills and spiritual choreography, she quickly became a somewhat famous Bilibili video host. Although she didn't earn much, her living expenses during university were no longer dependent on her family. After graduation, Zhang Luo specifically collaborated with Zhu Jie for a video, which unexpectedly went viral, gaining 500,000 followers in a week and significantly increasing the views on her previous videos, and naturally, her income multiplied. However, she declined all offers from influencer companies, instead specifically hiring a photographer and upgrading her filming equipment. Zhang Luo was well aware of the risks of capital investment. Although it could earn more money in a short period, what was lost wasn't just freedom, as future outcomes were unpredictable. She would rather earn less, and at worst, run a training class when older, than become a capital-manipulated influencer. This trip was actually specially planned by Zhang Luo, inviting Zhu Jie to join. Zhu Jie, coming from Treasure Island, was very keen on exploring the mainland, so she had invited her friend to come play, filming videos along the way. This county town was their first stop. They came to Les City because it hosted a 5A scenic spot, Yanshan, but having just arrived in the town yesterday, they planned to explore around the town first. Filming in the park was Zhu Jie's idea, to which Zhang Luo was more than happy to cooperate. Kingping Park was considered the largest park in the county with the best environment, its lake being natural, not man-made. With its mountainside location and numerous water activities, the park was also a popular camping spot, attracting many young women. Chu Mingcheng and another person arrived only to encounter a problem. There was a traffic jam. Let's just find a place to park outside and walk in, Zhang Wei suggested. The only road leading to the park was merely 300 meters long, but it was packed with cars, forcing pedestrians to take the grass beside the road. It would take at least 2 hours to drive through, as the traffic was almost at a standstill. Even if they forced their way in, they'd still have a long wait to get out, so naturally, Chu Mingcheng wasn't foolish enough to drive in. The duo simply went to have lunch first and then took a rest before coming back. After parking the car outside, they carried their fishing gear and walked in. It took them about 15 minutes to reach the small lake. The Southern National Day holiday wasn't cool at all, the temperature was still above 28 degrees today. Many young ladies in cool swimsuits were playing water games by the lake, and some girls in life jackets showed their white thighs while playing on jet skis in the middle of the lake. The area around the lake was filled with numerous LSP, from damn grandpas to little kids holding water guns. At this moment, age wasn't a barrier, everyone there shared the same passion. Chu Mingcheng appreciated a few pairs of long, white legs and then used his last scanning function of the day. Detecting small lake, beginning scan complete. There are 7 alligator gars in the reservoir, the largest weighs 11.26 kilograms. Please catch and physically eliminate them soon to protect the aquatic environment. This big, can my lure rod handle it? Chu Mingcheng furrowed his brow. Theoretically, his MH hardness lure rod could handle the 11-kilogram alligator gar, but if it broke, that would be expensive. He checked the positions of the alligator gars again and noticed they weren't clustered together like at Central Park, but were all spread out. Everyone looked like they were having great fun with the water activities here, but in slightly quieter spots, many fishermen were fishing. 3 of the alligator gars were within the range of these fishermen, and it was estimated that they would be caught soon, including the largest one. The other 4 were in another area. Although they were scattered, there were no fishermen in sight there. The smaller ones weighed just over 3 kilograms, and the largest was just 8 kilograms, so his lure rod would have no problem handling them, totaling 4,000 yuan. He couldn't miss out. Ah Wei, I'm going to fish over there, what about you? I'm here looking. No, I'll play for a while and then come over to you. Alright. Seeing how flexible Zhang Wei was, Chu Mingcheng decided not to disturb his fun. Carrying his fishing gear, he walked alone to a distant spot. Kingping Park was much larger than Central Park. It took him about 20 minutes to get to the first fishing spot. Just as he was about to pull out his lure rod to fish, a familiar guzzling music started playing. It can't be such a coincidence, right? A thought stirred in Chu Mingcheng's mind, and he curiously slung his fishing gear back on to follow the sound. Cutting through a bamboo forest, he saw 3 familiar people in front of a cluster of flowers. Since the location was secluded and filming had just started, there were no spectators around them, which made Chu Mingcheng's sudden appearance very noticeable. The first to see him was Zhang Luoyuo. For some reason, her heart fluttered with embarrassment when she saw him approaching, and she stopped dancing. When she stopped, so did Zhu Jiayi, who was playing the guzheng, and Zhang Qiumai, who was filming. Following Zhang Luoyuo's gaze, they also noticed Chu Mingcheng behind them. The ladies suddenly stopped and all looked at him simultaneously, but Chu Mingcheng didn't feel awkward at all and instead waved his hand signaling them to continue. Don't stop, keep playing the music, keep dancing, I'm just watching. Chapter 14, A Straight Man's Perspective is Based on People. Do you think you're Uncle Liu or something? Zhang Luoyuo immediately rolled her eyes and retorted without a hint of embarrassment. Don't slander people, I don't follow Uncle Liu. Chu Mingcheng declared seriously, defending his honor. As a good youth of the society with sound principles, how could he possibly mingle with Uncle Liu? Isn't his like admitting you have hidden silver here? Zhang Luoyuo was somewhat speechless but found this handsome man rather amusing. However, their conversation left the sweet girl from Treasure Island a bit confused. Zhu Jiayi blinked her large eyes, puzzled. What exactly are you talking about? Isn't Uncle Liu, Liu? What does he have to do with him? But Zhang Luoyuo knew she was from Treasure Island and might not get some of the mainland jokes, so she went over and quietly explained to her. Chu Mingcheng, however, was unaware of this. He just felt that the girl with the big eyes spoke in a coquettish manner, seemingly pretending to be naive, which somewhat lowered his impression of her, but that had nothing to do with him anyway. Seeing there were no long beautiful legs to watch, he decided to go back to fishing. I won't disturb you guys anymore, you continue filming your video. As he was leaving, Zhang Luoyuo quickly asked, Hey, are you a local? Yeah, what about it? Can you be our guide then? We want to go to Yanshan tomorrow, but there are 3 places, Nanyan Mountain, Zhongyan Mountain, and Beiyanshan, and we don't know which is more fun. We will treat you to a meal. Be a guide? Chu Mingcheng wasn't very interested. After fishing for alligator gar today, he still needed to continue catching crucian carp tomorrow, and even dig up sea earthworms. He planned to earn more money, upgrade all his equipment, and then get a boat for sea fishing. Being a local, he was already tired of Yanshan and wasn't interested in visiting at all. I'll pass on being a guide, I have plans tomorrow and can't make it. Yanshan isn't that great anyway, and it's crowded during the national holiday. If you really want to go, I personally recommend Nanyan Mountain or Beiyanshan. Zhongyan Mountain is the most boring, so you might as well skip it. Okay, thanks a lot. Although Zhang Luoyuo was a bit disappointed that Chu Mingcheng refused to be their guide, she still politely thanked him for his useful advice. Zhongyan Mountain was closest to the city, and they initially planned to visit there first. Now they clearly didn't need to go there and could choose between Nanyan Mountain and Beiyanshan instead. After Chu Mingcheng left, Zhu Jiayi, with a hint of teasing, smiled and said, Luoyuo, do you really have a crush on that handsome guy? What? I've only met him twice, how could I possibly have a crush? I don't even know what kind of person he is. I just wanted to get to know him because it's not easy to meet someone that handsome, Zhang Luoyuo explained exasperatedly. Zhu Jiayi nodded in understanding, knowing her straightforward best friend didn't like beating around the bush, and that those were her true feelings. Not just Zhang Luoyuo, even she had the idea of getting to know him, but since her best friend got there first, she suppressed that thought. It's normal, just as a man would want to get to know a beautiful woman upon meeting one, the reverse was also true for women. Chu Mingcheng returned to his original spot, took out his lure rod, and resumed fishing. As for the graceful fingers and long beautiful legs, he had already cast them out of his mind. No matter how skillful the hands, he wouldn't need them today, no matter how white the legs, he couldn't touch them today, but 4,000 big coins were within easy reach, and it was a no-brainer to know which to choose. This morning, he caught 3 alligator gars, and with the one from the reservoir earlier, his catch rate had now increased to 40%. Although it wasn't over half, it was indeed not low. In the morning, it took him over 20 casts to catch the first fish, but this time, he had cast less than 10 times before the alligator gar nearby bit. Chu Mingcheng reeled in the line, his movements much smoother than in the morning. This alligator gar was the smallest, just over 3 pounds, and he pulled it to the shore in a few minutes. With one hand holding the fishing rod, he was just about to pick up the landing net on the ground when a pair of delicate, beautiful hands quickly helped him by picking up the net and handing it to him. Looking at Zhang Luoyuo's charming and cheerful smile, Chu Mingcheng was slightly stunned before he smilingly took the landing net and scooped up the alligator gar. Thanks. Weren't you guys filming a video, though? Why did you come over? We've finished filming. We just shot a short segment here as backup. We mainly want to shoot at Yanshan. Sculpting Gods was filmed there, right? I'm thinking of Dancing to Unparalleled Under Heaven as background music. Chu Mingcheng looked at Zhang Luoyuo in surprise. The girl, dressed in hanfu and beautiful, indeed seemed a bit ethereal. If she dressed up as Zia Longyu. PFFT, I can't think about it, can't think. Sculpting Gods is a traumatic childhood memory for me, that shouldn't be remembered. That sounds nice. I see you dance very well. Did you specifically learn classical dance? Chu Mingcheng asked as he took a knife to bleed the alligator gar. Yes. Let's make acquaintances. My name is Zhang Luoyuo, a video producer for Bilibili, and this is my best friend, Zhu Jiayi. This is also my camera person, Zhang Ruomai. Zhu Jiayi and Zhang Ruomai each gave Chu Mingcheng a smile and stood by without speaking. Hello, I'm Chu Mingcheng, a professional freelance fisherman. Seeing Zhang Luoyuo's hand extended, Chu Mingcheng did not reach out to shake it but opened his hands to show they were a bit dirty. Fishing? So that's what you do. Zhang Luoyuo suddenly understood why he was so skilled at fishing. Many people were fishing for alligator gar, but only he made it seem particularly easy. However, one thing puzzled her. I see that people who stay by the sea all year round tend to have darker and rougher skin. How do you maintain yours? It's so good. Exactly, how do you maintain it? This question also intrigued Jiayi, as they usually spent a lot on skincare. It would obviously be great to learn some skincare tips. You might have misunderstood. I had just quit my job before National Day. I used to sit in an office, so my skin is still quite fair. But it will naturally darken after staying by the sea for a longer period. Chu Mingcheng couldn't help but smile wryly. Indeed, beauty was what women cared about most. After he had killed the alligator gar, he packed up his fishing rod and placed the alligator gar in the landing net, moving toward the next fishing spot. Zhang Luoyuo and the others, slightly disappointed at not obtaining any skincare tips, saw Chu Mingcheng packing up his things and hurriedly asked, "Are you not fishing anymore?" "No, I just noticed traces of alligator gar ahead. I'm planning to try my luck there." He explained to make sure they didn't think he was avoiding them intentionally. Though Chu Mingcheng wasn't planning to play guide, he wouldn't act indifferent with beautiful women reaching out to him. Whether men are straightforward or women are aloof depends on the person they are dealing with. Zhang Luoyuo finally understood. However, they had finished shooting for the day and were planning to go shopping and eat in the afternoon. She had come over just now because she was about to leave and happened to see Chu Mingcheng. How about we exchange contact information? Since you're a local, I could ask you about nice spots in Yanshan. If you don't mind, could you follow my account on Bilibili to help increase my views? Chu Mingcheng chuckled. Turns out you're gathering followers on the spot, huh? No problem. However, he was used to girls asking for his contact information and smoothly added it to his phone. Chapter 15 Sorting out all alligator gars. After saying goodbye to Zhang Luoyuo and the others, Chu Mingcheng arrived at the next fishing spot. He had just cast a few lines when he saw Zhang Wei hurrying over. Ah Ching, guess what I just found? What did you find? Chu Mingcheng asked casually. I saw 2 beautiful women, dressed in hanfu, one voluptuous and the other gentle and graceful. They were absolutely stunning. Chu Mingcheng, who had just cast a minnow, trembled in his hand, almost causing the reel to explode with lines. He couldn't help but laugh and cry at the absurdity of it all. Twice he had allowed this guy to come with him, but both times he hadn't shown up, missing the chance to meet Zhang Luoyuo and the others. He had gotten their contact information, and here was this guy, all excited, babbling about encountering beautiful women, which left him at a loss for words. Zhang Wei did not notice the odd look on Chu Mingcheng's face and continued, "It's a pity, by the time I noticed them they were already getting into a car and leaving. I don't know if I'll have a chance to meet them again." Chalking back laughter, Chu Mingcheng said, "Meeting them is easy. Just go to Yanshan tomorrow and you can see them." "Why would I meet them at Yanshan?" Zhang Wei was surprised, then quickly realized and exclaimed in shock, "You know them?" Chu Mingcheng's face wore a hint of mockery. "Just met them. I encountered them this morning while fishing, and then you came over just as they had left. Came here again to fish and met them once more, and once they left, here you are again." Zhang Wei mentally cursed with 800 sentences in his local dialect but couldn't utter them. Was he really missing out on millions? Seeing him like this, Chu Mingcheng decided not to tease any further. "No worries, there'll be other chances. I've added them on social media." Zhang Wei's eyes lit up. "Good brother, I've set you up with a rich lady, don't forget about me. For two beautiful women, you've got to give me at least one contact, right? What are you thinking? At the most, when I'm more acquainted with them, I can bring you along for a meeting." He wasn't looking for a sugar mommy. These beautiful acquaintances were high-level resources. The best he could do was invite them out and bring him along. Whether sparks would fly depended on his own charm. As for Chu Mingcheng, for now, he didn't have any immediate plans. Normally, given the choice between making money and finding a girlfriend, most men would prioritize making money, and he was no exception. Of course, if a girl took the initiative, he wasn't the kind to deliberately push her away. With Zhang Wei's help, the remaining 3 alligator gars were quickly caught. With 4,000 yuan in hand, he also heard that the biggest alligator gar had recently been caught, but the other 2 were still in the lake. After all this time, the alligator gars had probably moved locations, making the previous scan inaccurate. And Chu Mingcheng had used all his scans for the day, so he wouldn't be able to locate the alligator gar any longer. But with an 80% capture rate, he was still able to comfortably catch the remaining alligator gars, netting another 2,000 yuan. Today, he had caught a total of 9 alligator gars, bringing in 9,000 yuan. After deducting the 4,000 spent on buying the lure rod, plus the 400 from selling crucian carp, his pure income for the day was over 5,400 yuan. Oh, and he had added 200 yuan for gas today. This had to be deducted as well. But 5,000 yuan could equal the monthly salary of many people. It was too bad that such quick earning opportunities were rare. He could only wait and see if more would come along. "Ah Ching, you made so much today, you've got to treat," Zhang Wei said. Zhang Wei couldn't help but be envious of his good friend's earnings, but he didn't have any ulterior motives. He simply wanted to enjoy a good meal at his expense. Even without him saying so, Chu Mingcheng would have offered to treat, call Chen Ying and see if he's free. Their relationship was solid, and they would often treat each other to meals, never leaving anyone out. After Zhang Wei made the call, however, they learned that Chen Ying was off to the airport to pick up his parents and wouldn't be available that evening. Seeing this, Chu Mingcheng could only shrug in disappointment. "Looks like it'll have to be next time." Zhang Wei felt slightly bored, but he found another way to have fun. "Alright, next time then. I won't go back with you, I've got a date with a rich lady for a drink tonight. I'm planning to dig for sea earthworms tomorrow. Aren't you coming?" "Ah, digging for sea earthworms tomorrow won't stop me from drinking tonight. I'll come find you then." "Fine." Zhang Wei insisted on going out to have fun, so Chu Mingcheng naturally wouldn't say much more. Actually, the rich women he mentioned were just a group of women who liked to have fun and had a bit of money. They weren't really wealthy older ladies. The two parted ways, and Chu Mingcheng drove back home. However, on the way, his mother called to ask when he would come home for the vacation, and she also inquired about the matchmaking. It seemed that the woman's side hadn't mentioned his rejection. Although he was handsome, that only added a few points to his appeal in the matchmaking market. Being rejected wasn't surprising. After a few matchmaking attempts, he realized that when marriage was considered, not only men but also women were realistic. Economic conditions were always the top priority. Now that his family was asking, Chu Mingcheng could only tell them the truth. Chu's mother was somewhat disappointed, but she didn't say much, probably planning to arrange more matches. "By the way, Ah Ching, your grandma wants us to stay on Dongting Island for a few days. Do you want to join us?" Dongting Island was far from the coastline, already within our country's exclusive economic zone. The scenery on the island was indeed better than Yanmen Island, and the waters around the island were mostly deeper, which many fishing men liked to sail to for deep-sea fish. But this was too soon for Chu Mingcheng, and since he was going to dig for sea earthworms tomorrow, he declined straight away. "Mom, you and Dad go ahead and have a good time during the National Day holiday. I'll stay around my hometown for a few days. Your grandma says she misses you. Are you sure you don't want to visit? I'll go at the end of the year. It's boring to go now without a companion." "Alright then." Chu's mother didn't insist. After instructing him on a few things, she hung up the phone. More than an hour later, Chu Mingcheng didn't go straight home. Instead, he took a detour to the reservoir and, in a burst of energy, fished out and physically exterminated all the alligator gars he could catch. 5 + 9, He had dealt with a total of 14 alligator gars today, and his data panel was completely refreshed. Alligator gar, invasive species, ecological destruction index, 5 stars, alligator gars eliminated, 15, hooking probability, plus 100%, scanning detection, 0 per day, life transformation, 14 times, after catching 15, the highest hooking probability was at 100%. Now he truly was the alligator gar killer. Anywhere there was an alligator gar, he was certain to catch it. As for whether he could actually reel it in, that would depend on the fishing rod and his fishing skills. Life transformation had reached 14 times, and Chu Mingcheng immediately used it 4 times. After using it once yesterday, he only felt a slight warmth in his body, and that was it. This time, after using it 4 times in a row, he felt a warm current appear out of nowhere inside him, spreading to all his limbs and throughout his body. Although it lasted only a brief moment, it made him feel extremely comfortable all over. Any slight tiredness he had felt completely vanished. He lifted his shirt to check his stomach, which still sported a 6-pack. He clenched his fist but didn't feel any significant increase in strength. It seemed that the number of transformations was still too few. Chu Mingcheng didn't temporarily see much use for life transformation, but it could eliminate fatigue. Therefore, he decided to save the remaining 10 instances for now. He could use life transformation to relieve tiredness when digging for sea earthworms the next day. Chapter 16. Do you eat? Today, Chu Mingcheng didn't go grocery shopping and decided to catch a fish to solve the dinner issue. So he switched to a rod with M hardness and tied on a 2.5 gram lure. Actually, such a small lure should be used with a thinner fishing line and a softer rod, but he didn't have one, so he made do with what he had. Moreover, he was eating dinner alone tonight, so there was no need to catch a big fish. After adjusting the drag of the spinning reel, with a swish, the lure suddenly flew out more than 10 meters before being reeled back in with a flutter. If he had switched to a softer rod, throwing an extra 10 meters probably wouldn't be a problem. According to online videos, lure fishing should involve casting the lure out and then directly hooking a fish. But in reality, after Chu Mingcheng, who had just casually caught an alligator gar, cast his line over and over for about 30 times, there was still no sign of anything. Now he clearly understood the use of the golden finger. Without a chance of catching a fish, he was just like any other fishing man. He could lure a fish all day long and end up with a sore back and no fish at all. After casting for another 15 minutes and with the sun setting, Chu Mingcheng sighed and prepared to make a trip to the vegetable market. Just as the lure was almost back to the shore, suddenly a fish took the bait. It was the first time Chu Mingcheng had used the M hardness rod that day, and it indeed felt different from the MH rod. With the rod softened, its sensitivity was heightened. The fish on the hook was floundering on the surface of the water, and while it didn't look big, the force it exerted was not insignificant. However, the fish was only 5 or 6 meters away from the shore. Chu Mingcheng pulled and reeled, and soon the fish was brought close. He squatted down and picked up the landing net. The fish was effortlessly scooped up. Taking the fish out of the net, he discovered that he didn't recognize it. The color of this fish wasn't much different from that of a wild crucian carp, but its body was laterally compressed, taller in the middle, and slightly diamond-shaped. The head was very small, and so was the mouth. It was only because he had chosen a lure small enough that the fish was able to swallow it. Any larger, and it would have been impossible. Luckily, its body wasn't small. Chu Mingcheng estimated its weight to be about 1.5 pounds, maybe even 2 pounds, but he wasn't sure if it would taste good. Since he couldn't recognize it himself, he decided to check if it was listed in the Fish Identification Guide. Fish Identification Guide, Level 0, Current Experience, 7 out of 50, Unlocked Catching Tools, Hands, Fishing Gear, Maximum Fish Level, 50, Unlocked Fish Species, Mud Shrimp, Crucian Carp, Whitebait, Carp, Ground Tiger, Spicy Snail, Bayan Fish, Special Abilities, None, so this is called Bayan Fish. Now that he knew what the fish was called, it would be easy to handle. Chu Mingcheng took out his phone and looked it up. He found out that its flesh was very delicious and suitable for braising or steaming. With this, dinner was settled. As night fell and hunger set in, and now with ingredients at hand, he promptly packed up his fishing gear and carried the fish home. Upon arriving home, he put on the rice to cook, and then took the knife and cutting board out to the front yard. Just then, Chu Mingcheng suddenly slapped his thigh, realizing he had forgotten to prepare a fish for the cat. He had made a point of checking the front courtyard when he got home yesterday and noticed that the fish by the well were gone. He figured that Tabby Cat must have visited. He stood up and looked around but didn't find any trace of the cat. Could it be that it came late today and has already left? Chu Mingcheng wasn't very sure and decided to go prepare the fish first. Picking up the knife, he used the back of it to knock the Bayan fish on the head, which immediately calmed the still flapping fish. Meow! Just as he was scaling the fish, a cat's meow suddenly came from above. Chu Mingcheng looked up and saw that the tabby cat had arrived. "So you were hiding up there, no wonder I couldn't find you." He had always wanted to keep cats and dogs, but his previous job didn't allow him to take care of them, so the idea was abandoned. This was also why he was so attentive to this tabby cat after coming back to his old home. Chu Mingcheng glanced at the fish, and after pondering, he finished scaling it, chopped off the head and tail, gutted it, and then took the remaining fish meat away from the well. The tabby cat watched him the entire time, and after seeing him walk away, it stared at him for a short while before leaping down with a graceful jump. It sniffed the fish head, tail, and guts that had been left behind, then looked up at him and meowed softly as if to thank him before starting to eat. Seeing this, Chu Mingcheng smiled, and only after the cat had finished eating and left did he take the fish into the kitchen to start preparing dinner. The remaining Bayan fish was cut horizontally into pieces, arranged in a circle on a plate, sprinkled with chopped green onion and a few slices of ginger, with some chopped chili peppers added on top, before being placed in the steamer. The fish was cut into small pieces and didn't need much steaming time at all. 5 minutes after the water boiled would do. The steamed fish was ready, and so was the rice. Chu Mingcheng, feeling the weather was nice, wiped down a folding table and set it up in the front yard. He then returned to drizzle the fish with seafood soy sauce, followed by hot oil, and the freshly steamed fish was ready to be served. Having served himself a bowl of rice and carried the fish outside, Chu Mingcheng sat in the front yard to enjoy his evening meal. After tasting the fish, he found it smooth and tender without any excess fishy smell, and indeed the flavor was not much different from sea bass, except for the lack of that distinct ocean freshness. But just as he had barely taken a couple of bites of rice, Chu Mingcheng noticed the tabby cat had returned. And this time, it hadn't come empty-handed, it was holding a large mouse in its mouth that weighed at least 1 pound. It didn't eat its fill? Chu Mingcheng was astonished. Then, he watched as the tabby cat approached not far from him, and he heard the crunching sound of bones being crushed as well as the dying squeals of the mouse. After a short while, once the mouse's spine and skull were crushed and it couldn't escape, the tabby cat brought it over to Chu Mingcheng, laid it down, and meowed. It seemed to be asking, "Do you want some?" Chu Mingcheng's eye twitched as he forced a smile. "Thank you, but you should eat it, I don't need any." After saying this, he also picked up his bowl of rice and the fish to show he was fine. The tabby cat seemed to understand his gesture, picked up the mouse again, and returned to where it had eaten the fish before, crunching down on the mouse's head with a crunch and a distinctive smacking sounds of a cat eating. Chu Mingcheng clearly saw the mouse's blood flowing down and its head being eaten first by the cat. Suddenly, Chu Mingcheng felt nauseous, and his previously good appetite disappeared in an instant. What a sin. He could only carry his rice and fish back inside the house to eat, out of sight, out of mind. Unfortunately, his appetite was gone, and he barely ate any rice or touched the fish with his chopsticks. Chu Mingcheng had no choice but to take the fish and rice back to the kitchen, pour the rice back into the rice cooker, and wrap the fish with cling film and put it in the fridge. After cleaning up the kitchen, he went to the front yard to bring in the table, only to find the tabby cat frolicking with the half-eaten remains of the mouse, with pieces like the mouse's kidneys scattered all over the ground. "Ground tiger, I tell you, I really want to curse you, but you sure as hell can't understand. How aggravating." Now that he hadn't eaten, he didn't feel that disgusted, it was just an innate aversion to mice as creatures. But it must be said, this tabby cat was a good cat. No wonder it looked plump and sleek despite being a stray, it turned out to be a regular mouse hunter. In the city, it would probably have struggled for food. Chapter 17, The Special Sea Earthworm. The tabby played around for a while before it picked up the half-corpse of the mouse and left leisurely, less wary of Chu Mingcheng now. However, it left behind traces of mouse blood and some organs, which he had to clean up himself. Chu Mingcheng felt slightly helpless, the cat wasn't even his, yet he had already become its cleaner. After cleaning up the front courtyard, he took a shower and returned to the bedroom, where he continued to learn about fishing and the crucial maintenance of fishing rods. His recent fishing experiences had taught him that there was much to learn in this field. As a beginner wanting to quickly become an expert, all he could do was watch and learn more. After studying for 2 hours, Chu Mingcheng shut down his computer and lay in bed, ready to sleep, when he suddenly remembered Zhang Luoluo asking him to help increase her video views. Driven by curiosity, he pulled out his phone, opened Bilibili, and searched for Yu Yao. The profile picture was of a beautiful female dressed in hanfu, heavily made up and with a beautifying filter, but Chu Mingcheng could barely recognize that it was indeed Zhang Luoluo. After clicking in, Chu Mingcheng found that there were many videos posted, arranged in a long list and categorized. One of the categories was labeled as Original Treasure Dance, which piqued his curiosity and he clicked on it. The first video had only been posted a day ago, showed a runtime of just over 50 seconds, and was titled, Gossamer Lights, Moon and Toe. The background music was Xiang Yao. The video was quite short. He looked at the length of some subsequent videos and realized that this was actually a preview. Chu Mingcheng wasn't very familiar with ancient-style songs, he was only familiar with the golden age of Huaxia music. After its decline, he seldom listened to new songs. Having watched Zhongluo Luo dance during the day, which differed from the slow-paced classical dance he had imagined, her movements integrated strength and softness, and the dance naturally flowed with the music, pleasing to the eye. Some of the moves were actually quite difficult and could not be gracefully executed by a non-professional dancer. Curious about the content of the videos, he clicked on the first video. As if Yu Yao brought the moon with her, filling the void of earthly heartbeats, in the moonlit dance of light gossamer, that moment of ethereal grace had Chu Mingcheng instinctively clutching his skipped heartbeat. What happened to filling the void of earthly heartbeats? It had taken his heart away completely, making him fall helplessly in love. In gossamer fine and beauty divine, Yu Yao born of lotus steps. During the day, Zhongluo Luo was just a stunningly beautiful woman with a graceful figure, but the video elevated her charm by several notches. The gossamer in her hand seemed alive, her dance moves enchanting. In a blink, a brief 50 seconds passed. After coming back to his senses, Chu Mingcheng quietly clicked on the 3 dots at the top right of the video, then set the playlist to repeat this single song. Yes, he was hooked. Damn, it's already 10 o'clock. The next day, Chu Mingcheng unsurprisingly overslept. Last night, he didn't even know when he had fallen asleep, only that he had dozed off while the video was still playing. He pulled up Zhongluo Luo's WeChat and sent her a message. I was increasing your video views last night and ended up oversleeping this morning. I think you owe me a little something. After waiting a minute or two with no reply, Chu Mingcheng got out of bed, freshened up, and drove to East U to dig for sea earthworms. Collecting sea earthworms didn't require any special equipment, just a short-handled hoe would do. Wild sea earthworms aren't as abundant as before, but they are now massively farmed domestically. However, Z and Fu provinces are rich in sea earthworms, and with some diligence, one can still gather many wild ones. Seeing that it was nearly 11 o'clock after crossing the sea bridge, Chu Mingcheng simply stopped at a fast food restaurant and ordered braised pork, having an early lunch. Today was manual labor, and he had to eat some meat in the morning or he was afraid he wouldn't have the strength in the afternoon. Moreover, he even bought a sandwich and a bottle of date milk, fearing he might get hungry later. It was during lunch that Zhongluo Luo finally replied to the messages. Sorry, I didn't check my phone this morning. Did you watch my video? How was it? Give me some feedback. Also, how do you want me to make it up to you? She replied to 3 messages in a row, and Chu Mingcheng felt that her fondness for him was still pretty high. She had probably gone to Yanshan in the morning and wasn't deliberately leaving him hanging without a reply. Isn't oversleeping the best compliment I could give your video? It's no fun if you let me decide the compensation. Shouldn't it be you who takes the initiative? Far away in Yanshan, sitting in a farmhouse and waiting for the meal, Zhongluo Luo read the reply and couldn't help but smirk. If her video led to him oversleeping, didn't that mean she had captured his interest? However, thinking of compensation, Zhongluo Luo felt a bit troubled and pursed her lips. Then her eyes twinkled, and she replied. How about I treat you to a meal when I get back from Yanshan? Seeing this message, Chu Mingcheng smiled. Most women possess a skill, they turn men they just met into their obedient followers, serving their needs. If he agreed outright now, he would fall into an inferior position. Perhaps some women are straightforward and less convoluted, but this is also a passive skill. If men voluntarily act submissive, they wouldn't mind an extra follower. So, when the other person is not yet a girlfriend, interact with her as one would with a man, refuse when necessary, be busy when required. Meal depends on my schedule. You know I'm quite occupied right now, might not have the time. We'll see when you get back from Yanshan. He neither agreed nor refused outright but postponed the matter to see how things would unfold. After chatting a bit more, Chu Mingcheng took the initiative to end the conversation and went to eat lunch before driving to East U Beach. The car couldn't go further in, so, he parked outside, donned a conical hat, sun-proof clothing, and changed into waterproof boots. Then, he took the bag with the sandwich and date milk from the trunk, added a bottle of mineral water to it, and began walking towards the beach with a short-handled hoe and bucket in hand. It was not a short walk, it took him over 20 minutes to reach where one could dig for sea earthworms. This being Chu Mingcheng's first visit, he did not know where to find sea earthworms, but since people were there every day, following them would lead him to the right spots. Digging for sea earthworms was tough, it wasn't a job for those unaccustomed to physical labor. Yet, those capable of doing it actually made a good amount of money. With years of saving, one could have amassed a couple of million. Zhang Wei's father had been doing this for years, and Chu Mingcheng learned from him that his family had saved over $1 million. intended for Zhang Wei's wedding and house purchase. Chu Mingcheng randomly picked a spot near the water, found some small holes, placed his bucket beside him, and began digging with his right hand wielding the short-handled hoe. He turned over a clump of soil to check, nothing. He dug deeper. Initially, one could dig vigorously to remove the soil, and then gently follow the holes to excavate more carefully. When digging, one must use finesse. The hoe should be inserted slightly, then pulled back to turn over the soil lumps, otherwise, digging too deep might directly harm the sea earthworms, leading to a loss. Finding sea earthworms mainly involved looking for matchstick-sized holes. Chu Mingcheng was grateful for the information era. Without online resources, his spontaneous digging trip would have likely ended with nothing but physical strain. His chosen spot turned out to be quite good. Following the holes, he quickly uncovered a sea earthworm the size of his index finger. The sea earthworm looked intriguing, half as thick as a finger, and the other half much thinner, almost like a matchstick. However, after a while, he unexpectedly dug up an unusually long sea earthworm. A sea earthworm nearly 20 centimeters long? Chapter 18 Show your skills. The sea earthworm is very short. He didn't believe it could grow to 20 centimeters. So he looked at the Marine Life Atlas and only then did he realize that this creature is called a sandworm, with the scientific name square grit starworm, a different species from the sea earthworm. The conditions for the growth environment of sandworms are very demanding, and he hadn't expected them to be found in the sand at the beach here. Dried sandworms sell for a price ranging from 500 to 1,000 yuan per half kilogram. Previously, some people sold these sea earthworms as the precious sandworms, cheating many who didn't know better. Mainly because sandworms look very much like these sea earthworms, resembling little intestines but commonly reaching 10 to 20 centimeters in length. They are mostly distributed around the Yuzai area, but now the wild ones are rare, unlike sea earthworms which can still be abundantly dug up. Finding precious sandworms here, Chu Mingcheng immediately gave up digging for sea earthworms and started digging for sandworms. As a result, he wasted a lot of time and energy, but only dug up 3 relatively large sandworms. Alright, it's better to dig for sea earthworms instead, at least there would be a harvest whenever he found a small pit and shoveled into it. After continuing to dig for an hour and a half, he was getting a bit tired. He took a sip of mineral water, massaged his waist, and used life transformation once. Instantly, the heat and fatigue faded significantly, making him feel a lot more comfortable. But the soreness in his back didn't completely disappear, it was only alleviated by a great deal, so he had to use life transformation one more time to completely recover. Once he felt better, he naturally got his energy back. Currently, the sea earthworms had completely covered the bottom of the bucket, but he estimated that there was barely over half a kilogram. The experience points in the Marine Life Atlas had increased to 8, and the data panel for the sea earthworms had risen to level 4. Delicious Chnang starworm, also known as sea earthworm, etc. Level 4, current experience, 11 out of 50, size increase plus 4%, tastiness plus 4%, capture rate plus 4%, based on experience. He caught 111 sea earthworms in an hour and a half, but in reality, there weren't that many in his bucket. The main reason was that he caught them regardless of size, but he threw back the smaller ones after they provided experience points. In this respect, many places abroad do quite well. Undersized marine products have to be released. If caught, there would be hefty fines, which ensures sustainable development of marine life. Unfortunately, there are still no such regulations in China, leading many marine species to near extinction in the wild and compelling the development of aquaculture. For now, he couldn't do much about others, he could only start with himself. Chu Mingcheng continued to dig along the water channels, using life transformation 2 more times, until he finished at 5 o'clock. Mainly because he saw merchants coming to buy the sea earthworms and seeing others ready to sell, he lost the urge to dig further. Delicious Chnang starworm, also known as sea earthworm, etc. Level 8, current experience, 46 out of 90, size increase plus 8%, tastiness plus 8%, capture rate plus 8%. Although the level had risen to 8, Chu Mingcheng only dug up a little over 3 kilograms that afternoon. For a newcomer, this efficiency was acceptable. Generally, a seasoned digger would harvest about the same on a bad day, and on a good day, they might dig up to around 10 kilograms. Chu Mingcheng first went to the water's edge to wash his boots and hoe, took out the sandworms separately and placed them into a bag. He waited until nearly everyone else had sold theirs before going to sell his catch. What's the buying price over here? When the vendor saw that the sea earthworms in his bucket were all similar in size, he looked slightly surprised, but he didn't say anything and seemed even happier. You've got some big ones here, how about I give you 35 yuan per jin? Was he thinking of taking advantage of him because he looked like an easy target? This price was still okay in the summer months, where the market rate was probably around 45 to 50 yuan per jin, but now it was October, and the prices had risen quite a bit. He had specifically inquired and found out they were selling for over 60 yuan now. Any purchasing price has to be at least 45 yuan per jin. Forget it, I don't have much here, so I'm not selling. Chu Mingchen thought it over. He wouldn't always come to dig for sea earthworms, so he decided to sell them himself. The owner of the place where he had eaten the earthworm soup noodles might buy them. If not, he could take them to the vegetable market or slowly sell them at the docks. Hey, we can talk about the price. How about I give you 40 yuan per jin, which is higher than what others are offering? No, I plan on eating them myself. Chu Mingchen politely waved his hand to decline and carried his bucket with his tools and headed back. He drove straight to the noodle shop, where it was a bit late today, and the shop seemed to be doing well as all the seats were filled. Chu Mingchen went straight to the back kitchen with his bucket and digital scale, surprising the owner and his wife when they saw him come in. Boss, do you buy these sea earthworms? I dug them up myself this afternoon. The noodle shop owner handed the noodle boiling task over to his wife and then crouched down to sift through the sea earthworms in the bucket, noticing that each one was plump and large. Uniform-sized items like these were not easy to find in the market. Usually, the market mixed in some smaller ones, but the price difference wasn't much less. How much are you selling these for? I just have some free time recently to dig and make some pocket money. If you want them, I'll sell them to you for 55 yuan per jin. Before the owner could reply, the lady boss spoke up first. 55 yuan per jin is a bit expensive. We'll take it for 50 yuan per jin. I won't sell for 50 yuan per jin. I will be digging for a while, and if you want them, I can deliver more tomorrow. If not, then I'll sell them at the market or the docks. They're going for over 60 on the market now. I'd just be spending a bit more time at most. Currently, the grades of various seafood were too low. Chu Mingchen wanted to take the time to level up and was not willing to waste time. Otherwise, why would he allow others to profit at his expense? Okay, if the quality is always like this, then I'll take it at 55 yuan per jin from now on. The boss knew he was getting a bit of a bargain. He usually bought his supply from fish vendors at the same price the market offered, with no discounts. After all, others need to make a profit too and wouldn't foolishly offer him a lower price. The best he could do was pick out the better-looking ones first. Chu Mingchen was selling to him at a slightly cheaper rate than market price. Only a fool would say no. Both parties had a digital scale, and after weighing twice, the results were the same, a total of 3.26 jin, which came to 179.3 yuan. After a busy afternoon, he earned less than 200 yuan, which was even less than what he made from fishing for crucian carp and was more tiring, but Chu Mingchen didn't mind. After all, digging for sea earthworms leveled him up quickly, and while he was earning less than fishing for crucian carp right now, it might not be the case in a few days. Besides, he had already planned to dig for sea earthworms during the day and fish for crucian carp at night, without skipping either. Boss, make me a bowl of 3 delicacies noodles. He hadn't eaten dinner yet, so he decided to settle for a meal here, only paying 160 yuan as the boss added some extra ingredients. On the way back after dinner, Zhang Wei's phone call suddenly came through, and that's when he realized why he felt like something was missing. It was this guy. "Ah Ching, come and pick me up quickly. I'm out of drinks, and if you don't come get me, next year you'll only be able to chat with me by my grave." No, it won't come to that. If you really can't manage, just show off your skills. I'm at home now and won't be coming over. Chu Mingchen couldn't be bothered to go pick someone up now. He didn't wait to see what else Zhang Wei had to say and just hung up the phone. Once back home, he specially went to the front yard to check on the calico cat, finding it lying in the corner under the eaves resting. Leftovers from a mouse, just a couple of severed legs, and a round pinkish ball, possibly the mouse's bladder. It seemed to have eaten already that night, so he left it alone. The calico cat didn't run away when it saw him now, but Chu Mingchen didn't rush over to touch it, as it was still a wild cat. Better to continue building a good rapport before getting closer. Chapter 19 Maintenance worker Zhang Wei just looking at it lying forlornly in a corner under the eaves, Chu Mingchen thought for a moment, went back into the house, and found a cardboard box, cutting a hole in its side with scissors. He then found an old blanket used for summer and spread it inside, and a makeshift little nest was ready. Afterwards, he headed to the front courtyard and slowly approached the tabby cat. Noticing Chu Mingchen's approach, the cat remained vigilant and stood up, but did not leave. "I've made a nest for you, you can rest here from now on," Chu Mingchen said with a smile as he placed the little nest beside it, then stood up and backed away. The tabby cat stared at him for a while and then curiously nudged the little nest. Upon discovering the small hole, it first peeked inside to check for any danger, and only after sticking its head in to sniff around and feel safe, did it confidently walk in. The tabby cat seemed to like the little nest very much, and soon lay down to rest. Seeing this, Chu Mingcheng smiled with satisfaction and then left the front courtyard to drive to the reservoir for night fishing. The path to success was now laid out in front of him. Unlike work where he could see no future, he had to work hard or it would be a waste. Perhaps the ghost in the reservoir had taken a liking to the help he had specifically provided, or maybe the bait nest he had cultivated paid off, because tonight, Chu Mingcheng's catch exploded. Originally, he had planned to set up his rod and stand aside to lure fish with artificial bait. But the rod was getting bites nearly every minute, leaving him no time to use the lure. Before, the Crucian Carp's experience was at level 2, 7 out of 30, but now it had jumped straight to level 4. Crucian Carp, level 4, current experience, 21 out of 50, size plus 4%, tastiness plus 4%, catch rate plus 4%, that is, he caught a total of 84, with 23 plus 40 plus 21. His fishing container would have burst if he hadn't bought a plastic box to hold his catch. However, Chu Mingcheng released all the ones he estimated were under half a pound to the other side, and even so, there were still 63 Crucian Carps. Back at home, he took out 3 Crucian Carps and kept them in a bucket. These 3 would be the cat's meal for tomorrow. The remaining 60 Crucian Carps were also separated into another bucket and aerated with oxygen. Once finished, Chu Mingcheng checked his phone, found no one had contacted him, and went to wash up and sleep. The next day upon waking, the first thing he intended to do was to turn sandworms into dried goods. Nowadays, most of the sandworms available in the market are dried products. If he found a place where sandworms are abundant, he could dig up more. For now, these 3 would be dried and used as seasoning. Dried sandworm has the effects of nourishing the yin to lower fire, clearing the lungs to replenish vacuity, and strengthening the kidneys to fortify yang. Eating more of it can benefit the body, but the downside is its high cost. He took the sandworms out of the bag and rinsed them twice, then used chopsticks to flip them over and wash the sand out from the inside. This step had to be done carefully, to avoid breaking the sandworms. Next was boiling water. As soon as the water was boiled, he put the clean sandworms in it briefly, scalding them until they turn white all over before fishing them out and using kitchen paper to dry off the moisture. If drying was the goal, it was best to prick the cooked sandworms with a small needle. But Chu Mingcheng lived by the seaside, and today the weather was sunny and warm with a brisk sea breeze, perfect for drying goods. He took the sandworms up to the second-floor balcony to dry. Just going downstairs to wash his face and brush his teeth, upon his return, the sandworms had already dried to 30 or 40%. Seeing this, Chu Mingcheng simply went to the market for a visit, had breakfast, bought some groceries, and came back to prepare lunch for himself. After he had prepared his lunch, the sandworms were almost fully dried, taking up less than 2 hours in total. Chu Mingcheng packed up the 3 dried sandworms and stored them in a cool, ventilated, and dry place before starting his car to head to the market to sell fish. It was still the same fish seller as before, still 25 yuan per half kilogram, but today he had a larger haul, totaling 36.4 half kilograms, or 910 yuan, and the 10 yuan of change was expectedly rounded down. But Chu Mingcheng didn't mind about the 10 yuan, as he wasn't going to sell Crucian Carp for much longer. He figured that in a few days, he wouldn't go fishing in the reservoir anymore, to avoid affecting the population of Crucian Carp with his high efficiency. He was about to go dig sea earthworms next, but then Zhang Wei called again, asking for a pickup, saying he was already at the town's bus station. If it were to the county town, Chu Mingcheng definitely would not pick him up, as it was too far. Going back and forth would not only be a waste of time but also a waste of fuel, and who could afford the gas prices nowadays? After he arrived at the station to pick up Zhang Wei, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. "May I ask, dear brother, what caused you to look so thin within a single day?" Zhang Wei's face was full of resentfulness, miscalculated. "I ran into a powerful juicer the night before last, must have been a long time since it had maintenance. As soon as I put it in gear, it went way over, and in the end, I barely managed to adjust the gear speed to normal with my tools after working on it for 2 nights, leaving me with little sleep." His Chu Mingcheng drew a sharp breath and quickly went on to delete the numbers he had saved, as this puzzle was too difficult, and he simply couldn't solve it. "Are you going to my place to sleep for a bit, or are you going to join me in digging sea earthworms at East U Beach?" Zhang Wei thought for a moment. "I'll join you. If I get tired, I'll just sleep in your car." "Alright then." Chu Mingcheng had no objections and drove him to purchase a short-handled hoe and waterproof boots before heading to East U Beach. Once they arrived, he grabbed his bucket and went straight to work. He handed the car keys to Zhang Wei so he could sleep if he grew tired and assured him he would take care of lunch himself. Today, He spent an extra 2 hours digging and managed to get somewhat more sea earthworms than before, about 5.5 kilograms in total, and his level also increased to 14. Delicious Chnang star worm, also known as sea earthworm, etc. Level 14, current experience, 113 out of 150, size plus 14%, tastiness plus 14%, capture rate plus 14%. It might not seem much, as he only gathered a couple hundred more earthworms than yesterday, but once he passed level 10, he clearly noticed that the probability of digging up bigger sea earthworms was higher than this morning and yesterday. It was from that point on that Chu Mingcheng began to have a stable income. The only pity was that of the 5 remaining life conversion opportunities, only 2 were left now. He may not have felt it yesterday, but today he certainly felt the changes in his physical condition, indeed stronger than before. Zhang Wei also dug a bit, but due to the exhausting repair work from the night before and yesterday, he didn't even gather half a kilogram before giving up and driving to an internet cafe, only coming back when he called him to pick someone up. As Chu Mingcheng was about to take the sea earthworms to sell, he suddenly received a message from Zhang Luoluo. Are you free? I have returned from Yanshan. Didn't I say I would make it up to you? Would you like to come out for a meal? Chu Mingcheng felt it wasn't right to leave Zhang Wei alone, so he tactfully declined. Well, a friend of mine came to visit me today, and we are about to go out to eat. Oh, then bring your friend along. You know I also have 2 friends here, and I was just worrying that you might feel awkward coming alone. I'll ask my friend then. Yeah, ask quickly. Chu Mingcheng said he'd ask, but of course, it was just an excuse. With the prospect of beautiful women, Zhang Wei would go even if he was completely drained. Remember those 2 beauties you saw yesterday? One of them invited me to dinner. Wanna go? Go, of course we must go. Indeed, just as he expected, Zhang Wei immediately agreed, eyes shining. Chapter 20, Sober in the Human World. After returning home to feed the tabby cat some fish, Zhang Wei was very surprised to see this cat. Ah Ching, what's with this cat? Ah, this cat had stolen my fish before, and now it has become my cat. Since I live here now, having a cat does provide some company. Hey, that's kind of interesting. Zhang Wei was about to pet the cat when Chu Mingcheng suddenly stopped him. This is a stray cat. I haven't taken it to the hospital for a checkup yet. Aren't you afraid it might bite you? Zhang Wei gave a sheepish smile and withdrew. I just didn't think it through for a moment. So, he grabbed a crucian carp to tease the cat and watch it eat. Chu Mingcheng didn't mind him and went to take a shower first. The place Zhang Luoluo had booked was a mid-range Japanese restaurant. He wondered why these girls liked Japanese cuisine so much. Was it because the portions were small, making it seem like they didn't eat much? But since someone else was treating, Chu Mingcheng naturally wouldn't complain. Following the waiter's lead, they took off their shoes and walked into a private room. By then, Zhang Luoluo and her 2 friends were already sitting inside, having changed back into casual clothes. They wore traditional clothes earlier because they had to shoot a video, making their makeup a bit heavier. It looked great on video, but in reality, it seemed as though they were wearing masks. Now, seeing Zhang Luoluo in light makeup, he felt her charm was even more enhanced. Zhu Jiayi was also very beautiful, but she fell slightly short compared to Zhang Luoluo. The slight difference wasn't in their features, but in the contrast of their skin tones. Zhang Luoluo was incredibly fair, currently wearing a white t-shirt that nearly matched her skin tone. Up close, her skin was exceptionally smooth, possibly due to some skincare products. Zhu Jiayi was just a little bit darker, which made her seem slightly less attractive. However, both beauties had their own qualities, and many men preferred Zhu Jiayi's type, as she was definitely a sweet girl with big eyes. Although Chu Mingcheng looked over both women, in reality, he had just walked in, greeted Zhang Luoluo and her friends, introduced Zhang Wei, and then sat down opposite them. While Zhang Wei often acted foolishly around him, at that moment, he behaved very naturally and did not drool over the beauties he saw. Seeing Zhang Luoluo looking quite familiar with Chu Mingcheng, he took the initiative to talk to Zhu Jiayi, who was quieter, and soon they hit it off. After all, how simple can a man who can repair a juicer be? As for the photographer, Zhang Ruomai, she was always very good at being invisible. Chu Mingcheng didn't expect you to be quite the rich girl, choosing this Japanese restaurant. Zhang Luoluo, I saw good reviews online and picked this place. Why, is it expensive here? For the 5 of us to eat, it'll probably cost around 2,000 yuan. The dishes I just ordered are about that price, but it's fine to splurge once in a while. Zhang Luoluo had chosen this place, so she was naturally aware of the prices. With her income, splurging a few thousand on a meal occasionally didn't hurt. By the way, besides Yanshan, are there any other fun places around here? As for famous sites, Yanshan is pretty much it. If you're looking for fun, maybe you could try sea foraging. You could catch seafood during the day and make a feast with your catch in the evening. Trying it once in a while should be quite interesting. At this dinner today, neither Chu Mingcheng nor Zhang Wei would secretly play the gentleman but actually be a simp by secretly paying the bill. However, interactions between people require give and take to continue, so he deliberately steered the topic toward gleaning the sea. If Zhang Luoyuo was interested in his proposal, he would naturally prepare a seafood feast to entertain her, so she wouldn't have eaten this Japanese meal for nothing. Zhang Luoyuo didn't grow up by the sea. Although she had visited the beach before, she had never experienced sea gleaning, and she became interested immediately after Chu Mingcheng mentioned it. However, she wasn't alone on this trip, so she first asked her companions for their opinions. Jai Yi, Sister Mai, do you want to go gleaning the sea? Zhang Ruomai shrugged, I'm down for it. Zhu Jai Yi, on the other hand, was somewhat interested and nodded in agreement, sure, I have never tried gleaning the sea before either. Seeing that they all agreed, Zhang Luoyuo then coyly smiled at Chu Mingcheng and said, then we'll rely on you tomorrow. No problem. But since you guys want to go gleaning the sea, let's switch where you'll stay tonight. My family actually lives on the island, and you can glean the sea there. There is a sea crossing bridge that allows direct driving to the island, and you can stay at a hotel there at night. Okay, then we'll go back to pack our bags after dinner, and when it's time, please wait for us and then take us there. The Japanese food was just so-so, but they still had a great time chatting. After the meal, they went down to the hotel lobby to wait. Once they came down with their luggage, the two men took the initiative to help load the luggage into the car. After all, they had enjoyed a big meal. The night was driven by Zhang Wei while Chu Mingcheng, after a busy day and having used his life conversion ability a couple of times, was rather tired. Ah Wei, I saw you chatting quite well with Jai Yi just now, got an eye on her? Zhang Wei smiled and shook his head, what use is there in liking her or not, she's not my type. Chu Mingcheng looked surprised, even with that looks? And her figure isn't bad either. That's not what I mean, she's quite innocent, and I haven't considered getting into a relationship leading to marriage. Better not to harm others. Also, such a beautiful girl surely has plenty of wealthy suitors, she might not fancy someone like me. I see. I thought you didn't like her because you thought she was pretentious. Pretentious? Why would you say that? Zhang Wei recalled their interaction, thinking Zhu Jie seemed quite nice. She was simply quiet and a bit shy. Don't you think the way she talks is a bit feigned cute? Isn't that common among Treasure Island people? She's a Treasure Island person. What else? Well, my mistake then, my bad. No wonder her accent sounded a bit funny, that explains it. Chu Mingcheng didn't watch Treasure Island movies or shows and hadn't interacted with Treasure Island people either, so he initially didn't recognize that Zhu Jie was from Treasure Island. People from there often have a melodious tone, making it seem like they are trying to be cute when they speak. So what about you? Did you have something going on since Zhang Luoyuo treated you to a 2,000 yuan meal? Do you think a girl would fancy someone in my current unemployed bum status? Besides, I'm only focused on making money right now, letting everything else take its course. Chu Mingcheng, like Zhang Wei, was very clear-headed. They would not fall into one of life's three major illusions just because a girl showed some initiative. However, no one would refuse to have high-quality friends of the opposite sex around, which was his reason for planning to take them sea gleaning and arranging a seafood feast for them tomorrow, to return the favor for today's meal. After settling Zhang Luoyuo and her group in a hotel on Yanmen Island, he said goodnight. Chu Mingcheng then went home to take the sea earthworms he caught today to the noodle shop to sell. But he didn't sell all, saving half a pound for tomorrow's treat. Chapter 21, The routine of sea foraging. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the alarm clock went off precisely on time, and getting up at this hour was truly no easy task. Although Chu Mingcheng was woken up by the alarm, the drowsiness made it utterly impossible for him to get out of bed. In the end, his brain issued a command, using life conversion for once, and he instantly became much more alert. Sitting up, Chu Mingcheng looked at the life conversion, now down to its last use, and remarked, "This thing is just like a stimulant, thankfully without any side effects." He got dressed, washed up, and drove off without calling Zhang Wei. He had woken up this early specifically to prepare for the day's seashore foraging. The abundant hauls in every seaside foraging video were actually 90% fake. Right now, he intended to visit the seafood market to purchase seafood, to fabricate a bit of reality, so the girls could experience the joy of a successful seaside foraging, an act of painstaking effort in its own right. La City had a late-night seafood market. At this time, stall owners would go there to stock up, so prices were lower, more like wholesale rates, and there was a greater, fresher variety of seafood available. As he entered the seafood market, A smell of the ocean mixed with a strong stench hit him, causing Chu Mingchen to frown. He took out the mask he had prepared earlier and put it on, which made things a lot more comfortable. Even he, who grew up by the sea, couldn't stand this kind of fishy smell. Only fishermen and fishmongers who dealt with seafood every day could tolerate it, or rather, they were accustomed to it. Chu Mingchen had a clear goal in mind, no fish, as he had other plans for today and didn't need sea fish. He went straight to a shop selling crabs and lobsters, where he spent 500 yuan to buy 5 green lobsters. Better to skip the jinxie lobsters, though the ones sold here were farmed, the wild ones were protected species, and it would be troublesome to be caught and misunderstood. No need to buy swimming crabs or green crabs either, as they would likely be available during the foraging. He bought some big scallops and sea snails for 300 yuan. With these purchases, he was nearly set, but just as he was about to head back, he suddenly spotted a stall selling green crabs. However, his green crabs were particularly large, each one looking to be at least 2 jins, with some even reaching 3 or 4 jins. These were Sri Lanka green crabs, likely farmed. "Boss, how much are you selling these Sri Lanka green crabs for?" "The smaller ones are 200 yuan a jin, the big ones like these are 260 a jin." Chu Mingchen clicked his tongue, that was a really steep price. "Are these meat crabs or butter crabs?" "All meat crabs. The butter crabs aren't tasty right now, while meat crabs are delicious, the flesh is very sweet." Upon hearing they were meat crabs, Chu Mingchen decided to buy some. Aside from butter crabs, meat crabs taste better than butter crabs, whose roe can't compare to that of the hairy crabs. Additionally, there are seasonal periods for farmed green crabs. After the Mid-Autumn Festival, the crab roe increasingly turns bitter, so those wishing to enjoy roe crabs are better off waiting until after the Qingming Festival next April. That's when the winter crabs are caught, big ones with full ripe roe taste the best. Chu Mingchen knew how to judge the plumpness of green crabs, first, by looking at the shell, but Sri Lanka green crabs have thick shells, making it hard to tell. So he picked up a few of the big ones and turned them over to check, keeping those with protruding navels and bushy claws. Finally, he turned them over on the ground, belly up, to assess their liveliness. As long as he didn't forcefully press on their navel eyes, the owner allowed people to pick at their leisure. Soon, Chu Mingchen selected a fat and large Sri Lanka green crab that weighed 4 jins and 3 tails, priced at 1,001 yuan. After leaving the seafood market, he didn't carry much, but he had almost spent 2,000 big coins. At that moment, Chu Mingchen couldn't help but consider the idea of farming Sri Lanka green crabs. They were damn expensive. But it was just a thought, he couldn't stand getting up at 3 a.m. every day to work during the crab season. Now, the life of fishing and collecting seafood was pretty good, he was earning much more than when he was employed, and he had a lot more freedom. On his way home, Chu Mingchen deliberately got some seawater to keep lobsters alive, and supplied them with oxygen before going back to sleep for a bit longer. He didn't get up again until 7:30 in the morning. This time, he even kicked awake Zhang Wei, who slept like a log, and took the seafood they bought in the morning, heading straight to the place where they had picked spicy snails last time. Zhang Wei only realized the presence of lobsters, Sri Lanka green crabs, and scallops amongst the seafood after he woke up, which left him dumbfounded. "What's the situation? What do we have around these seas? Can't we experience the joy of collecting seafood without faking it?" "You're right. But you're quite into this, aren't you?" Zhang Wei stroked his chin, a smile appearing at the corner of his mouth as he thoughtfully looked at Chu Mingchen. "Since I've invited others to come and have fun, I must make sure they enjoy themselves." "That's how you treat guests." "Then I'm a guest too, right? Why don't I get anything?" "You're not a woman." I could go to Elephant Country regarding shamelessness. Chu Mingchen felt he would never be able to outdo Zhang Wei. They arrived at their destination, and the tide had already receded. It would be close to 11 before the tide would start coming in again. He handed over the seafood he had bought at dawn to Zhang Wei, asked him to find a few holes to stash them in, and to keep an eye out, while he drove to the hotel to pick up Zhang Luoluo and the others. The agreed time was 8 o'clock. When Chu Mingchen arrived at the hotel, Zhang Luoluo and Shu Jiayi were already dressed for collecting seafood and waiting for him downstairs. Being on time greatly improved his impression of them. It was rare for little fairies to be punctual, he had thought he would have to wait at least an hour. But a big beauty standing downstairs is quite eye-catching. He had just arrived when he saw a man, presumably a National Day holiday visitor, hitting on them, asking for their contact information. Chu Mingchen honked the horn to draw their attention and then opened the window. "The tide has gone out, get in the car." Zhang Luoluo, who had been rather cold-looking initially, immediately smiled upon seeing him. Then she and Shu Jiayi got into the Volkswagen that cost about 100,000 yuan, under the envious and jealous gaze of other men. "Why is it just the two of you? Where's your photographer?" She's not feeling well in her stomach, resting at the hotel. Let's go back to pick her up before dinner. Alright. Chu Mingcheng felt sorry for Zhang Ruomai. If she was suffering from a stomachache, she might miss today's seafood feast. Thanks for just now, that guy was so annoying, he had been pestering us for quite a while. No need to thank me. Attractive people like us get hit on wherever we go. You need to learn how to refuse and get used to it. True, the troubles of people like us are not understood by ordinary folks. You guys are so full of yourselves. Zhu Jiayi couldn't hold back her disdain, and blurted out a taunt. Haha. Chu Mingcheng and Zhang Luoyuo laughed together. By the way, where's Zhang Wei? Realizing a bit too late that someone was missing, Zhang Luoyuo asked. He's at the beach waiting for us. I suppose he should have found some treasure by now. Chu Mingcheng couldn't mention their seafood purchase and the pretense involved, so he chose to fudge the truth for the time being. Soon, they arrived at their destination for that day's seafaring adventure. Once out of the car, Zhang Luoyuo excitedly pulled Zhu Jiayi by the hand and ran towards the rocky area, while Chu Mingcheng followed behind, carrying a bucket filled with various tools for collecting seafood. Zhang Wei had already placed the seafood in different holes, making sure they couldn't crawl out. The only cause for anxiety was the Sri Lanka green crab, the only one capable of escaping from the small hole. However, since he stood by their side, the green crab hiding in the crevice naturally wouldn't come out. Chapter 22. Old 6. Chu Mingcheng handed the tongs to Zhang Luoyuo and Zhu Jiayi, and, along with Zhang Wei, started leading them to search for edible seafood in the rocky reef area. At first, they did not take them to the fake tide pools, so the catch was meager. However, Zhang Luoyuo and Zhu Jiayi seemed very excited, and would scream and shout upon seeing a tiny stone crab, rushing to catch it. Unconsciously, Zhu Jiayi followed behind Zhang Wei, while Zhang Luoyuo stuck close to Chu Mingcheng. Wow, there's a huge oyster here. Zhang Luoyuo truly had sharp eyes, as she managed to discover a very large oyster inside a crevice on the side of the rock. Come on, here's the shovel. Pry it off. Chu Mingcheng immediately handed her the tool. Without any hesitation, she took the shovel and went to work, prying the big oyster off after a few forceful shovels. Picking up the oyster, Zhang Luoyuo seemed overjoyed. Haha, we finally got something today. Seeing her happiness, Chu Mingcheng subtly suggested, I think you should open the oyster to check, as seaside oysters are generally not this big. There might be nothing inside. Empty? Zhang Luoyuo took the bloodletting dagger with some confusion, then attempted to open the oyster. Upon opening the oyster's shell, a large chunk of slightly greenish oyster meat was immediately exposed. The oyster was indeed large and its belly was plump, rivaling those sold in barbecue shops. Haha, there's an oyster inside, and it's so big too. Let me see. Chu Mingcheng leaned in and, while Zhang Luoyuo wasn't paying attention, suddenly grabbed the oyster meat and slurped it into his mouth, not forgetting to make a quick getaway. My oyster, Chu Mingcheng, you thief. Even the best temper would explode at this, and Zhang Luoyuo was no exception, furiously throwing the oyster shell at him, her temper flaring like a little cat's. Ha ha ha. This oyster is a bit too salty from the seawater. Having dodged the bomb attack, Chu Mingcheng stopped to laugh non-stop, undoubtedly finding stolen goods to be the tastiest. Knowing that, you still ate it without worrying about the dirt. Zhang Luoyuo rolled her eyes unamusedly, her tone tinged with a hint of annoyance. Hee hee, come on, let's see what's in the tide pools. Usually, during low tide, some creatures can't make it back in time and get trapped. With your luck in finding such a big oyster, maybe there will be other discoveries today. Is that really true? It's all about luck. Time had mostly passed, and fearing something would happen to the seafood he had purchased, Chu Mingcheng started guiding Zhang Luoyuo towards those tide pools. Wow, such a big scallop. Unexpectedly, Zhang Wei was faster and had already led Zhu Jiayi to the spot with the scallops and sea snails. Where? Zhang Luoyuo was instantly attracted to it. Just passing a few small pools, she suddenly noticed something amiss, looked down to find a bunch of lobsters huddled in a tide pool at her feet, their antennae waving conspicuously. Ah! A soprano suddenly rang out beside him, and Chu Mingcheng complained without words, are you girls like Pokemon or what? Always attacking with a screech? Lobsters, so many lobsters. Zhang Luoyuo couldn't care less about his mockery, as she pointed at the tide pool and excitedly slapped his arm. SSS, they say you hit the jackpot on your first fishing trip, and now you've hit the jackpot on your first sea foraging too. Even though the deception was so blatant, Chu Mingcheng still put on a bit of an act, forcing a surprised look on his face. Quick, use the tongs to pick them up and put them in the bucket, we've got our feast today. Oh. Zhang Luoyuo hastily used the pliers in her hand to grab, but she didn't have enough strength. Every time she clamped down, The lobster would break free, making her so anxious that she threw the pliers aside and reached out to catch it with her hands. Haha, so many lobsters. Yeah, you've caught the whole family in one go. Hee. After capturing all the lobsters and placing them in a bucket, the girl smiled until her eyes disappeared, turning into crescent moons. Zhang Wei saw that she caught the lobsters and seized the opportunity to guide Zhu Jie to catch the Sri Lanka green crab. But green crabs are so fierce, let alone the big ones weighing 3 or 4 pounds, even the ones weighing half a pound are too intimidating for most girls to try catching. Chu Mingcheng only heard the girls scared, wanting to catch yet afraid to do so. In the end, he had to take matters into his own hands, catching the big critter, and then he picked up the scallops and sea snails one by one. It was still early, and with so many catches, Zhang Luoluo and Zhu Jie were full of energy. However, the reality of sea foraging, coupled with their inexperience, meant that by the time the tide came in at 11 o'clock, they hadn't found much else. Let's go, we've been lucky to catch so much this morning. We'll eat something simple for lunch, I'll take you out to sea in the afternoon. Out to sea? You have a boat? Zhang Luoluo asked in surprise. Chu Mingcheng explained, I haven't bought one yet, but we can rent a boat. There's a group of fishermen on this island who make a living fishing. They lower the nets and then rent the boat to others. When the time is right, they'll take those who rented the boat to collect the nets, and whatever is caught, no matter its value, belongs to the person who rented the boat. Zhang Luoluo nodded in understanding, I see. So, is it common to make a profit or a loss when renting a boat? Chu Mingcheng let out a wry smile, of course, the losses are greater. The fishermen aren't that foolish. They won't rent out boats during the first month after the fishing ban is lifted, when catches are plentiful because it's easy to lose money by renting then. They start renting out boats after a month has passed, with different prices for different times. For example, renting in the morning or at noon would cost 2,000 for one trip. In the evening, it would only cost 1,500. Hearing about the frequent losses, Zhang Luoluo frowned and said, then let's not do that, we shouldn't engage in something that's bound to be a loss. Haha, for us, renting a boat is actually a recreational activity. The main point is to experience how fishermen catch fish and the joy of a good haul. Besides, you two are so lucky today, maybe we'll have a big catch this afternoon? Seeing that Zhang Luoluo was about to say something, Zhu Jie pulled her sleeve and whispered into her ear, Luoluo, since he's planned it, let's just go along. If we end up losing a lot, we can help cover some of the costs. Okay. Zhang Luoluo, feeling that made sense, didn't try to persuade further. They went to a noodle shop for lunch and had a bowl of seafood noodles each, then Chu Mingcheng took them back home to drop off their things. On the way, he also fed the small miscellaneous fish he had found specially in a puddle to the tabby cat. Having a cute pet at home surely made the place more attractive to girls. Unfortunately, the tabby cat was highly alert and, except for Chu Mingcheng, didn't let anyone else near, it would hiss and run away. Therefore, Zhang Luoluo and Zhu Jie could only watch it eat fish from a distance, yearning to pet the cat but without the chance. After feeding the cat, they set off again and arrived at the pier. Neither Chu Mingcheng nor Zhang Wei brought fishing rods, as they had no intention to fish. The area around the island was full of fishing nets, leaving virtually no good spots for fishing. This was why most fishing men, as long as they had the time, would go to Dongting Island instead. There, the fishermen partnered up for deep-sea fishing, and the fish resources around the island were still decent. Those who came to Yanmen Island for sea fishing were generally people with not much time and who didn't want to go to too much trouble, with most only able to catch stonefish, or even returning empty-handed. Chapter 23 Yellow Croaker. The pier wasn't too crowded at noon, mostly fishermen preparing to set out to sea and a group of tourists ready to charter a boat. Chu Mingcheng's family had moved to the town so many years ago that he didn't have any fishermen acquaintances among his neighbors and friends. Therefore, without any familiar faces around for the boat charter, he had to ask around one by one. The fishing boats were moored at the shoreline, but the pier here wasn't large, with only a few docked along the edge. The rest of the boats were moored side by side, one could board the first fishing boat and walk across to the others. Chu Mingcheng asked Zhang Luoluo and the others to wait on the pier, while he boarded the fishing boat to look for a suitable boat owner. He chose not to approach the older men, as they were usually quite cunning, with many tricks up their sleeves. If they had a big catch that day, any disagreement over the catch could spoil the mood. Of course, there were honest old men, but he didn't want to take the risk. After passing several boats, he suddenly saw a bald man cleaning a fishing boat and his eyes lit up. Hey, brother Zhao Jun, what a coincidence. The man called Zhao Jun turned his head upon hearing his name and was surprised to see Chu Mingcheng, exclaiming, Ah Cheng, what are you doing here? I brought some friends over to have fun. We're planning to charter a boat and head out this afternoon. I didn't expect to run into you. Weren't you working out of town? What brings you here? Chu Mingchen was also quite surprised to see Zhao Jun after all. Zhao Jun spent most of his time away from home, and since they used to play together as kids and meet for drinks at year's end, they maintained a pretty good relationship. Business is tough out of town, sighed Zhao Jun, not wanting to dwell on the subject, but instead asked, you said you're here to charter a boat with friends? No need to charter, I'll take you out to sea for fun. If we net anything good, you can just take it. That won't do, the charter fee has to be paid to you. And only if we charter the boat will my friends find it fun to play. Business is business. Seeing that Zhao Jun had returned to become a fisherman, Chu Mingchen figured his days must be tough. Naturally, the money had to be paid, and it wasn't like he was short of it. After paying, Chu Mingchen went to get the 3 people from the pier. Seeing Zhang Luoyuo and Zhu Jiayi's attractiveness, Zhao Jun was suddenly enlightened and covertly came over to pull him aside and whispered, you lad, you're doing well, both girls are so pretty. Which one is your girlfriend? Just met 2 days ago. They treated me to a big meal last night, so I had to reciprocate, right? You were treated to a meal? Then it's just a matter of time. Zhao Jun wasn't able to obtain any gossip but wasn't bothered as any issues would become apparent eventually. However, since there were girls involved, he took a sunshade cloth from the storage and said, Ah Ching, help me with this, let's set up this awning to block the sun. Sure thing. Chu Mingchen replied, pulling Zhang Wei along to help. Zhao Jun's boat had a canopy with a small resting space above the engine, so the person steering at the back wouldn't be exposed to the sun. But when hauling in the nets, they would need to go to the front deck, and in the summer the sun was too harsh. Even the seasoned old fishermen couldn't stand it for long and would peel from prolonged exposure, so the local fishermen all had a piece of sunshade cloth. Stretching from the rest cabin to the front tip of the boat, it could cover the entire front deck. After setting up the sunshade, Zhao Jun started the fishing boat and left the pier to head to his fishing spot. Chu Mingchen noted that Zhao Jun's small boat was quite new and knew at a glance that it was freshly purchased. Since he also fancied the idea of going out to fish, he started to inquire about the price of the fishing boat. Brother Zhao Jun, your boat's really new, how much did it cost? This boat was 120,000 on the water, 13 meters long, it's not cheap, said Zhao Jun. The mention of the price made him feel a bit somber. When he went to buy the boat and found out the price, he had quite a shock, never imagining that a small wooden fishing boat could cost so much. Ah, this. Chu Mingchen was momentarily stunned. He had assumed that wooden boats would be cheaper and hadn't expected their price to be not much different from that of 10-meter-plus fishing boats. Since the prices are so high, he might as well take his time and save up to buy a Class 2 fishing boat directly. What, do you also want to buy a boat to fish? Not really, the fish resources are too poor around here. Fishing in the coastal waters isn't very interesting. Sigh, just getting by day, but it's still enough to provide for the family, Zhao Jun sighed. He had turned to fishing when his business outside couldn't go on, because even if fishing wasn't great, it could still make him 100,000 or so a year, albeit with hard work. But when it comes to providing for the family, what's a bit of hard labor? Chu Mingchen, hearing how expensive the boats were, had already begun considering other options. He decided to first exploit the resources on shore as much as possible, then spend some time each day sea fishing, to slightly level up the common fish species of the East Sea, before considering the strategy of renting a boat spot to go out to sea to fish. He didn't need too high level 5 would suffice. Even though the significant effects only start from level 10, a 5% increase in attributes actually has some effect, as long as it doesn't result in a loss. As Zhao Jun's boat stopped, Chu Mingchen's thoughts were also pulled back. Here we are, it's not time yet, let's wait a bit longer. Brother Zhao Jun, how long has your net been in the water? Almost 4 hours now. Why, you want to haul in the net already? Let's do it. I need to prepare a big meal this afternoon, it's going to take quite some time. Alright, you've chartered the boat, so you're the boss. It wasn't much different from the usual timing, so since Chu Mingchen requested it, Zhao Jun naturally had no objections. Pulling up all 6 nets would take a lot of time, and once back to process the catch, it would probably be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so Chu Mingchen didn't plan to wait any longer. Luoyuo, you and Jie stand back a bit, we're going to haul in the net. Do you need any help? No need, just pick out the crabs and big fish from the catch later. Got it. Zhang Luoyuo quickly led Zhu Jie towards the cockpit, leaving enough space on the foredeck. The boat approached the foam buoy of the first net, and Chu Mingchen, with gloves on, lifted the buoy on board and then passed the rope of the fishing net to Zhao Jun as he came over. He took it and tied the rope to the winch, then started it up. As the winch turned, the underwater fishing net was gradually pulled up. After the net was fully hauled in, Zhao Jun went to grab the opening of the net and, pulling hard, placed it on the gunnel. Seeing him struggle, Chu Mingcheng instructed Zhang Wei to don gloves, and the two helped together. The type of net that Zhao Jun used spread out completely in the water. The rope would draw the net together when pulled, concentrating the catch in the tail end as the net was brought aboard. The net rope was thick, and the entire net needed to be hauled on board to pull the catch onto the deck, unlike gill nets. Though it was trouble to pull, it wasn't prone to tangling like gill nets, allowing the catch to be dumped on the deck and the net to be immediately cast back for more fishing. As the net was pulled up, it was entangled with many dead goby fish, most of which were small and wouldn't be cleaned. Leaving them on the net could attract other predatory creatures. Zhang Luoluo and Shu Jiayi stood at the stern, intently watching the fishing net in the water, but as the tail end of the net also emerged, she suddenly exclaimed with surprise, "Yellow, yellow, there's a big yellow croaker." Chapter 24 Mile Level Con. Where is it? Where is it? Damn, there really is a yellow one. No way, are we that lucky? The other three men were all startled, and Chu Mingcheng and Zhang Wei hurriedly moved to the stern to see the catch that was gradually being pulled up. Indeed, there was yellow, but it was just a bit small. When they saw what it was, Chu Mingcheng's face darkened. Is there a possibility that yellow croakers have juniors too? Zhang Wei sighed speechlessly and went back to help pull the net. Zhao Jun was the calmest, knowing that the chances of netting a big yellow croaker here were very slim. Even if they did catch one, it was probably one that had escaped from a yellow croaker farm around Dongding Island, and it wouldn't fetch a high price. Zhang Luoluo noticed the change in their expressions and realized she had made a big blunder. She awkwardly said, "So these were little yellow croakers?" "Yes, but wild little yellow croakers are not bad either. Let's take a few back and fry them for dinner, they're really tasty." Chu Mingcheng checked the catch, not many little yellow croakers, a few big swimming crabs, the rest were poorly valued fish likely only sellable as feed. The first haul was a loss for sure. Soon, the fishing net was completely pulled up. Zhao Jun untied the rope tied at the end and dumped the catch out. The swimming crabs and other small crabs that were still alive suddenly started struggling desperately, and some that lacked vitality were buried under the pile of fish. The fun part of picking fishes started. Chu Mingcheng handed the tongs to the two girls. "You sit here and pick out all the big and valuable fishes. Like this red shrimp, the bigger ones can also be sold. There are quite a few small cuttlefish, they go for 35 a pound, pick those out too, people around here really like them. I'll get you a few plastic boxes, sort everything you pick. Leave it to us." Zhang Luoluo took the tongs and nodded eagerly, interested in the task. Looking at the pile of small fish in front of her, she felt like she was searching for treasures. The two girls sat on the small stools and started selecting the valuable fish, while Zhao Jun lowered the fishing net back into the water and continued sailing to the next net's location. When the net was pulled up, Zhang Luoluo and Shu Jiayi simultaneously stood up and moved closer to continue examining the catch. Although they knew the catch would eventually be dumped on the deck, they just couldn't help feeling excited, hoping the net was full of big fish, allowing them to discover surprises in advance. Unfortunately, the second haul was similar to the first, not a single big fish. Interestingly, it remained the same up to the fifth net as well. Zhang Luoluo looked at the small mountain of fish scraps. There weren't many valuable catches, and she started to feel a bit unhappy. Zhao Jun was pulling up the sixth net, so she secretly pulled Chu Mingcheng to the stern. "Are we taking a big loss here? 5 nets and not a single big fish?" Due to the loud noise of the ship's engine, Zhang Luoluo had to speak very close to him. The scent of a girl and the accidental touches of softness made him a bit distracted. "It's not too bad, we won't lose much. Don't look at the catch being small cuttlefish, red shrimp, swimming crabs, little chengu, and little yellow croakers, but the quantity from 5 nets was also significant. Together with the pile of fish scraps, those could sell for 20 yuan a plastic box, which could cover about 200 yuan overall. Overall, we might lose about 1,000 yuan. Zhang Luoluo was about to propose covering half of the charter fee herself when she suddenly heard Zhang Wei shouting excitedly, "Shit, what a huge fish, come and see, we've netted a big one." "Really?" Chu Mingcheng's attention was instantly drawn, and he hurried over. They saw a mile-level cod struggling within the net, a catch frequently found in the far sea but rarely seen around Yanmen Island in recent years. "Ha ha, Ching, you're quite lucky today, this cod must weigh about 20 pounds, you've made your money back today." Although the fish wasn't his, Zhao Jun was also quite happy. If today's harvest remained this dismal, he would feel somewhat embarrassed about taking the 2,000 yuan from Chu Mingcheng. "Brother Zhao Jun, can this fish cover the cost?" In Chu Mingcheng's recollection, cod wasn't expensive, with market prices around 10 yuan per jin. Even if it weighed 20 jin, and considering it was freshly caught which might raise the price a bit, he guessed it could sell for at most 400 to 500 yuan. Mile level cod can sell for at least 81 yuan per jin. Such a big fish is rare around here. Maybe someone will want it and offer a higher price later. Why is it so expensive? Isn't it only around 10 yuan per jin at the market? Chu Mingchen was astonished. No wonder Zhao Jun said it could cover the cost. This one has fish moi. If the fish moi is good and you process it yourself, perhaps you could earn more. But that's too much trouble. Better to just sell it directly. Right, it has fish moi. How could I forget that? Zhang Luoyuo felt relieved upon hearing that the cod could cover the cost. As the entire fishing net was pulled up, they discovered other good catches in the net. Among them were two 30-centimeter fish, entirely red. Zhao Jun couldn't recognize what kind of fish they were. It was Chu Mingchen who found out from an online search. They were called purple bream, a top-notch red meat sashimi fish from the East Sea. These fish spend their juvenile period near the coast, and swim back to the continental shelf as they grow, normally only found in the far sea. The normal size for this type of fish is around 40 to 50 centimeters. These 30-centimeter ones might have just been heading back to the continental shelf when they were caught by Zhao Jun's fishing net. Chu Mingchen had originally hoped to catch a stonefish, but catching purple bream instead was also not bad. In the end, he and Zhang Wei, Zhang Luoyuo, and the others discussed and took 5 small yellow croakers, 2 purple bream, and 5 very fat swimming crabs, and sold the rest. After the fishing boat returned, the appearance of mile-level cod indeed attracted a crowd of onlookers. The belly of this cod was very plump, and the fish moi was likely to be very good and large. Fishmongers and bosses who came to buy seafood immediately started bidding, and in the end, it was bought by a boss from Wen City. The fish weighed 18.7 jin and sold for 2,300 yuan, averaging over 120 yuan per jin. Besides what they kept for themselves, the other catches also sold for over 700 yuan, and they even made a profit of 1,000 yuan from the boat rental today, which Chu Mingchen had not expected. The only regret was that these net catches wouldn't count towards the experience points in the seafood atlas. Brother Zhao Jun, how about coming over for a drink tonight? No, I have things to do tonight, maybe next time. Zhao Jun didn't intend to join in on the fun, but if it were just Chu Mingchen and him, he would definitely go. Alright, then next time. We'll be going then. Chu Mingchen wasn't insistent, and after saying goodbye, he carried his stuff and left. By now, it was past 3 in the afternoon, and he dropped Zhang Luoyuo and the others off at their homes. He was supposed to pick up Zhang Ruomai as well, but she had her period. To avoid seeing a seafood feast she couldn't enjoy, she had called Zhang Luoyuo early to tell her she wouldn't come to the dinner and for them not to bother picking her up, so they began to prepare the dinner. The Sri Lanka green crab was simply steamed to preserve its original flavor, enhancing its freshness and sweetness. Since Chu Mingchen's family home didn't have an oven but did have a grill, Zhang Wei took the lobsters and scallops out to grill them. The 2 purple bream were made into sashimi, and their heads and innards were all given to a tabby cat. Being seafood, the preparation was convenient and simple. Around 5 o'clock, all the seafood was already set on the table. Chapter 25 New Goals MMM. This purple bream sashimi is much tastier than the sea bream sashimi we had at the Japanese restaurant yesterday. Zhang Wei commented after taking a bite of the fresh purple bream flesh. Of course, the purple bream costs over 100 yuan per half kilogram, whereas what we ate yesterday was probably black sea bream, only costing tens of yuan per half kilogram, no comparison. Chu Mingcheng said with a laugh. These 2 ingredients weren't on the same level, and the purple bream was also a specialized sashimi fish, so its taste was naturally much different. As for Zhang Luoyuo and Zhu Jiayi, they were each holding a green crab claw bigger than their own hands, their mouths full of crab meat with no room to talk. This brought a knowing smile to Chu Mingchen, the host's face. Both girls had the looks of online beauties even post-beautification, yet they lacked the various issues common among such online personas, which made them quite comfortable to be around. Only, not going fishing last night and not digging for sea earthworms today had left him feeling somewhat restless. Fortunately, both of them would be leaving tomorrow, and thereafter, nothing would hinder him from grinding. After eating for a while, Zhang Luoyuo, who was stealthily observing Chu Mingcheng sipping his soup, pondered for a moment before asking tentatively, "Hey, Mingcheng, have you ever thought about recording your fishing and sea foraging experiences, editing them into videos, and posting them online?" "You mean doing social media?" Chu Mingcheng's expression paused as he glanced at Zhang Luoyuo, who kept staring at him. It seemed like he understood somewhat. This girl wanted him to be more ambitious. But, with the golden finger that ensured success as long as he kept grinding away, how could he not be ambitious? He might even become the king of competition in the fishing world someday. Nevertheless, realistically speaking, being a social media content creator could at least be considered a career, which sounded respectable when spoken of. Sea foraging and fishing, on the other hand, could give off the impression of being unreliable, and he doubted any parents would agree to let their daughter marry such a man, unless he was hitting them with money. Yeah, doing social media is actually quite good. You could make videos on foraging and even on going far out to sea to fish. There are quite a lot of people who like watching this kind of stuff. This way, you'll also have a stable income in the future, which I personally think would be better than what you're doing now. Zhang Luoyuo blurted out a lot, and the suggestion she made was pretty good too. Regarding what she had in mind, Zhu Jie, as her best friend, could guess some of it. Being single all these years, it was rare to meet someone she was attracted to. Naturally, she wanted more interaction. It was just that concern over professions could give one pause, deterring one from going further. What you said makes sense. Making videos could indeed offer the chance of becoming a stable career. It's just that I'm also new to foraging and fishing, not familiar enough with them. I might consider making some videos after I become familiar with these things in the future. It's like your dance videos, it's because you're professional enough that you can perform dances that everyone likes, right? Chu Mingcheng also thought making videos was a pretty good idea. Once he had a boat and went offshore to catch big fish, recording it would not only document his sea fishing experiences but also help him make some money on the side. Importantly, releasing videos wasn't like live streaming, which required constant interaction with viewers. He just needed to post once a week or even less frequently, and if he didn't want to interact with viewers, there was no need to bother at all, so there weren't many constraints. Seeing that Chu Mingcheng was receptive to her suggestion, Zhang Luoyuo felt delighted. Right, your way of thinking is correct. Remember to let me know when you start posting videos, I want to be the first to watch. They chatted and laughed, and the meal wasn't over until after 7 in the evening. The two girls even helped clean up together and wash the dishes, showing themselves to be quite capable. After sending them back to the hotel, Chu Mingcheng went home and began researching rock fishing rods and the technique of rock fishing online. As he browsed, his eyes suddenly lit up. He had a new goal. The next morning at 8 o'clock, Zhang Luoyuo sent a message to bid farewell to Chu Mingcheng. They were setting off for their next stop, Jia City, to continue filming their video and to enjoy a roasted whole lamb along the way. Chu Mingcheng briefly chatted with her before taking Zhang Wei to the fishing gear shop, where he bought a number 3 surf rod, along with matching fishing line and sinkers, among other things. With the number 3 surf rod suitable for catching small to medium-sized fish, he didn't go for anything expensive and spent a total of only 600 yuan. Zhang Wei, seeing this, felt the urge to try his own hand and picked out a surf rod as well, albeit a cheaper one. Ah Ching, are you going to start sea fishing now? As they left the fishing gear shop and got into the car, Zhang Wei took the opportunity to ask. Yeah, I want to get some practice first. You know there's a water channel where they dig for sea earthworms, right? We can't dig for sea earthworms when the tide hasn't gone out, so might as well go fishing instead. After saying that, Chu Mingcheng drove first to the local market where he bought a pound of shrimp, which he kept on ice, and after wandering around the market, he finally spotted his target fish and stepped forward to ask. Boss, how do you sell these crab tigers? Why is one kind a lighter color, while the other is so dark? The boss replied, the lighter ones are wild, 200 yuan a pound. The ones with black spots are farmed, 80 yuan a pound. Chu Mingcheng said, farmed ones are 80 yuan? That's so expensive, forget it, I can't afford it. The boss. Having understood the prices, Chu Mingcheng, and Zhang Wei, who was trying not to laugh, left the market. Ah Ching, so you bought a surf rod to fish for crab tigers. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I have a way that you wouldn't need a surf rod at all to catch crab tigers. With chopsticks. Damn, how did you know? The videos all say it's an exclusive secret recipe, why wouldn't I know about it? But the place where we dig for sea earthworms isn't suited for that method. Surf rods and hand lines are actually better for fishing there. Fishing for crab tigers wasn't really difficult, they love to eat shrimp the most. From October onwards, the 2 hours just before sunset were their peak feeding times, when they were most aggressive with the bait. However, conditions like the tide and wind direction could also affect the fish's behavior, but such complexities were too much for a novice like Chu Mingcheng to grasp. So he'd just fish the way he knew how, and with more experience, he would slowly learn. The duo arrived at Eastview Beach during low tide, Chu Mingcheng with bucket in hand and a short-handled hoe to start digging. The level of his sea earthworm digging had reached 14, so the chances of finding large ones had increased significantly. As they had eaten enough in the morning, Chu Mingcheng dug energetically until 2 in the afternoon, when the rising tide had submerged the mudflats. Other earthworm diggers had no choice but to move to areas not yet covered by the sea. Earthworms could still be found in these spots, but they were much fewer in number. Having dug up over 5 pounds and reaching level 17, Chu Mingcheng decided not to continue. Zhang Wei was someone who couldn't sit still, and he didn't enjoy the hard work of digging for sea earthworms, so he had gone off to fish earlier. He used a lure rod, and as expected, came back empty-handed. Chu Mingchen carried the bucket back, planning to grab something to eat first. However, Zhang Wei had just returned in his car, bringing him a serving of fried rice. After eating, the two took out their surf rods, along with the shrimp they bought that morning, and returned to the mudflats, ready to fish for crab tigers. Chapter 26. Finally caught one. He removed the shrimp head, hung the tail on the hook, and was careful about the placement of the hook. It was best to drop it by the water's edge, preferably near some rocks where it could hide. Chu Mingchen and Zhang Wei were about 10 meters apart, not interfering with each other. The crab tiger fish was currently at level 0, and it wasn't their peak feeding time. In the beginning, no fish bit Chu Mingchen's bait for 5 or 6 minutes after he cast it. But this was normal, and having fished for several days, he was not at all impatient. Suddenly, there was a pulling force on the fishing rod. He had a bite. However, the feel was a bit odd. The crab tiger fish was similar to the ground tiger, not only in appearance, but their manner of eating bait should be similar too. They both swallowed it in one gulp, eating deep into the hook, so there was no need to worry about them coming off the hook. But the feeling from the rod now did not feel like the fish was struggling hard. Instead, it felt like something was playing tug of war with him, almost as if it was snagged on the bottom. Could the hook have gotten caught in a crevice? The water was flowing, so it wasn't strange for the hook to be pushed into a crevice. Chu Mingchen pulled lightly and found that he could move it, but the more he pulled, the tighter it felt. He tried loosening it a bit, then pulled again, and it moved again. Not expecting this to work, Chu Mingchen began to loosen and pull alternately, slowly reeling in the line. Soon, the hook emerged from the water, along with a snake head. Chu Mingchen was so frightened that he almost threw his rod, but upon closer inspection, he was overjoyed to find it was a sea eel. The sea eel did not struggle much, and once it was fully pulled out of its hole, it was like a lamb to the slaughter, easily pulled to the shore. Its yellow patterned body was coiled around the fishing line just like a snake. Zhang Wei had noticed Chu Mingchen's catch and turned to look, immediately exclaiming, "Holy shit," as goosebumps broke out all over him. He then showed a look of envy. After all, it was a sea eel, wild, and not cheap in the market. Moreover, this one did not look small, probably about half a meter long. However, Chu Mingchen looked at the fierce sea eel with a distressed expression. The creature was so vicious, he did not seem to have an easy time removing the hook. Moreover, he did not have anti-slip gloves. He had intended to grab the sea eel, but unfortunately, its body was too slippery to hold. Having no choice, he could only cut the leader line with scissors, then replace it with a new one and equip a new hook. The hook in the stomach of the sea eel would have to remain there for now. If it came to it, it could be discarded. Fortunately, all these were consumables, and Chu Mingchen had prepared plenty. The experience points in the seafood guide reached 10 points, still 40 points away from ascending to level 1. It seemed that in addition to making sure he earned money, he would also have to explore some new species. After rebaiting with shrimp, Chu Mingchen changed locations. Since there had been a sea eel in the previous spot, no crab tiger fish, regardless of how fierce, was likely to be there. This time, he also got a bite within 5 or 6 minutes, but the feel from the rod indicated it still was not a crab tiger fish. Instead, it felt similar to before, like it was snagged on the bottom. Chu Mingchen had a strange expression. Could today be the day he stumbled into a nest of sea eels? Using the same method, he soon pulled the hooked creature out of the water, and it was a large green crab. When lifted out of the water, one of its large pincers firmly clamped onto the shrimp bait and would not let go. Seeing this, Chu Mingchen quickly flung it onto the shore, fearing it would release its grip. Sure enough, it let go of the pincer while still in midair, but by then it was too late. With the force Chu Mingchen threw, it didn't fall back into the water but was instead thrown to the shore. The green crab, flung with its 8 legs towards the sky, struggled a few times and promptly used its pincers to flip itself over. Sensing someone approaching, it raised its pincers in a threatening manner. Its legs slowly crawled towards the edge of the bucket, seemingly feeling safer this way. Chu Mingchen scooped up some mud and slapped it onto the green crab, immobilizing it, and then grabbed it. Checking the green crab's underside, he found it was a female and its belly was full, indicating it was very plump. Chu Mingchen was very pleased, as it seemed his luck was quite good today. Although he hadn't caught a crab tiger fish, both the sea eel and the green crab were great finds. He plucked some seaweed from the shore and put it in the bucket before tossing the green crab in. This was to prevent the green crab from wildly biting and damaging the other fish in the bucket. As for the shrimp bait and fish hook held by the green crab, they were no longer usable. The shrimp bait had mostly come off when he threw the green crab, and the fish hook was deformed from the crimp, so it was time to change it. Unbeknownst to him, Half an hour had passed. Zhang Wei saw a fish take the bait, laughed aloud, and lifted the rod. A dark brown small fish struggled as it was pulled out of the water, his 5th crab tiger fish caught today. Moreover, his luck wasn't bad. Out of the 5, 3 were about 3 taels each, and the remaining 2 were about 2 taels, all good enough to sell. He was just about to show off to Chu Mingcheng when he realized that the latter had unknowingly moved about 50 meters away, currently dealing with a sea eel tangled around his fishing line. Really off the charts, how can there be so many sea eels here? Chu Mingcheng found it unbelievable himself. He had came to fish for crab tiger fish, yet in this period, after changing spots 5 times, he had caught 3 sea eels and 2 sea bass weighing between 8 taels to a pound. He reviewed the marine life guide in his mind over and over, yet found no special buff. The sea eel's level was still 0, so how did he end up dealing with them so frequently? Not quite understanding, Chu Mingcheng just continued to fish, cut the leader line with scissors, and threw the sea eel into the bucket. Luckily, he had plenty of fish hooks. He had bought a box with 50 of each type and had brought them along in his car, otherwise, he would have run out due to these circumstances. This time, Chu Mingcheng found a spot with lots of aquatic plants and threw the bait right into a gap in the weeds. Now, he didn't really care about the crab tiger, anything that bit was fair game. But sometimes it's just like that, when you want it, it doesn't come, and when you don't want it, it just happens to show up. After waiting 2 or 3 minutes, he felt some slight movement from the rod, as if something was nibbling his bait. Shortly after, the movement stopped. Lifting the rod, he saw that the shrimp bait was gone. It seemed the critter below was quite clever. Chu Mingcheng became quite intrigued. The cat at home had stolen his fish and was now his, and this fish that ate his bait also wanted to escape? He replaced the shrimp bait and continued casting the hook into the gap of the aquatic plants. Having tasted the sweetness just now, barely 10 seconds after he cast the bait, the tip of the rod moved again. Perhaps the creature below had let its guard down. This time it swallowed the bait hook, line, and sinker. As it swallowed the shrimp bait, the hook firmly embedded in its mouth. The rod tip vibrated non-stop, and Chu Mingcheng chuckled, lifted the rod sharply, and a dark brown crab tiger fish was pulled out, struggling and flapping its tail in the air. He grabbed the crab tiger fish, removing the fish hook along with the swallowed shrimp bait. Thinking about having my second bait, wishful thinking. Chapter 27, Adding a new family member. This crab tiger fish was not small, it probably weighed about 4 taels, and the biggest crab tiger fish weighed just over half a catty, while wild ones are generally between 2 to 3 taels or even smaller. However, crab tiger fish generally like to gather together, so as long as this patch of seaweed has crab tiger fish, they just needed to continue fishing here. The sun gradually set in the west, and the sea breeze was a bit stronger than in the afternoon. Time unknowingly came to the most active period for crab tiger fish. Plus, this area hadn't been disturbed by other fishermen. Chu Mingcheng and Zhang Wei thoroughly enjoyed their fishing. Even without the Golden Finger's enhanced catch rate, during the peak period he still caught more than 20 crab tiger fish weighing over 2 taels each, and that was after releasing many smaller ones. So Chu Mingcheng looked at the changes in his Marine Field Guide. Marine Field Guide, Level 0, Current Experience, 13 out of 50, Unlock Capture Tools, Hand, Fishing Gear. Maximum level for Marine Produce, 50 inches. Unlocked Marine Produce, Mud Shrimp, Crucian Carp, Whitebait, Carp. Special abilities, none today. They caught sea eels, green crabs, sea bass, and crab tiger fish, adding 4 experience points, bringing the total to 13. Black Bond Perch, also known as crab tiger fish, Level 2, Current Experience, 13 out of 30 inches. Size plus 2%, taste plus 2%, catch rate plus 2%. Chu Mingcheng counted the crab tiger fish in the bucket, totaling 22, but he had actually caught 43. This wasn't strange, wild crab tiger fish aren't that big, and these weren't farmed. Aching, it's gotten dark, let's go. At this moment, tired from fishing, Zhang Wei also came over cheerfully carrying the bucket. His haul for the day was also pretty good. There were quite a few crab tiger fish in the bucket as well, probably about 20, weighing about 4 to 5 catties in total. Sure, let's go have dinner first. It was now past 7 in the evening, and Chu Mingcheng was already quite hungry. As for the crab tiger fish, they could only be stored overnight. Whether it was the sea eels, green crabs, or crab tiger fish, as long as they were kept moist, leaving them overnight was not an issue at all. The 2 sea bases were a bit listless, but they hadn't died, and they would be fine once they put them back in the fish container in the car and supplied them with oxygen. Today's catch was good. Both of them had around 4 to 5 catties of crab tiger fish each, which could probably sell for over 800 yuan. So Zhang Wei grandly offered to treat them to barbecue. Considering that the scent of barbecue would stick to them, they decided to eat first without showering. While waiting, Zhang Luoluo playfully sent him a photo of herself with a whole roasted lamb, with Uchiha also in the picture giving a thumbs up. Chu Mingcheng looked at the radiant her and unconsciously smiled. Where did you run off to eat roasted lamb? Of course, it's at Ridge House, near Jia City. This place is famous for its roasted lamb, right? That's right. Did you go see fishing again today? Yeah. After replying, Chu Mingcheng thought for a moment, then went to the car to take a picture of the crab tiger fish and sent it over. As he expected, Zhang Luoluo indeed asked. What fish is this? It looks like flying fish but much bigger. This is called black pond perch, also known as crab tiger fish, very expensive, costing 200 per half a kilogram. That's why Zhang Wei was willing to treat me to barbecue today, mainly because he made a fortune, Ah Cheng explained. The selling price of 200 per half a kilogram for such an unattractive-looking fish absolutely astonished Zhang Luoluo. Later, she heard that Chu Mingcheng had caught 4 to 5 kilograms of it, along with sea eels and the like, and she finally understood why he preferred fishing over going to work. It made money much faster. Chu Mingcheng chatted with her for a while but focused on the food as soon as the skewers arrived. Because he had to drive, he didn't drink beer, which made the barbecue a bit less flavorful. After a satisfying meal, when they returned home, Zhang Wei had to say goodbye. Ah Cheng, could you help me sell this fish tomorrow? Just transfer the money to me afterward. The vacation days are almost over, and I need to stay at home for a few days. Sure, let's go fishing together again when you're free. Haha, definitely. Afterward, Zhang Wei drove away in his Wuling Mini. The departure of his friend left Chu Mingcheng feeling a bit hollow inside. Fortunately, he still had a tabby cat to keep him company. Realizing he hadn't fed it today, he picked up a flashlight and went to the front yard to check on things. First, he checked on the cat, which was curled up in its nest. It looked alert and kept staring outside, but relaxed and meowed softly when it saw him. Chu Mingcheng checked around the well, saw no remnants of mice, and wondered if it had eaten at all. He then returned to the house, took all 6 two-tail crab tiger fish from his bucket, and went back outside. When he threw the fish to the tabby cat, it skillfully bit into the fish head right away. Now familiar with Chu Mingcheng, it no longer hid to eat but started gnawing at the fish right by his feet. The small two-tail fish was quickly devoured, and the cat, looking unfulfilled, raised its head and meowed softly, the sound sweet and coaxing, as if pleading for more fish. Chu Mingcheng continued throwing fish to it, but this time he squatted down and tried to pet it while it was eating. Just as he touched its back, the tabby cat instinctively shrank, looked up at Chu Mingcheng, and relaxed once it saw it was him touching her, the alertness in its eyes disappearing. Seeing this, Chu Mingcheng, happily, threw all the fish to it. The tabby cat, overwhelmed by the quantity, killed each fish before slowly starting to eat, making purring sounds. The fur of this tabby cat was very smooth and looked clean. Chu Mingcheng enjoyed petting it so much that he found it hard to stop. Once they had built a bit more of a relationship, he planned to take it to the vet for a checkup, deworming, and vaccinations. After the tabby cat finished the fish, Chu Mingcheng picked it up and noticed it was a female. Since it was a female, he decided to name it Mimi. Mimi was a common name. When Chu Mingcheng was a child, his grandmother had a tabby cat similar to this one named Mimi. Unfortunately, it was later killed by a group of teenagers with stones. His grandfather was suffering from intestinal cancer at the time and was told by doctors he could live a few more years with rest. But the incident agitated him so much that his condition worsened dramatically, and he only lasted another 3 months. After that, his grandmother, who had always loved keeping small animals, never kept any again. When Chu Mingcheng wanted to keep cats and dogs as a child, his mother rejected the idea outright. Now, by naming this tabby cat Mimi, he was somehow commemorating that gentle big cat from his past. He stroked the obedient Mimi sitting by his feet, then took out his phone to search online for a cat bed. After all, it was part of the family and shouldn't have to sleep in an outdoor cardboard box every day. Once they went to the vet, he would give it a bath and let it live inside the house. Now it was October, and by November the temperature would drop, it would be too cold outside. Chapter 28, Entering the high-income group. Another day had passed, and National Day was just a few days away. Today, Chu Mingcheng was going to sell fish first. He moved all of yesterday's catch onto his truck and then headed to the dock. Fishermen had to lift their nets early in the morning, so fishmongers would be at the docks early waiting, followed by gourmets who came on purpose. You have to trust the gourmets of Wen City, they would definitely make a special trip early in the morning to buy fish. From his last experience selling spicy snails, Chu Mingcheng thought that if he wanted to quickly sell his catch at a high price, he still needed to find elegantly dressed gourmets. Fishmongers, who dealt with their catches all day long, couldn't possibly come in nice clothes. So he carried 2 buckets down without making a fuss, but first observed the people on the dock. There were 6 clean-dressed middle-aged men and 2 middle-aged women in skirts and sunglasses. Chu Mingcheng, carrying the buckets, walked towards the middle-aged man closest to him, and directly ignored the 2 women. It wasn't out of disrespect, but because women naturally love to bargain, and he preferred to sell to straightforward men. Of course, that didn't exclude the chance of encountering men who were also nitpicky. "Boss, do you want wild crab tiger, green crab, sea eel, and sea bass?" The middle-aged man, who was already curious about what was inside Chu Mingcheng's buckets, immediately became interested upon hearing about the crab tiger and sea eel. "Brother, did you catch these yourself?" "Yes, I fished all night and brought them over to see if anyone wanted them." Chu Mingcheng intentionally came down with his fishing gear to make everything sell well. This gave people the illusion that the catches in his bucket were all fished up, purely wild. Nowadays, with better living conditions, people have become more particular about their food. They would definitely opt for wild over farmed. People come to the dock for fish just for that taste, right? However, these gourmets were not easy to fool. If he tried to pass off farmed as wild, getting scolded on the spot would be considered mild. Chu Mingcheng set down the buckets and let the middle-aged man take a look for himself. Since they were genuinely wild, he naturally didn't need to worry about anything. After looking, the middle-aged man decided to take everything. This scene immediately caught the attention of others. Those 2 women came over and upon seeing the goods, immediately said, "Ah King, there are so many crab tigers here, share some with us." Chu Mingcheng was astonished by this and didn't expect that the 2 women knew the middle-aged man. The man called Ah King immediately refused. I barely have enough for myself, it'll be gone in one sitting with friends over drinks. Maybe next time, I'll let you have some if there's anything good." The 2 women wouldn't give up and insisted on buying some, making it impossible for Chu Mingcheng to do business for a while. Feeling helpless, he finally said, "I still have 4 or 5 pounds of sea earthworms on my truck. If you want them, I'll go get them for you." The 2 women's eyes lit up. "You have sea earthworms?" "Yes, I dug them up yesterday. I was going to sell them somewhere else, but if you want them, I'll sell to you first." "Definitely, we want them." The middle-aged man wanted some too, and this time, it was his turn to let the women share. How exactly the 3 of them divided everything, Chu Mingcheng didn't know. After all, he sold all of yesterday's seafood, and at market price too. And the gourmets at the dock all added his contact information, asking him to notify them whenever he had good stuff in the future. Chu Mingcheng simply created a group and added the 3 people who bought seafood from him today. As for the other few, let's just leave them for now, since he had not dealt with them before and didn't know how decisive they were in purchasing. Indecisive buyers were not the kind he felt like entertaining. Back in the car, Chu Mingcheng calculated yesterday's earnings. 3 sea eels, totaling 4.3 pounds, priced at 100 per pound, sold for 430. 2 sea bass, both not very large, just over 2 pounds, rounded down to 2 pounds, sold for 80. 1 green crab, sold for 90. A total of 5.6 pounds of sea earthworms. Chu Mingcheng hadn't expected there to be so much, given he had spent 3 hours less digging than before, yet the amount he dug up was about the same as previous times. The original price for the noodle shop owner was 55 per pound, but he managed to sell it here for 60 per pound, making a total of 336 yuan. Lastly, the crab tiger fish, he had fed over a pound to his cat Zhao Mi, leaving 16 fish weighing 5.2 pounds. This thing was expensive, at 200 per pound, sold for 1,040. Zhang Wei had a little more than him, selling for 1,280 yuan. After transferring this money to him, Chu Mingcheng's own earnings for yesterday totaled 1976. Since it was a mobile transfer, there were no discrepancies with small change, which indeed felt good when selling to these wealthy folks. He believed these people didn't bargain, also wanting him to consider them first when he had good items to sell. Besides, his pricing was fair, unlike at the docks where they knew people liked fresh tastes and overcharged accordingly. During this period, he had spent nearly 5,000 on fishing rods. Although he made money chartering the boat yesterday, he actually ended up spending an extra 1,000. In the past few days, he earned 9,000 fishing for alligator gar, plus 2,000 today, and including the sporadic fish sales before, nearly 2,000. As a result, his current savings had reached 30,000, and this didn't even include the 7,000 salary due on the 10th. 28 years old with a savings of 37,000, his life seemed somewhat unsuccessful. Chu Mingcheng immediately drove to buy shrimp bait, then continued to Dong'ayu. Fishing crab tiger was so profitable, although sea earthworms didn't earn much, they at least provided steady income. Better to exploit this area completely before moving on. Time passed quickly, and it was almost October 8 when he had to go back to work. During the remaining days of the national holidays, Chu Mingcheng spent all day at Dongyu digging sea earthworms and fishing for crab tiger. Yet that wasn't enough. At night, he would head to the reservoir to continue fishing, causing his daily income to be at least 2,000, and on better days even reaching 3,000. Not including the salary, his savings had just surpassed 40,000, still far from buying a boat, but at least it was increasing constantly. However, Chu Mingcheng didn't plan to come here anymore starting tomorrow. The main reason was that though the crab tiger was increasing in grade, the size of the fish caught was getting smaller, with fewer large ones left. The grade of the crab tiger fish had now risen to level 9. Unfortunately, golden finger isn't useful in a place devoid of fish. Crucian carp had also reached level 12, but he did not plan to continue fishing at the reservoir either. Maybe he could reconsider if he felt like it in the future. The sea earthworm had the highest grade, reaching level 28, the highest among all his aquatic products. The effect of digging sea earthworms was indeed much more noticeable than at the beginning. Every day he only needed to dig for 4 to 5 hours to get around 5 to 6 pounds, sometimes even reaching up to 10 pounds with good luck. Today his parents returned from Dongding Island. Chu Mingcheng didn't continue fishing in the evening, but brought home 2 large green crabs that he was lucky to catch, as well as half a pound of sea earthworms. He first fed Xiaomi the crucian carp he caught yesterday, then locked the door and drove back to his place in town. The moment he entered, Anzai-Uan immediately noticed her son, but as soon as she saw him clearly, her original smile was replaced by astonishment. "Son, where have you been this past week? Why have you gotten so much darker?" "Darker a lot?" Chu Mingcheng looked at himself and realized he had only gotten slightly darker, a healthier shade actually, and somewhat speechlessly replied, "I've just been going to the sea for fishing." "It's not as exaggerated as you say." Chapter 29, Eternal Support Going to the Sea to Fish? Not only was Anzai-Uan surprised, but Chu Yongxin in the kitchen making dinner was also shocked. "Yes, look, these are what I caught." Chu Mingcheng lifted the green crab and sea earthworm in his hand. "Dad, I'll leave these to you." "Oh wow, these 2 green crabs look impressive just by their appearance, and sea earthworms too? Did you go digging for these things? It seems you had a nice time this National Day." Chu Yongxin took the green crabs and sea earthworms, joking continuously. Anzai-Uan also smiled and said, "Going to the sea and fishing is better than staying at home every day. You really should go out more, it looks like it's made you much healthier." Chu Mingcheng pulled a face. Parents were always like this. As a child, when he was naughty and liked to go out to play, they couldn't wait for him to stay quietly at home. When he grew up and became a homebody, they couldn't wait for him to go out every day, just so he wouldn't be underfoot at home. After a while, dinner was ready, and the family sat down at the dining table to eat. Chu Yongxin had been a chef before, so naturally, his cooking skills needed no explanation. Every dish was full of color and aroma. Chu Mingcheng's culinary skills were all learned from his father, though his mind wasn't really in it, and he probably only grasped about 30% of it. Even so, his cooking skills were sufficient for making everyday meals. Having not tasted his dad's cooking for a long time, Chu Mingcheng thoroughly enjoyed his meal, and only after he was about 60% full did he slow down. Seeing this, Anzai-Uan put down her chopsticks, took out her phone, and showed him a photo of a girl. "Ah Ching, your grandma has introduced a girl to you, take a look." Chu Mingcheng glanced curiously but soon lost interest. "Mom, I'm only 28. I haven't had enough fun yet, I don't want to drag an honest person into this." Anzai-Uan couldn't help but laugh and cry. "It's because she's a gentle and obedient girl, and good with housework, that your grandma specially asked me to show you. The young lady is also quite pretty, she looks really good when dressed up." "Yes, choosing a wife for her virtues. Why don't you chat with her and meet her?" Chu Yongxin, who had been eager for a grandchild for a while, urged along with his wife. Chu Mingcheng sighed. As someone focused on appearances, he was truly sorry. It seemed he needed to divert their attention. "Dad, Mom, let me tell you something. I quit my job." Chu Yongxin and Anzai-Uan were both stunned. "Why did you quit just like that? What are your plans next?" "A company where overtime doesn't pay, there's no point in continuing. I plan to go to the sea to fish and then make videos for social media." As expected, Anzai-Uan opposed this. "No way, going to the sea to fish is just too unreliable. It's okay that you quit, you can always just find another job." Chu Mingcheng knew she would oppose, thus he chuckled and dropped a little bombshell. "Mom, this National Day week, I earned about 17,000, not counting the 6 or 7,000 spent on fishing gear and living expenses." "How much?" Anzai-Uan's voice suddenly rose. Chu Yongxin also dug in his ears, suspecting he heard wrong. "I made in these 7 days what I earned in the previous 3 months by going to the sea and fishing." Chu Yongxin and Anzai-Uan were at a loss for words. As for whether this was a bluff, they naturally trusted their son. What did you do these days to make so much? Chu Yongxin knew much more about going to the sea than Anzaiuan. Making 20,000 in 7 days just didn't seem right. If making money from the sea was so lucrative, why would anyone work in a factory screwing bolts? Actually, a while back, La City had several parks offering rewards for catching alligator gar, an invasive species. Catch 1, get 1,000, and I caught 9. Then during this period, I've been digging sea earthworms in Donghayu during the day and catching crab tiger fish by the side, and at night going to the reservoir up Yanmen Island to fish for crucian carp. I could make at least 1,500 a day. Chu Yongxin suddenly realized there had been a bounty. Even so, his son was making a good amount of money. Digging sea earthworms is hard work, can you handle it? Digging sea earthworms was naturally tiring, but it coincided with his toughest time when he had just experienced a transformation of life, which helped him adapt successfully. It's okay, I got used to it. That's secondary, though. Soon I'll start a social media channel, post videos online, and the income will stabilize, so you don't have to worry. Anyway, it's only a few months until the end of the year, why don't you let me try this, and if it doesn't work, I'll get a job next year. With his son putting it that way and also really making some money, although Chu Yongxin and Anzaiuan still felt it was unreliable, it was just a few months, so letting their son give it a try seemed fine. Son, if you're not happy with your job, it's okay to quit. Don't worry, your dad has everything prepared for your future wife, house purchase, and a dowry. Go ahead and do what you want to do. Anzaiuan also nodded repeatedly. Yeah, a job that pays 7,000 a month but requires daily overtime isn't worth the trouble. Don't even mention sea fishing, even if you were to pull a rickshaw, I wouldn't mind as long as you find a daughter-in-law for me. Chu Mingchen was touched yet found it amusing. What would he do driving a rickshaw? With a car already, shouldn't he consider driving for ride-share services? But having convinced his parents, Chu Mingchen felt completely relieved. After spending a night at home, the next day, he drove back to Yanmen Island, picked up little Mimi, and headed to the pet hospital in La City for a checkup. After the deworming and vaccines were done, the morning just flew by. Luckily, little Mimi was very healthy. According to the vet, the cat was very well taken care of, prompting a visit to the pet store to buy some canned food and catnip. Little Mimi, who had been quietly lying on the back seat, then saw Chu Mingchen get a mischievous idea and tossed her a catnip, and by the time they got home, she was as limp as a noodle, her little tongue sticking out of her mouth. After lunch, he even managed to take a rare nap, not waking up until 3 in the afternoon. By then, little Mimi had returned to normal, lazily lying in the yard basking in the sun, which Chu Mingchen ignored as he drove to the fishing gear store. The shop owner was very enthusiastic to see him. But hearing that he wanted to buy 2 sea rods, including one for catching big fish of good quality, puzzled the store owner. He had a store on the island, so naturally, all the fishing rods he sold were of mid to low quality. There were sources for high-quality rods, but with no demand, he didn't bother to stock them. Chu Mingchen was buying 2 sea rods to prepare for sea fishing, planning to spend 15,000 on them. Especially for the big fish rod, he budgeted 10,000. But the fishing gear store owner didn't have such good quality rods, so out of options, he had to look elsewhere, only to be persuaded by the store owner. "Ah Ching, I can order the sea rod you want, but it'll take a few days. Don't worry about the price though, it definitely won't be expensive. The prices for fishing rods are all transparent now, a quick check and you'll know. But if you're going to sea fish, I think you should start by buying a 7.2 meter hand rod from here for practicing on big freshwater fish like green crab, grass carp, and lianyong. Get used to it beforehand, so you won't be caught off guard when facing big fish in the sea. Catching big fish takes a lot of effort." Chu Mingchen looked at the fishing gear store owner, suspecting he wanted to sell an extra rod, but had no proof. However, his charter for sea fishing wasn't finalized yet, so waiting a few days was no big deal, and buying a hand rod for some initial practice on green crab would do. Thus, under the owner's influential sales pitch, he spent 1,500 on a 7.2 meter hand rod. This time, the owner was generous, throwing in the fishing line and hooks for free. Not only that, but also a support stand, a large landing net, bait, and nesting material were all provided for free. The price he paid was an extra 5,000 yuan as a deposit for ordering the 2 sea rods. Chapter 30, Targeting Large Fish. Chu Mingchen never thought he would one day be so willing to spend money on equipment, but now that he had the new gear, he just wanted to find a place to go fishing as soon as possible. As for the fishing spot, the mountain reservoir was definitely stocked with plenty of fish, but having fished there daily for a while, he had grown somewhat tired of it, so he decided to change locations. In the vicinity of La City, suitable fishing spots were actually quite limited. Most of the rivers were very dirty and, despite some efforts to clean them up in recent years, they hadn't improved much. Since he sold the fish he caught, he was embarrassed to sell fish from these rivers, it just didn't sit right with him. Therefore, his target was the small rivers of province, where there were many rivers flowing near the city, including King River to the north and Du River to the south. Chu Mingcheng checked his phone's map and found that King River was over 30 kilometers away and the roads were in poor condition. But the U River was only 13 kilometers away, directly accessible via National Highway 228. Was there even a choice? It was clearly the U River. He went home, picked up Zhao Mi, and Chu Mingcheng drove off. He hadn't brought it along before because they weren't very close. Now that Zhao Mi had begun to act more affectionate towards him and allowed him to pet it freely, it had gradually taken on the appearance of a house cat, so naturally, he could take it out to accompany him while fishing. 20 or so minutes later, Chu Mingcheng arrived at his destination. The location off National Highway 228 was where the U River flowed into the sea, and he could see a few people fishing around. Many people also came here to fish for sea bass, and with some luck, the catch could be quite good. This year, this province implemented its first fishing ban in the 8 major basins, including the U River. From March 1 to June 30 was the closed season, during which no fishing activities were allowed. However, it was now late October, well past the closed season. Chu Mingcheng didn't fish at the estuary. Instead, he drove upstream a bit, aiming for large freshwater fish like kingfish, grass carp, and lianyang. He found a secluded spot with few people, took all his equipment out of the car, and after a couple of trips, Zhao Mi followed him and then jumped onto a small stool and lay flat. Chu Mingcheng just kept busy with his tasks. Ever since the cat had been with him, it had become quite lazy, not at all the active type expected of a tabby cat, although it still occasionally caught mice. First, he set up the stand, a 6+4 line setup, and used a size 10 Japanese hook, which was suitable for catching fish under 20 pounds. However, other smaller fish such as kiaozue could also be hooked. Once everything was in place, he placed the fishing rod on the stand, then Chu Mingcheng took out a basin. He then took out the Wild Attack Milk Fragrance Universal Edition ground bait, opened it, and poured it into the basin. The shop owner had given this to him, and had also provided 2 bags. He poured in rice wine, which the shop owner had also gifted him 2 bags of. After adding water and stirring evenly, he formed the mixture into fist-sized balls, making a total of 6, and threw them into the water not far in front of him. After baiting the spot, he had to wait an hour. Waiting an hour was actually quite boring, so Chu Mingcheng took out a lure rod to see if he could catch something for Zhao Mi's dinner. He took out a lure, choosing a 7-gram spinner. The water temperature still hadn't dropped, so fish like kiaozue were more active, moving in the upper and middle layers. Swoosh! Chu Mingcheng flicked his wrist, and the spinner soared high, landing in the water about 20 meters away. As he reeled in, the spinner moved horizontally and swished its tail, making a rather striking display on the water's surface, though the first cast naturally yielded no catch. In our country, the fishing resources are quite abundant, and it's rare to come up totally empty-handed when shore fishing. However, lure fishing resources were relatively scarce. Pole fishing doesn't require a specific region, but lure fishing demands that the fishing area must host predatory fish species, such as kiaozue, blackfish, crucian carp, sea bass, and so on. And the numbers of these kinds of fish were far less than those suitable for pole fishing like crucian carp and carp, so lure fishers often went home empty-handed, unlike pole fishers. Chu Mingcheng cast his line over 20 times with no fish biting at all. Although this was normal, he still felt that lure fishing was not quite suitable for beginners. A beginner's enthusiasm would have vanished long before. However, more than half an hour had passed, and the baiting might have started to take effect. This time, Chu Mingcheng cast his lure toward the baited spot, but unfortunately, the wind plus the spinning reel's lack of precision meant that he missed the exact spot multiple times. Fortunately, this didn't affect the fishing. As long as there were fish at the baited spot, they would be attracted to the lure he had cast nearby. Sure enough, as he reeled the line in, and the lure tumbled, it suddenly disappeared from sight, followed immediately by the tip of the rod bending sharply as it was yanked down. At last, there was a fish, and Chu Mingcheng suddenly felt energized. Today, he was using an M-hardness lure rod, and the fish on the line was quite fierce. The rod almost bent into a reverse U-shape. Chu Mingcheng pulled the rod to the side, steering the fish toward the right. The fishing line was taut, occasionally making a beautiful slicing sound through the water. After a back-and-forth tussle for about 2 or 3 minutes, the fish totally ran out of energy and floated belly up to the surface, a kiaozue. Seeing this, Chu Mingcheng quickly reeled in the line, grabbing the fishing line directly without needing a net to lift it up. He then picked up the hook remover, gripped it on the fish's lip to pry its mouth wide open. First removed the lure, and then checked the weight of the kiaozue. Not bad, It was 1,563 grams, just over 3 pounds. Meow. Little Mimi couldn't stay still after seeing the fish. It hadn't eaten dinner yet. It jumped down from the little stool and even rubbed against his leg, letting out a delicate meow. Here you go, hang on a second. Chu Mingchen couldn't help but smile wryly, having thought he had a high-spirited cat, only to find out it was a cuddly food lover. Throwing the kiaozu on the ground, little Mimi dashed over and bit directly into the fish's head. But a 3-pound kiaozu was a bit large for it. After a few flicks of the fish's tail, it could no longer keep its hold and had to let go to find another opportunity. Seeing this, Chu Mingchen rummaged through his tool bag, pulled out a bleeding knife, and quickly pinned the kiaozu down to mercifully kill it. Little Mimi was now content, moved forward to bite into the fish's head and began eating, making purring and lip-smacking sounds. Chu Mingchen, seeing it eat so happily, couldn't help but smile. Then he checked the time. It had been about 40 minutes since he baited the spot. Although he was supposed to wait an hour for the bait to take effect, this wasn't exactly necessary, so he took out 2 bags of fishing bait, one fragrant and one fishy. He poured both types into a basin, using less of the fishy one, then added water in a ratio of approximately 1:0.9. He kneaded the fishing bait into a large ball, then pinched off a few dumpling-sized pieces, took one of them, hooked it onto the fishing hook, and cast it to the baited spot with the rod. He then tied the slip knot to his wrist, and all that was left was to wait for the flow to sink. Turning his head to continue watching little Mimi eat the fish, Chu Mingchen, inspired, took out his phone and captured the moment of the cat eating the fish. He took shots from the side, the front, close-ups, and long shots, only stopping when little Mimi cleaned the blood off its mouth after finishing its meal. In the future, he would definitely film videos of sea fishing, but for now, footage of little Mimi eating fish and mice could be useful for practice editing. The kiaozu was eaten more than halfway, and Chu Mingchen took the remaining half and threw it back into the river, offering it to an unknown future lucky one.